stuff that, even though I'm the bluest guy here, aside from Steve, that I bet I disagree on. Trump signed an executive order saying that you can no longer look at race during college admissions, if I understand the order right. And I think I agree with Trump in there. This should just be merit-based. And part of it is this. You've mentioned, like redlining and, historical economical deficiencies. The people applying to college next were born in 2001. Right, 2001. That's like recent history to me. 2001. I was working at Cisco. I think I was like that. That to me is not the olden days when these kids were born. This reality of segregation and slavery. They are so far removed from that time when the planet was still black and white. It doesn't. Merit-based admissions just seem fair to me.
Sure. So the thing that is very intangible about that kind of stuff is that one thing that we don't I'm gonna dip into the topic of privilege here, which is very uncomfortable for a lot of people, I understand. But one thing that we don't count on is all of the advantages that we have being born into certain types of families. So if you are somebody that is born into a family with a mom and a dad, where the mom can stay home and work, and both parents are college educated, if you just run like a Bayesian analysis on this type of person, the chances that they will be successful and college educated grows dramatically versus single parent households where only some colleges completed, where no college is completed, where no high school is completed, based on the income of the parents. You have all of these things that can predict future success of a person without even fucking knowing anything about them, right? Show me two people, show me one of them born to a middle-class family with a stay-at-home mom and whose earnings are in the six-figure range versus another one with a single crack mom who has earnings in the welfare range, who is living off of EBT, right? I can give you outcomes. I can be very predictive of the types of people that will be created in these environments. And the problem is
them into college, you're setting them up for failure in a way. There's a reason that if you're trying to get into Yale, for example, and they're all right, this student's black, they have a test score that if they were white or Asian, we would never even consider them, but they're black and we need to let them in. You're letting someone in who's not prepared for that elite university, and they failed disproportionately because of that. Because
and there are
not
arguments
prepared for that.
Sure,
yeah, and there are arguments
on top
to be
of that,
made for those. Yeah,
you're making this argument is it's socioeconomic, and I oh my god, this sounds so racist to say it, but they've done when they adopt a person and put them in these families that would set them up for success, they don't do as well as their natural born children, right? So some of this is just merit based. It's not just a socioeconomic disadvantage.
Oh man, we got a race realist argument. You're referring to the Minnesota Twin studies there?
I read it in the bell curve. I don't know what. I forget where he came from.
The bell curve. Charles Murray. Oh, I'm very familiar with a lot of these things.
Yeah, it just seems like merit based is fair, right?
Yeah. I guess at the end of the day, what I would say is that the thing that feels shitty is that if you go back to the 50s and 60s, people weren't targeting socioeconomically disadvantaged groups of people. People were targeting black people. And even to today, now that we have all these black people in these kind of most fucked ways, now when we have things that aren't racist, like the war on drugs, which isn't racist, but it kind of is.
You're literally talking about these kids' grandparents, right? I've got a girl.
Not that long ago.
Yeah, I've got a girl who's in college now, right? Not applying to college next year, but going in to be a sophomore. And I was born in 1973. And you're talking about the 50s, right? That's ages ago. At some point we get to make this stuff merit based.
Sure, but I mean, if I take any Kennedy that's born in the United States, do you think that these people all of them are super overachievers and they're working really hard all the time? Or do you think a lot of these guys have been born into families that have been rich for generations?
Weren't you fussing about individual examples just 10 minutes ago?
Well, I could point to economic data that shows that people. So we divide wealth into quintiles, right? People that are born into the top quintile of wealth have a 70% chance of remaining there throughout their entire life. People born into the bottom
who are born to NBA stars have a really good chance of being good at basketball, right? Both of Michael Jordan's kids played Division I ball.
And this is also assuming those quintiles don't move around. You're not statically stuck in that third quintile. A lot of it has to do with age and career progression. It's people tend to go up those. Maybe you're not going to make it to that top one or even the second one, but you are more likely to ratchet that up. So if you broke those down by age, like you're going to see a lot more young people in those lower income areas.
Well, not if you're born into an upper income area. That's the thing.
But like,
it's called in economics. It's called stickiness at the ends, right? It's a super well observed phenomenon in the U.S. that if you're born really well off, you tend to be really well off. If you're born really fucked off, you tend to be kind of fucked. People can move, and it does happen, and there is some economic mobility in the U.S. It's not quite as good as other Western nations, but the thing is that just like if your grandparents were super fucked, there's a decent chance that your parents were pretty fucked, which means there's an okay chance that you're going to be kind of fucked. Like you can work your way out of it, but the amount of work that you have to do compared to another person born into like a much better circumstance, it just feels kind of shitty for those people to talk down on the other people. Like, not to sound like really rude or mean or anything, but like if you were born into a family that was like doing well, is like a middle class family, and you got like your bachelor's degree and now you have like out of college a 60, 70,000 year job, you didn't really do much. Like you just kind of showed up every day to your life and like you did it. But I mean, you kind of did what was expected of you. But then to turn around and look at somebody that was born to a single parent household, whose mom like was never home, who was working 3 jobs, who barely graduated high school, and then to look at that person and go, well, why didn't you graduate college like I did? It's like, motherfucker, you didn't do anything exceptional. I love this notion that
underachieving parents have so much less time, right? Like, oh, your father was an attorney. He probably just fucked off all the time and stayed home and played with you as a child, taught you how to play baseball. You know, but your mom, she worked at cash registers, so she most likely was so busy she could have never helped you with your homework.
Well, what I mean is like you have to acknowledge that like having a stay-at-home mom is a massive advantage. With the fact that you can go home and have a parent there that can help you with homework, that's invested in your success, that cares about you, that is monumentally helpful to a lot of children versus being in a single parent household where the parent just doesn't really have time to spend with you.
Not having a father in the home is one of the largest predictors for like
being a criminal,
violence, acting out, being a criminal, not having a positive male role model in the family.
But does that mean that you take a kid who followed the straight and narrow and not give him the opportunity that the other fucked one did?
I was just saying that's true. It is badly impactful. But how does that tie to, well, now your test scores are lower, so sorry, Mr. Asian guy, you get the boot because we got to let this guy in who is probably not going to succeed because we got to hit our quotas. You know, like when this guy could go to a university that is more apt to fit his needs and actually succeed.
Sure. And I think to be fair, like, I don't know if I feel comfortable, like, literally putting in a black person over a white person. Like, when I think of, like, affirmative action programs, like, more beneficial ones, I think, are, like, there are groups of people that will come together and raise money for a cause. So maybe you make, like, a black scholarship program or something. So, like, if a black person gets that scholarship, it's fine. But if you would say something like, well, no affirmative action, like, those people wouldn't raise that money. So it's not like a white person is necessarily losing out just because, you know, there were these types of programs that existed in the first place.
Well, by definition, someone's losing out. There are a limited number of spots.
Well, because they wouldn't. Well, is that true in like maybe like an Ivy League schools?
He was talking about raising money, not spots.
Yeah,
like a scholarship. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if a black organization wants to start a black scholarship fund, fine, go for it.
That feels shitty to me. Like the litmus test I always apply to these things is if you flip it and say, hey, we're going to raise money for white people and only white people can benefit from this. That feels shitty too. Like it just doesn't feel, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do it because I think it even ties into like free speech and liberty and such. Like you should be able to.
If it's a private organization that's like about black needs or whatever, they have the right to do that. That's their money. They can give it to someone else.
Yeah, I agree that it's the right to do it. I also agree that it kind of feels shitty to do anything based on race. I don't like that. But
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But,
it just feels shitty to have like generations and generations of like wealth built up by white people, like literally through racial policies against black people. And then when we make that illegal, now we're like, whoa, hold on. Like, we don't want to do anything race-based now. It's like, okay, well, fuck, we kind of got fucked a long time ago in a lot of ways.
A long time ago, there was some fucking. There's no doubt about that. But we're talking about like the 50s. Yeah.
2 generations isn't
2 generations
that long ago.
Is the difference between me and my grandfather. My grandfather came off a boat. He was poor. My grandmother also came off the boat. They beat the children. My grandfather ran away. My grandmother stayed around, worked a cash register at J.C. Penney. When my grandfather ran away, my father said, great, this is an improvement on our situation. And my father made a lot out of himself. He did fantastic. I don't have that same story to tell because I was raised in a good, well, like,
a lot of behaviors are so a lot of your behaviors are so predicted. Like even I think your political affiliation, isn't that like heritable to like 80%, like 0.8 heritability, like a political affiliation?
Not in my family, but it may be. I wouldn't be sure.
So like there's just so much that passes from your parents that I think people kind of take for granted that like, I don't know. It's
It's anything but merit based feels really shitty.
I agree. everyone should earn their own way. And how can you feel like you earned something if it's given to you anyway? You know what I mean?
Like, oh shit, you fucking gonna trigger the fuck out of me, okay? I don't think that anybody, if you want to go into like, this is like hours, like free will versus determinism and shit, like people will, this is like the really common argument that I'll hear is that like, you're the real racist, you think black people need help because they can't succeed on their own, right? Well, my answer to some extent is, yeah, I don't think black people can succeed on their own, but I don't think white people can succeed on their own either. I don't think anybody succeeds on their own. For the most part, you are a product of your environment, right? If you're born into a really well-off situation, like you're probably going to do okay. If you're born into a really...
Shouldn't all be class-based instead of race-based?
There are good arguments for that. To some extent, I can agree with that. And I'm usually more comfortable saying, and actually, there are really good arguments for making it class-based because sometimes some affirmative action programs end up going to groups of people that they probably shouldn't. For instance, there are some studies that show that like affluent white women take advantage of a lot of scholarship programs that probably shouldn't be going to wealthy white women.
Heard that.
Yeah, there's actually a huge schism in the feminism movement right now between people of color women versus white women, but that's a whole other thing. But like everybody has like this huge set of advantages and shit, and there's so much laid out before you before you're even fucking born that determines like how successful you can or cannot be. So like when people don't take account of those advantages and then they levy the same expectations on other people, I don't know, that makes me feel really shitty. Like people have so many.
But if you say, I don't think anybody can succeed on their own, then it's kind of like, what option do you have other than to just base it on class? But to say, it does seem kind of racist to say, yeah, I don't believe black people can succeed on their own. They need an extra boost from us.
But again, I would say the same thing about white people, because white people that are born into fucked families have bad outcomes as well. It's just that there are more black people per capita, or there are more black people as a percentage of black people born into bad socioeconomics than white people, is what I would say. And then to respond, or go ahead.
Oh, no, go for it.
I was going to say, to respond to like, well, what do we do? This is why I think asking this question is so important. Like, why are people fucked, right? Because the goal is to make environments as good as possible. So get rid of like lead contaminated housing. This needs to fucking stop. The war on drugs probably
is that still a thing? Lead contaminated
still
housing?
a thing.
I feel like that's been sorted out a long time ago.
What city was it that just showed that like 80 some kids tested for lead poisoning levels? This was like just in the news like fucking 2 days ago, I think. But yeah, it's still or like Flint, Michigan. Like these are things that are still like very much like active problems. And a lot of the places that seem to have these problems are rundown buildings that, you know, black people happen to live in, you know, and there's a lot of like really interesting research following like crime history with like elevations of lead and shit that match up across like 25 different countries. It's like, oof. Yeah.
I've heard that too. I've heard that I don't know how true this is. It might just be grasping at straws. But so when Giuliani was mayor of New York, they had a dramatic decrease in crime. But that actually happened nationwide. And they were saying that it had to do with them not using lead in gasoline anymore. And that the people who would commit crimes were coming of age at the time that lead was removed from gasoline. So they weren't psycho crazies. Yeah, lead in crime and psycho craziness is a correlation. But I thought lead was removed in paint before I was a kid, like a long, long time ago.
Yeah, I thought that was very long.
Who has walls that were painted from the 1940s?
Yeah, lead is removed from paint, but the problem is that it still exists in a lot of like, there are two big places that exist. One is in the paint that's currently on walls because it doesn't get painted over because poor places don't have money to renovate. And then two, it can be in soil outside, like lead ends up contaminating soils, and those measurements can be taken like very accurately and measured across cities. But like, yeah, you've got things like that. You've got like incarceration related shit. You've got like the war on drugs. You've got other.
Is there like an equivalent higher rate of cancer in those communities, or any other like maladaptive health things that we could tie to lead poisoning or lead?
I don't know if lead predicts different types of cancer rates as much. I just haven't researched that at all. But I know that lead can predict. Lead can be highly predictive of criminal activity in terms of lead exposure at birth to, and then as a child up to your later life. And there are also biological mechanisms that explain how lead interacts with your body to create a more violent person as well. So like there's the mechanism to explain it, and then there's the empirical data that shows it happening.
So just as an FYI, lead was removed from paint in 1978. So it's places that were painted 40 years ago.
Sure, that's not hard to believe at all, I don't think.
Yeah, I bet it's not that common though.
Well, in some places, I mean, you can look up like lead soil levels. Well,
Now,
depending
they
on
would
how
have had to
shitty
paint in the
this
last 40
guy,
years.
the guy that lives in St. Louis, right? That's you, Taylor. Like, if you go to some places, I'm sure you could find some piece of shit fucking buildings that have not had like a new. And
half
another,
of the city looks like a paintball course.
sure. Another problem too isn't necessarily that like when they redo a lot of these places, they just paint over it too. So as paint starts to chip off and stuff over time, like that old lead shit is like, you know, like for asbestos, like a lot of the times for asbestos in a house, you don't actually get rid of it, you just seal it. But as time wears on, if that sealant starts to wear off and it starts to become exposed, like this is like a super well studied phenomenon that we should probably.
I've never even heard about the lead being used as a reason for this.
Sure, it's super fast. I highly recommend it. When I first saw it, I'm so skeptical of big claims like that, and it sounded incredibly fantastical to me. But basically, especially because the guy that did the research wasn't like a medical guy at all; he was an economist. But basically, if you look up like violent crime in the United States, I don't think it was a Freakonomics guy. I could be wrong.
He definitely talked about it. I don't know if he was first.
Oh, I'm sure they have. They've talked about it in a lot of podcasts. It's super fascinating. What this guy found was that lead contamination levels in soil, if you would draw a graph, it would look like this, like a kind of like a little arc or whatever. And then if you did a graph on violent crime, like 18 years later, it like perfectly matched in some areas. So what he started to do is he started to take all of these cities and he was doing these regression analyses and finding that all of them fit the mold. And then he went and he looked at other countries and he could find the same patterns in other countries as well, that you could find these lead levels, measure them in the soil, and that 18 years later, they would be these massive predictors in change in crime. And it's super fascinating research. And like when I read stuff like that, it makes me wonder like, holy shit, something as stupid as like lead paint can lead to so much fucking horrible shit. Like what else, what other kinds of like seemingly harmless things can have like such disparate impacts on society?
I usually find myself erring on the side of, are we past this yet? Like lead was removed from paint in 1978. So how many painted walls from 40 years ago are we dealing with? And
I mean, if you look at the data on like where the soil levels are measured, there's still a lot of places that have this shit. And you know, like
dirt.
Well, just kicking up the dirt, playing outside, breathing in the air around it on good days. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go full retard.
You remember how you played as a kid?
we didn't always sit inside like all day and not go outside ever. Like, I'm pretty sure I fucking ate dirt as a kid, but I don't think you even have to.
But we're talking about today, though. We're talking about today. They got to be out there making
Not
a mud
even
pie.
today. Everyone in this podcast is 10 years older than the kids we're talking about.
Yeah, no, today it's not a problem as much as it was anymore, right? This predicted major spikes of crime in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s. That's where the huge
we're talking
crime
about
wave was,
next
right?
year's college admissions. Like that's the core topic. That
yeah,
we're
but if
still
you
on.
had parents in the 80s that were committing violent crimes because of lead paint and shit, what kind of children are these people having? Like either out of wedlock and broken families, or dads that are locked up in jail? Like this is having very real impacts on children today.
I would love to hear a kid say that. They're like, "Hey man, I noticed your life's real fucked up. You know, you don't have a car. You got 3 kids by 3 different women. You're living on government assistance. What happened? Ah, man, my dad, he ate paint chips."
Yeah, but like, so like that sounds ridiculous to you.
Yeah. Oh, your dad ate paint chips?
That sounds ridiculous to you. But then when I hear a white dude who's 27 and just got his fucking bachelor's degree talks about how proud he is that he finally finished college, and this motherfucker lived off of mommy daddy welfare his entire way through college.
You're literally talking about Taylor right now.
Yeah, and he's like so proud. He's like, I got my shit, blah blah blah, and it's like, motherfucker, the only thing you paid in college was your fucking cell phone bill, and you feel like you did that all on your own? Sit the fuck down, dude. You are so lucky that mommy and daddy put you through school. Like, have a little bit, just a fraction of empathy for people that might not have necessarily had it like as good as you. Like, it bothers me just as much on the other end. And I think that like parents have a massive impact on how kids turn out. I mean, I'm sure you see it, Woody, when you go out to restaurants. You ever see a kid start to scream and parents just start feeding them fucking candy to shut the kid up, right? Or kids that are obese when they're fucking 14 years old, or not even like 10, 11 years old.
Oh, we hate the
kids
fatties.
are obese,
they're on the list.
right?
Yeah,
and
they're
like,
on the list.
You can hate the fatty, but one, this kid is fucked for life. You know he's going to be obese growing
It'll
up.
be a
And
short
two,
life if I have my way.
Sure. And 2, when he grows up and he has kids, those kids are probably going to be fucked too, because if this guy's already obese at 9 years old, this guy weighs, I've seen kids at fucking 9 or 10 years old that weigh more than I do. This guy's fucked forever, you know? I think we discount sometimes how much our like environment has an impact on the choices we make, because we
You're
want
also
to feel
really
like,
forgiving too, right? Like I don't beat my children, and I took some pretty good beatings as a kid. Like at some point you are responsible for your own actions.
I mean, I don't care to look at like responsibility is boring to me, in that like it seems like a thing where it's just like like who, blah, blah, blah. I'm just more interested in like, how are you going to act in these certain conditions, right? So like, are you responsible for your actions? Ultimately, you're responsible for every action you do. But that question doesn't get us anywhere. It's more like, why do you do the things that you do? Why are you shooting up heroin in a fucking alleyway? Like, did you grow up from an early age aspiring to be a fucking homeless dude sucking dick for drug money? Was that your goal as a child? Or what the fuck went wrong, right? Yeah, were you eating? Yeah, like what went wrong in your life that caused this to happen? And what can we do to keep that from happening to future people so that people aren't making these horrible decisions? Is like what I'm generally concerned.
I don't think is send that guy to college over someone who didn't mess up, who did take the straight and narrow, who was responsible with their life. Because the thing about college is it's kind of a zero-sum game, right? Like, some people get it, some people don't. It's not as if we can just give it to everybody. There's a cutoff, and some people get in and some don't. So it should be merit-based. That seems fair.
Yeah. We should wrap it up soon.
Oh, sure.
Mal and I have got to be up early. Also, Woody finished my degree at 22, so fuck you.
Oh no, I think I misunderstood what he was saying when I think he was saying this is the stage in life where they're proud of themselves for having these accomplishments. So I wasn't saying that you took till 27 to finish school. I was saying
I'm not trying to like.
I was saying that like you know when he talks about that stage in life, I'm like
I feel you. Then I misunderstood. You're misunderstood.
Well, be sure to.
I'm not necessarily trying to like shit on people that are like doing like the straight and narrow. Like that's great, but it's like I remember that like when I went into college, I almost went into college as a sophomore. I took an insane amount of math. I took so many AP classes, dual enrollment classes in high school that I almost went into college as a sophomore. I consider myself to be a pretty bright person. I went in for a music degree and I flunked out of college in like my junior year, and it's because I was working 60 hours a week because I didn't have any help at all. Once I was past 16, my parents were gone. They moved to another state, and I had no help in my life. And I remember sitting in like a practice room one day with my little saxophone quartet, listening to another girl talk about how like, oh shit, dude, like, do any of you guys work? Like, I'm so fucked on homework. And I remember saying like, oh yeah, dude, like, do you work too? Like, yeah, it's like pretty rough. And she's like, yeah, like they just upped my hours. I was only doing 12 hours a week, and now I'm doing 15, and I don't have any time. And meanwhile, I'm like tired out of my fucking blown out of my mind because I'm working like overnight shifts, like 10 hours a day, like 6 days a week, like to pay for everything. And it's like, oh fuck, like you're so lucky that you could go to school. Like if I would have had parents to pay my way through school, I would have graduated with a degree 100%. It's a fucking music degree. I know I can get the degree. But like due to the fact that I had to work on my way through it, like I don't know, it feels like I got really fucked, you know? And then to listen to people that never had to work try to levy claims is like, well, maybe that person is just lazy, or maybe they didn't accomplish much. Like nobody today ever tells me that I'm stupid or I'm an idiot, but I flunked out of music school and I was working as a fucking carpet cleaner making $20,000 a year. My life I was an abject failure in life in every single measurable way. And I got really lucky that I happened to grow up at the right time to get into streaming. And, you know, I knew a lot of stuff because I was lucky enough to grow up with video games and shit that I could turn it into a career. But I'm like one or two decisions away from being like a loser that is losing his house, has horrible credit, and is just fucked in every measurable aspect in life.
I think everybody is. Everyone's only a heroin addiction away.
Yeah, so I'm on the other side of that. Like I work during the day and I put myself through school at night. Now I recognize a little cheaper back in the 90s and 2000s, but I got 2 bachelor's degrees and 1 master's degree, and the whole time, you know, worked all day, went to school at night. It was a tremendous amount of work. You know, the thing I keep remembering is I couldn't watch a movie. I couldn't watch a single 2-hour show and not think like, man, this is a serious waste of time. I have a project due, a paper due. I have all these things that are occupying my time. And I feel like I earned my stuff. You know, I did that. It took 12 years of that lifestyle.
Sure. And that's awesome.
So yeah, and it's merit-based, you know,
yeah. I mean, like,
you know, like you wouldn't take off my straight and narrow. Well, actually, I worked so hard because maybe I didn't go straight and narrow in high school. I could have set myself up for success as a high schooler. But, you know, I did that whole thing. And then to say like, no, you know, you had parents. Your dad went to college, so, and didn't leave your mom. So really you didn't accomplish anything. It's like, man, really? Huh.
I guess like what it feels to me is that like if you're in a really well-off place, if you're born in a really well-off place, there are so many opportunities in front of you that for you to end up a fuck up at the end of that, you must have fucked up so much to actually ruin your life. Like I know people that took 7 years to get their bachelor's degree that lived at home until they were fucking like 26, 27 years old because their parents loved them and would take care of them and all that shit. But when you're on the other end of things and you're kind of like in a fuck spot, say like where I am, it feels like you're sliding down a fucking building and there's like one one ledge like behind you or below you, and if you don't catch that one fucking ledge, that like one opportunity, you're fucked in life completely. And that when people act like everybody has the same opportunities because like I made it, I did well, I could just as easily come out and say like, well, look guys, I was a broke carpet cleaner and I made it, you should all be able to make it too. The reality is like I could have been one or two mistakes away from missing all of this and just being a carpet cleaner for the rest of my life and blowing my brains out, like
I have such a different philosophy and experience than you,
man.
right? In high school I fucked up, right? I graduated with a 1.98, lowest GPA of anyone I ever knew. Got into college because I could swim, which was helpful, and I got good grades in there, and then because I'm a jackass, got thrown out of the dorms. Grades tanked again, right? Fucked up. Went to night school. And, then I started going to night school, producing. Didn't like my first career, accounting. Picked up a second degree, MIS. Produce. Then, I finished MIS. Felt like I didn't know as much as the comp sci guys. Got a master's degree. Just keep going. You can fuck up. Choose the wrong major, choose the wrong career, get bad grades again. Life is long. If you keep plugging away at this thing, you'll get what you want. There is no like, I'm on the edge of a mountain. If I fall off, then that's my last chance. Last chance? Why? Just do more.
No, that's so not true, though. If you're stuck in
I did it twice, 3 times. Like, how's it not true?
You can be stuck in spots in your life. If you're like in your early 20s and you didn't go to school and maybe you fucked up and had a kid or something, or you're working a job, like you don't always have the opportunity to attend a night school. Maybe you don't have one near you, or maybe you don't even have the money to really do it. Like where you don't have the extra time to commit to something, where you could be stuck on like a really
night school near you. My commute was 2 hours to night school.
Not everybody can make a 2-hour commute. Like not everybody has the access to transportation. Yeah, really. Not everybody has a car where they could drive to.
It's not a lot of easy, but like it's hard work. It's fucking really hard. It dominates your entire life. That was my 20s. Like gone. Like I just
I didn't have some people can do it, and it's awesome that they can. But the expectations that we place on people that are fucked are so much higher than other people that when they don't make it, it just feels bad to kind of shit on them for it. I guess. Maybe I'm too much of a bleeding heart. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like life is long. Opportunities come. It never stops. There is no like, oh, well, slipped. I'm carpet cleaning until death now.
If you're like 32 and you're like a blue collar worker that never went to college, I don't feel like you have many opportunities.
Because I was 32 still in school, and I had lots of classmates. At night school, if you go to class at night, there's lots of adults in there. People who are over 30 who decided like, you know what? I've noticed that the path to better success is college. So here I am. And it's a pretty neat dynamic if you ever go to night school. The way that the professors interact with the students is a little different. It's like an adult doing adult thing.
Sure. I feel like if I were to look up outcomes, though, for people in their 30s working blue collar work, the number of them that go to college is probably pretty low compared to the number of people like in their 20s or early 20s or late teens that like I'm sure the one-offs can happen. It just those always seem to be the exceptions, right? Rather than like this should be expected of every person. Like most people can accomplish this.
Those are the hardworking people. It's hard. I mean, extreme hardworking people are rare. There's plenty of people who will just give up after the first the first hurdle. And if the second one comes along, they're like, wow, these hurdles are never going to end. Oh, this is the second one. And they give up there. But I mean, what is the guy who jumped through a dozen hurdles?
The difference is if you're born into a really wealthy family, you might never have to jump like a really difficult hurdle. Like everything is kind of laid out in such an easier way in front of you that.
I mean, you keep saying these, and I'm gonna keep pointing at WoodysGamertag over there. He was born into a wealthy family, and they were like, "Fuck you, earn it."
Yeah. Yeah, Woody's actually a great example of this.
Sure. Well, I'm a great example. I can point to myself because I didn't have help and I did it, and I'm doing incredibly well now compared to where I came from, and I didn't have any help doing it. So, I could point to myself as an example, but like, it just feels like
the one thing that I feel like you said that's held true is expectations are high, and I think that helped drive me a lot. College was 13th grade. I was always expected to go to college from as long as I can remember anything about school,
Sure.
And I bet Taylor's in the same position where, from the time he was a kid, they expected him to go to 13th grade. And, there were times when I can remember I'd make like $100,000 a year, $120,000 a year. And my father just like, there's going to be a time, Woody, when you want actual good money. I know you're living the life with just working 40 or 50 hours.
You probably felt like shit.
Yeah.
You're like, are you kidding me?
And, so expectations are high and they can kind of drive you, and that is a thing. But I also feel like it sucks away a lot of the accomplishment that if you say like, your parents thought you could do it, So therefore, it really wasn't you doing it. Like, I don't know if I buy that.
Sure.
Okay.
We can agree to disagree. I mean, we can hammer away at this for like hours, but yeah, no, I definitely understand where you're coming from.
I know Kyle's every time things get political, Kyle's usually looking like, what's the next topic? But thank you for indulging me.
What did you say, Woody? Even though Destiny was using really shitty tools, he still won the debate for the lead thing. I saw that clip.
Oh yeah, I stand by that. I stand by that.
That's such fucking funny.
If you had to reach deep into like, grandfathers eating lead paint to justify,
it's not
like
just eating lead paint. It's lead getting into the water. It's inhaling fumes of like lead that's dissolving. There's tons of different ways.
These poor people had paint chips, and their grandfather, not them, and not their dads, but their grandparents ate paint chips because they taste sweet. And now you need to give the offspring of the offspring advantages to get into college. And our listeners listened to that and said, you know what? Destiny's right. I'm like, fuck, he's got a gift.
All right, let me stuff soon though, because people are gonna want more funny shit.
More funny shit. I can do this in 30 seconds. Okay. Here's what happened. Okay, economists basically looked at, oh wow, huge trend in murders decreasing. Oh wow, huge trend in lead paint being used less. That's kind of interesting. He did a lot of digging on the data in the United States, and he found that there was like this perfect like 18 to 20 year correlation between amount of lead used in like gasolines and paints and shit versus like the crime rates. He's like, oh wow, that's really interesting. This guy was an economist, not a sociologist, so this wasn't his area of expertise. But he suggested this. Nobody gave a fuck, and he's like, oh okay, well whatever. So then what the guy did was he collected data from like 20 other countries that all at varying times had lessened their use of lead. And he found this exact same 20-year offset between violent crime and the amount of lead used in society. And it matched with every single other country. And he thought that research was very interesting. Biologically, we know that if we introduce lead into people at early ages, it can cause more aggressive behavior, et cetera, et cetera. So the biological mechanism is understood. The correlation is very strong. I'm not saying it's the only reason people are aggressive. I'm just saying like, it seemed like pretty convincing to me. There's tons of articles on it. It was you, fucking Taylor, I think, that said that he found something that debunked or disproved all of it. I
saw an interesting thing, like and people were like, "Oh, it's just a fucking infographic," and I was like, "Well, there was an infographic, but there was an interesting like article behind it too." And it wasn't. One
I hope it wasn't from a website called alternativehypothesis. Hopefully not.
I don't think so.
Okay, yeah, but like,
oh yeah, I've been on there. They're the ones who set me straight on the Holocaust.
Oh yeah. But anyway, that's the argument that there was a high correlation.
Bag of worms. I've got some knowledge to drop on you.
Basically, that it's possible that a lot of people exposed to lead at early ages could exhibit more. And like you see this in some places, like if you look at Flint, that's an extreme example. There's a lot of kids that are going to be mentally retarded for the rest of their fucking lives because of the lead that they were exposed to and consumed in water. This is like permanent brain damage shit. But yeah, that was the only. I'm not saying that excuses people from their actions or that's why everybody is the way they are. But it was something very, very compelling and interesting research to take a look into.
Well,
no, it's an interesting thing to look into. Whatever side of the Mississippi you're on.
Ben Shapiro does a similar thing. And I don't know if I don't think it's intentional for either Ben Shapiro or Destiny, but as a listener, there's so much being thrown at you that you have less time to critically tear it apart between your own ears. It's just like, fact. You're 6 facts later. Fact 2 could have been totally invented. Is that what Gish Gallop is? I always forget some of the other.
No, that absolutely is what Gish Gallop is. For the record, when I have conversations with people, the way that any argument works is you go premise, and then from those premises, logically, your conclusion follows. When I have conversations with people, I always tell them, if I say something and you disagree with it, stop me fucking immediately, and we can talk about it. Because I do agree that when somebody engages in that form of argumentation, where they're like, fact, conclusion, why am I wrong? You've already lost the argument. Like, it's over.
What you do on the other side, and I don't want to say it's dirty, but it's hard to debate against, is you can ask questions like, oh, tell me more, prove this, prove that, prove deeper, prove something else. And it's almost a verbal denial of service attack where like, you're on the other side, like, man, I don't really have a study for that, but I'm pretty confident that it's true. And it can be hard.
I try to be pretty chill on that too. Like if you watch my conversation,
I feel like you tore apart Dick Masterson that way.
Well, okay, careful. Oh man, that's my big trigger. So like,
it's hilarious.
I always tell people, I'm not going to sit here and go source, because it's not reasonable to do. And if there's something that we disagree with, we can sit here and both look it up on the spot. We're on the fucking internet. We got Google today. It's not like back when I was a kid and I had to pull out one of the fucking Encyclopedia Britannicas to look up some fact. Like, if you're telling me something like tariffs, we tariff exports. Like, okay, well, that should be pretty fucking easy to look up. We can do that right now. Like, I'll do stuff like that. In the debate with Dick Masterson, I had specifically told him as well, like, I don't expect you to be able to source every fucking thing you said. The only thing I would hope is that if you bring up a topic, you're kind of well-versed in it, or you at least know what you're talking about. Because Dick Masterson was really mad. And I think he even said on the show, he's like, Destiny tried to corner me into some Trump shit. I didn't. That was a topic that he brought up. He said that I was a very disingenuous debater, and I asked him, okay, well, if I do this all the time, can you just give me one example of this? Like, where am I being disingenuous? I always ask people this, and I never get an answer. And he told me, well, when you grilled that one dude on the lawyer shit, and that lawyer guy was part of La Raza, that was totally disingenuous of you. And I was like, wait a second. No, I was right there. La Raza can mean a fuck ton of different things. The organization that people said that he belonged to isn't the one he did. And then Dick Masters like, oh, you're trying to drill down on facts again. I was like, well, you're the one that brought this up. Like, what the fuck? Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that clip.
Multiple run-ins, or was that the only time you and Dick were on a stream?
Oh, that was the only. I don't think we'll ever be on a stream together again.
No.
You don't like Dick?
What?
You don't like? I thought that while you guys disagreed.
I love Dick, and
Yeah.
that's pretty cool
Dick.
too.
You don't
I
like
think
Dick?
he's absolutely the most cancerous kind of fucking moron when it comes to political discourse on the internet. Absolutely, I fucking hate him. Totally, 100%.
He's fucking hilarious.
I enjoy his
If
time.
he ever want to do a show with me again, I'd love to do it just because I'll shit on him the entire time. I fucking hate people like this. What I do and trying to have conversations with people, when there are people that literally fucking make shit up, it is so fucking frustrating to me. When I'm trying to have a reasonable conversation and somebody's like, well, what about this thing that didn't even happen? It's like, fuck me. Like, we're not even talking about reality. And Dick is totally that kind of guy. Oh, it drives me crazy.
Masterson is a great friend of the show. I think he's hilarious.
Yeah, I feel like my parents are fighting now.
Very funny. Your parents
He's
are
probably,
fighting.
I'm with you.
he's a funny
real
guy.
Scumbag.
I've
Get
watched
a
him
haircut.
shit. He is a funny guy. I'll admit that. I'm not going to say that, like, I'm not going to be like, totally, like, Dick is the least funny. He's a funny guy for sure. But man, when he talks about politics, I think it's totally fucking dumb and it drives me fucking crazy. But yeah.
Well, we support dumb politics around here. This is a fact-free environment.
It got really weird with the whole pride with the whole kink at pride conversation. I noticed there were a lot of very strange takes coming out there where a lot of left-leaning people seemed very eager to defend like children interacting with people in like kink costumes and shit at pride parades.
Yeah.
And I was like,
What?
yeah,
What
I
do
don't
you
know,
guys-
man. Just shit is fucking insane,
So
man.
the left wants
people are
the age of
crazy.
consent lower?
No,
Well, they want
it's not about the
kids.
age of consent. It's you get into these people that here's what happens, okay? Nobody actually knows why they believe in fucking anything. So you're so ideologically like dug in to whatever position you're in that whenever you see something that looks like it's remotely against your ideology, you are forced to immediately stake out the most contrary position you could possibly find. And so what this turned into was like, well, conservatives are attacking, or some people have been attacking the concept of having like these kinky people in like the daytime pride parades. So obviously you must stake out the complete and total other opposite position. And it's led to people just saying these like insane arguments. So a few of these that I've heard recently. So one was wearing like a giant BDSM outfit or whatever with all the dildos and all that shit is basically the same thing as having a wedding ring, because a wedding ring is kind of kinky because it shows that you're fucking another person or whatever. Like, or people saying things, like, well, sure, they might have like the whole dog and something, but like, is kinky gear necessarily sexual? Like maybe they're not using it in a sexual way. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking
I can see
about?
your vulva.
Like that guy's on a leash. Like, that guy's walking around all fours of the dog seat on the leash, and like, and a kid is walking over and about to pet him. There's
Yes, that's what it is.
I saw a photo of that, and I'm like, "Where's that kid's parents? Get him out of there! Come on, this is way too much for a kid to be absorbing."
And the funny thing is that like there are so many people that came out to defend that, and then obviously like I'll fight with a lot of these people, and then later it came out, well, that wasn't actually a pride parade, that was like a Folsom street parade, right? And then everybody's like, oh, see, look, so we win, and it's like, well, no, because you were just defending that at a pride parade. Just because it turns out that it wasn't at the pride parade doesn't mean you win. You would have defended it anyway. Like, why do you think this changes anything? Like, it's easy to just say like, hey, if you want to do kinky shit, that's fine. Do it at night. Do it in a separate parade. Like, you don't have to own every single argument that you think is contrary. And it'll happen too when I'm arguing with people. And to be fair, now I argue mainly with left-leaning people, but like you can tell as soon as you say something that somebody is trying so fucking hard in their head to just disagree, even though like you're setting up an argument and it's very non-controversial. Like you might start with like, it's probably a good idea that children aren't around adults that are doing sexual things, right?
Novel.
And then people will be like, Well, hold on. I know he's setting up an argument. I'm just
You're setting it up for something,
Yeah.
so no.
And then people say shit
no.
like, well, you think that sexual gear is bad? Well, what about the fact that children go to beaches and women wear swimsuits? It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, just
both
keep
children
disagreeing.
and women should be banned from beaches. That's
Yeah,
my
like, geez.
policy.
Oh my
Actually, I like
god,
women at
dude.
beaches.
Just for men, just for adult
what
men.
I-
That's what you want your beach to be like.
Just us guys.
Yes. I wanted to know what you thought about the left too, because I know the right to me seems it's just like they're fucking losing it. It sounds like you're experiencing kind of the
So-
same thing on the left.
Here's the issue: is that 4 years ago, okay, I stood in this area where people on the right are saying things like, "Oh, well, on the left, they're gonna call you transphobic if you won't have sex with trans people. They're gonna call you," and it's like, no, dude, nobody is saying this. Like, calm down. And most people weren't, but now,
Now they're saying it.
now they're saying it. So, like, I have this guy that was arguing, okay, and he's like, well, let's say, so here's a take that I gave on Twitter that I got a ton of hate for, okay, and I'll be very clear when I say this, okay. So I said that if you were in a sexual encounter with somebody, and you found out like halfway through that they had a set of genitals that you weren't expecting, I think that's basically rape. I think my tweet was that's tantamount to rape, because like, holy fuck, that is not something that somebody might have signed up for.
Yeah,
Transphobic
you're
or
not
not,
being
transphobic,
upfront
right?
with them.
And yeah, and I got all these people tweeting me, all these people saying like, oh, you're trying to say you should murder trans people for rape. It's like, no, I didn't say anything about murdering anybody or whatever. Like, you can stop. It's not, you shouldn't murder anybody, but like, that's like really fucked up. And then I'm getting people coming out and it's like, well, if you were going to go down on a woman, what if you found out that she had a genital piercing? Because that's basically the same thing as if she had a dick. And it's like, Jesus fuck, no, I don't think so.
Destiny,
It's
is your
not,
position
but it's
that
not though.
And then people say, yeah, and then people saying that you wouldn't fuck somebody just because they have a dick and you're expecting a vagina. It's basically the same thing as like a Nazi saying they wouldn't fuck a Jew. You're like, what the fuck?
Destiny, I
are you
didn't
talking
get what
about?
rape was, and I'm curious as to it. Like, you were like, if if you hook up with someone who looks like a woman, vibes woman, etc., you get back, you get her pants off, and suddenly she has a dick. That's rape.
I think that it's close to
Yeah.
it. Here, my issue is that like if you're getting, because right now, because trans people aren't the norm or they aren't like as widespread, like
It is if she takes her dick out and rapes you with it.
Yeah, no.
Well, that'll get to it, right?
I'm just saying that most
That's
people,
definitely right.
most people probably aren't signing up for that sort of sexual encounter. Now, if you go to like a kinky, like LGBT, like orgy hookup or whatever, and then you find somebody you bring out and they've got like a dick or a vagina you expect, that's different, okay? But like, let's say for instance, because the counterexample I give is, let's say that you go to like a lesbian bar and there are women there and they find somebody, they start hooking up, they go back to their place or whatever, and then they find out they have a dick. I think the person has a right to feel like really upset. It's like, holy shit, like this is like a non-consensual sexual act. Like I didn't sign up for this, you know? I think that's
Yeah.
a totally fair opinion to have.
You're misleading someone sexually. How is someone against like?
I don't know.
Yeah.
'cause
I don't even
What
think
if
I'm
it's
taking it
two
from the
guys-
other
what if
side,
it's two
right?
kids in a suit?
What if I'm what if I have a dick, but I vibe girl, right? Like I vibe girl, and in my heart of hearts, I know I fool people 20% of the time. But that fucking Rube was one of the 20, and I get back and it's like, I didn't know you were dumb. Like
You
didn't-
lied by omission. You lied by omission right there.
Did
You
I?
won't be enough.
Like here's my problem is that when left-leaning people, and me included, and I still feel this way, when we talk about consent before, we moved past consent. And we even moved past something called informed consent, where it's not just enough to give consent. You have to give consent and know like what you're actually consenting to. And then we moved all the way to the concept of like enthusiastic consent. It's not enough to just like bully a woman into saying yes, she'll fuck you. She should be like excited and enjoyed him and like excited about it. Like this is somebody that actually wants to fuck you.
Okay.
But now all of that is completely thrown away where it's like, well, is it really that bad if you're fucking somebody you find out halfway through that they have a different set of genitals you weren't expecting? It's like, wait, what the fuck happened to everything about informed consent or everything about enthusiastic consent? Like, this is like really fucked
I feel
up.
like the move here is you bring this woman back, right? You find out she has a dick, and it's like, that's not what I'm into. You're gonna have to blow me, right?
No, you know what? You know what? would,
Don't
like,
be a
you know
bigot.
what might unite people is like we get Matt Gaetz in like a gimp suit, and then he's at the Pride Parade, and kids are coming up to him. Everyone's gonna suddenly it's gonna become he's wearing a MAGA hat. It's gonna get a little more real, and those people will be like, "Oh, well, that's clearly wrong." It's like, but just because it's Matt Gaetz, what about the puppy play, huh? And the puppy
Yeah, if he
play
can make it through the if he can make it through the parade without getting pet by a kid, then we'll forget about everything he's done, right?
he has to dodge.
I love the idea of enthusiastic consent because I immediately think of like, well, North Koreans are like the most enthusiastically consenting people on the planet. Like they are absolutely thrilled when they see, they're crying when they see any of the Jong-uns. Oh my God, I love you so. That's the most enthusiastic consent. So
that's
a relationship goal for me.
I'm over there like enthusiastic consent. I've been married 25 years. Enthusiasm. Is this not every time, bro?
Sometimes sex begins with a shrug and a yes.
Sometimes it's like,
got
all
time.
right.
Yeah, I could bust.
That's rape, I guess.
No, as opposed
Taylor,
to, she needs to be like, "Woo! Ah, yeah, with the sound maker."
So my chat keep asking me this question, and they sent me a video a while back.
no.
Yeah. I'm just curious.
All right,
man.
I'll see you guys later.
No, I'm just curious, man.
Hit me up. Yeah.
So they
Are you
say,
in trouble for something?
No, it's not
What?
trouble, bro. Like these are all just ideas we expressing, man. So I'm just curious. They say you comfortable with saying the N-word. I'm just curious as to why that is, or why you feel like that's cool. I mean, being of the left, I would assume you on the left. I mean, I don't want to type.
Yeah, I'm very left socially.
Yeah,
So,
Destiny, how dare you?
Yeah. So this is what it all came down to. But this kind of originated out of talks of like how to joke about things in a socially responsible manner. So the way that I kind of start this is that there are jokes that I know that I think are really funny, but I wouldn't tell them in a public setting because I don't really feel comfortable saying certain jokes in a public setting. Like, for example, there are certain like South Park or Dave Chappelle jokes that I think are funny, but I don't know sometimes how I feel about watching them with certain audiences because I don't know if they'll laugh at the right things or if they'll laugh for reasons why they shouldn't be. So from there, I basically say like there are jokes that I feel comfortable making privately, and then there are jokes that I feel comfortable making publicly. So this essentially got boiled down to like, would you ever tell a joke with the N-word in it? And I mean, I guess if there was one that like called for it, sure. And then like the entire argument basically revolves around, do you say the N-word privately? Like,
do you skip the N-word in a rap song?
I don't usually sing along to rap, but I mean, I imagine if I did, I'd probably just rap along with it. But I mean, I don't usually like sing along to rap songs or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I guess like if there was some like essential joke or whatever that had it as part of it, I would. I don't personally know any. Like, I don't say the N-word privately. But I mean, I guess if there was like a context appropriate joke, I don't think it's a big problem,
I'm just wondering
because
that's one of those borderline ones because it's like an artistic expression. If you changing the artist's original expression of the song.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much you lose out of the original song by.
Well, like there's some Little John songs where that's like 80% of the content.
Sure. Yeah.
So
maybe.
I guess my question is like, okay, if y'all are socially left and you understand the harm that it does, what's the point in participating in those harmful?
I guess
tropes?
the question is like, what type of humor perpetuates harm, and are there different avenues through which potentially harmful humor can be expressed in ways that wouldn't be harmful? So like, for example, there are jokes that I would say about women around my girlfriend because she knows who I am and I know who she is that like would be like pretty bad to make publicly because I think they could further maybe harmful stereotypes against women or harmful things against women. But me and her know each other well enough. We know we don't hate women and she knows that I'm joking. So I think it's okay. Or I think there's like a lot of edgy humor, especially that like you can say them around, you know, certain friends that you guys know that you don't have, or hopefully you know that you don't have these inherently negative thoughts. So in that case, like, yeah, I mean, there are certain jokes that are funny, but like doing it in a public setting is a little bit different.
Intent means a lot.
I don't know if I just say intent. I think it has to be a little bit more than that.
So more than intent, a little bit of intent and background and knowing who you really are.
It has to be
like my
intent,
question for
actually.
Arian is this: if I was reading the Tom Sawyer book to you and it had the N-word in it, would you be like, "No, Woody, you need to skip that part"?
My intent would, I mean, my response would be, what would be the point of saying it to me?
We're reading the Tom Sawyer book. I'm doing a public read. This is what my Twitch streams are about. I read old fucking books all the time. I'm a fucking book Twitch streamer.
But if me and you both know what it says, what's the point of saying it to me? Is my
What's the point of watching a movie like Roots then?
Let's not pivot.
So wait, you didn't really do that. You didn't.
That's not a pivot. That's
hold on. I'll answer your Roots question, but answer my Tom Sawyer question. What is the point of saying it to me? If you're reading me, Tom Sawyer,
I am reading the entire book to you.
Sure you are, but not every word equals the same amount of.
But that
value.
word insinuates.
Wings, give me a second to talk about Arian.
Wings, let him cook. Wings, let him cook.
We've tried to do this before. You spent 40 minutes on some other thing. Not this time. So if I'm reading Tom Sawyer to you, and then I hit the N-bomb,
right?
You say, Woody, no. You read all the words.
Why didn't you just say nigga right there? Why didn't you say nigga right there?
I know you hate it.
on Twitch.
I don't say it at all
So
anymore
why
because
would
there
you
are
say it
people.
while you reading literature?
Because it's, I don't know. I feel like otherwise to do anything else would be to misquote.
So all right. So this is why I feel about it. So like I'm not the word police, right? And I explained this to you when you said it on your podcast when I was there, right? I'm not the word police. Say whatever you feel. I'm not finna. I really don't feel any kind of way about it, honestly. My position on it is if you're a kind of white person that says that, I just disassociate myself with it. I just leave the room. It's not I'm gonna leave. It's not, I'm not beefing with you. It is what it is. But if you can understand the context of us talking about it in an informal way, and you can say the N-bomb, but you're reading it in art or literature and you have the cognitive wherewithal in the informal way to say N-bomb, but not in the literature sense, to me, you're just using that as a scapegoat to say it. Because you want
No,
That's
no.
not true.
Here's
That's
what
not true at all,
happened.
though.
Stop it,
Okay.
Wings. Here's what happened, Arian. Stop it, Wings. Since my conversation with you, whatever that was, 18 months ago, 0 times, never ever say the word. That's it. Because I feel like my takeaway from that is there is no context in which it's okay. Having said that, like there's almost a tie-in to what Destiny was saying, which is like, hey, when I'm with my girlfriend, I might make a misogynistic joke because she knows who I really am and she knows that that's not where I am. And it's kind of funny in that context that we can both laugh at it. That's kind of how I feel with my PKA audience, right? I've made 3,000 videos. I have like thousands and thousands of hours with these guys. They know me. And
Right.
I feel like it's not too far from Destiny and his girlfriend, and that there's like a context and a history in there in which they don't view me through this lens of like an unknown guy. And I misquoted a guy. I was wrong. But in what I thought I was doing was accurately telling his story. And what I thought the N-word was there, by the way, it's the one that ends with A, if that makes any difference.
It doesn't.
Is it like, okay, so there's a Harvard study and it's the asshole rule, right? And their thing about hiring new people is that if anyone in the interview process says this guy is an asshole, they don't hire him. Now, they address the word asshole. They're like, look, we tried to beat around the bush on this. We tried to say jerk. We tried to say silly head. We tried to say stinky pants, but none of them meant the same thing as asshole. Asshole means something in particular. It has a connotation to it that jerk lacks, right? And as he explained it, I was like, all right, I see what you're saying. So when I was quoting this guy, and he said, he didn't, but I thought he did, shit hurts, brother, then I thought without that, I wasn't conveying the essence of it. Like there was a deeper sincerity, a further pain that I thought I was including by having that word on there. And
So because
that's why the quote happened like it did.
got you. So because I would consider you, and you have described yourself as socially left, you understand that certain social groups have certain colloquial lexicon that they feel comfortable calling each other, right? So like if I'm talking to women, like I'm talking to a woman and I call her a bitch, it's not the same as if another woman calls her a bitch. You understand that distinct difference. Am I wrong in assuming that?
I think that's fair. Yeah, I see where you're coming from.
Okay, so to me that's a microcosm of what the word nigga means towards black people, right? It's nowhere close to the same, but it's a microcosm of getting people to understand how there is a difference. And so to me, if you cool with saying it, because I think we all grew up being a little bit bigoted, right? We all grew up being a little bit discriminatory to things that we were not privy to, especially pre-internet people. Like I think all of us here were pre-internet kids growing up, right? And so whether it was a homosexual slur or another racial slur, like I can get why that was normalized in your group. But as you grow
Okay.
and become a grown man and understand how those words affect other demographics, I think it makes sense to me to curb your desire to say that word, because it just shows empathy towards those causes. Like the homosexual slurs, right? I grew up saying that all the time, but there became a point in my life where I was like, it doesn't serve me saying it, even personally. There's no joke. It's not funny to me anymore, right? And so it just doesn't serve me to say that stuff anymore. And so I may be different. I may be a SJW. I may whatever you want to call me, but I just consider myself empathetic towards people, right? And it's like I can find another adjective to call somebody whatever.
Does context matter at all? I
Not
feel like
to
I'm
me-
arguing
not-
for it, and I really don't want to
not to
argue for
not
it.
to
But let
me.
Let me lay it out though. Let me
Got
finish
you.
it, right?
Got
Like
you.
like if you and I are old friends, we've been hanging out for 15 years, you know, whatever. We're tight. And I say, like, sup, bitch, it's been too long, right? That
Right.
means an entirely different thing than like, yo, bitch, who you think you are, right? Same word, different context.
Sure, but whoever you're referencing is not the representative of that demographic.
Well, what if it was? It does seem weird that I wouldn't say that to a girl.
Wait, that kind of hurts her argument.
That's
I hear it.
horrible.
Well, look, yeah, but I'm being honest in my argument. I'm not going to
Yeah.
claim my. Yeah.
Well, I think this. I think this is the issue. The issue is this: Black folks are very unique in the sense that their pejorative adjective that has been placed on them, they have then flipped, and it is one of the most desired words to be used because of how we use it. It sounds fucking cool. Hip hop and rap is it's the biggest genre in the world. And so it sounds cool. And I think people just want to say it because it sounds cool. Because think about how many other pejoratives of discriminative of minorities that have been discriminated against that are out there, and how many are used daily in your lexicon just because. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. But you just I think
gay
you're
ones get
reluctant.
used.
I think you're for sure. But I think you're reluctant to admit the fact that you just want to use it because it sounds
Oh
cool.
no. I think I told you the truth, and it's not fair to insert my thoughts and what you think are my thoughts into my head. I when I told the story of the asshole rule and how, you know, when he said shit hurts, brother, and it lacked the woundedness that he had in his voice without the full quote, which was a misquote. That was what I was doing there. It wasn't me trying to be cool. Like I felt like I was taking a risk.
But we ain't talking about asshole though. Those are two different things.
We
They carry
are, but
very different
the whole
historical
point of the
baggage.
asshole story was that sometimes substitute words don't mean the same thing. You know, that was the point behind that, and that's what I was doing with brother. We'll say, you know, it doesn't mean the same thing. If I had said that, it would have lacked what I thought was this like wounded response, where like, man, I was trying to help you, and the way that you rejected my help hurt me.
And you really thought that was the best way to convey that message, honestly.
It was literally what he said.
But you
No,
thought that was
again-
the best way to convey that message from you.
I think that there are times where I don't know what media you're familiar with. Have you ever seen the show Atlanta?
I've seen like a few clips. I've never really watched it though.
Okay, so there's a joke. So you would say that like a white guy saying it with a soft A is unacceptable too, I imagine. I think that's what I heard earlier, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so there's a joke in Atlanta. There's a few of these
Wait,
that,
you
that I
said
kind of
I want to make sure. I don't. What did you say?
Would you think that it'd be bad for a white guy to joke using the soft A version of the N-word as well, right?
I think it's more nuanced than that. It's not that I deem it bad.
Mhm.
It's not. I wouldn't place a moral equivalence on it, right?
Well, I just mean like you should avoid it. You shouldn't do it or whatever, right?
I think if you're any kind of empathetic human being, you would.
Sure. So there's a joke in Atlanta where the main character, I guess, I haven't seen the whole show. I've just seen a lot of clips. So the main character, I guess, is perceived as like a more suburban or middle class black guy. And a white friend is telling him a joke. And he ends the joke with like a soft A. And the black guy is like,
What
"Holy
is a
shit."
soft A?
as opposed to ER.
Is there a hard A? Why is it a soft A?
Okay, with the A.
All right.
Okay,
I mean,
but he ends it.
it's just the interesting description why we call it a soft A.
Well, I've heard like hard ER and then the soft A. These
I've
are the
heard
two that I
ER
hear.
and I've heard A, but the soft A, that's new to me.
Oh, okay. Then the A without the
Okay.
adjective. But
Okay.
anyway, so the white guy uses the A version of the N-word, and the black guy is a little bit taken aback. He's like, okay, what? I kind of shocked you said that around me. And then later on, either in that episode or a later episode, that suburban black guy gets his white friend to repeat that story, but now he's around more like stereotypical non-suburban black guys. And he notices that when his white friend repeats the story, he doesn't say it with the A. He leaves that word out completely. That's like one example where I see like, I don't think that joke works unless you have a white guy like saying the N-word, even with an A. It feels like that joke just doesn't work. So then the question would be like, should we eliminate all those types of forms of humor, even when it's done like in a black show and what is kind of like a socially responsible way? Should all of that disappear? Or are there times where joking about things in a slightly more edgy manner in like a socially responsible way is possible? Or do you think it's impossible to do it?
I mean, is this not, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this not what conservatives argue about with cancel culture? And is this
It's
not
possible.
what they say?
Well, I mean, cancel culture is an entirely different concept, though. I just mean, because we can go through. There's episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. There's Dave Chappelle skits. There's like a lot of jokes that involve racial humor that I think are done in ways that aren't like racist. And then the question is, because this is why I have my private language stance, because the alternative to that is that you have to eliminate all of these forms of humor. Just need to go completely, and I feel like you lose a lot there. And I'm just curious if you, yeah,
you lose a lot of humor if you don't say nigger.
I mean, not me particularly, but I think there's a lot of I think there's a lot of humor that can be done in an irresponsible way that could be done responsibly that you would lose. Yeah, without that, you would lose almost the entire Chappelle show, right?
There's a lot of Chris Rock work.
We would lose almost the entire Chappelle show. Now, I don't know how you feel about him, but like,
I'm not talking about
what?
black folk.
Sure, but like even he quit. One of the reasons why he quit his show was because he felt like he was getting the wrong type of laughs. He was worried that some of the humor that he was doing wasn't socially responsible when he was talking to Oprah about
That's
it.
to my point, though.
Yeah, but my question.
It wasn't what he was saying. It was what it was what specifically quoting Dave Chappelle was. It was like when I was doing a skit, I saw white folks laughing at me rather than with me, and so that's a very distinct. And that's to my point.
Which skit is this? Do we all?
I don't
you guys
think
have
they
a
ever aired it.
particular
I don't
one?
think they ever aired
Well, this
it.
was an unaired one. He was talking to Oprah about skits.
Oh, okay.
And so to my point is you're saying I think we lose some of that humor. Like, does Destiny lose his humor if he just takes nigga out of his lexicon, out of his verbiage? Does that lose some of how funny you are? I don't think so. Right?
Arian, you can't say that word.
I can say it.
No, you
I
can
want.
say
You
I mean,
say
as long
it
as we're
on
talking
Twitch
about
channel.
They
even
ban
on
you on
Twitch,
Twitch
as
for
long as
saying
we're
Yeah, you
responsible.
can get us all banned. Knock it off.
They ain't gonna ban you. I say it on my Twitch channel. I mean, I might not be big enough, but they ain't gonna ban me, fam. But I know people.
I have an army of trolls that will use this against me.
I got you, Woody. They ain't gonna say nothing to you, fam. Anyway,
I don't
I'm
think
gonna
it's fair to
say it if you wanna be on,
hyperbolize.
but go ahead.
I don't think it's fair to
I just got a hood pass chat.
I don't think it's fair to hyperbolize it. Like, it's like I'm not going to lose all of my humor if I get rid of like racial jokes.
That's
There
not
is an
hyperbole
element
though. But that's not hyperbole though. So
well, but you're making it sound like I lose all of my humor if I get rid of racial jokes. Like, no, I still maintain most of it, but there is some humor, of course, that you lose. Like, there are some jokes that are like racialized or sexist or whatever that you necessarily lose. So the question is whether any of those are worth protecting at all. I guess is the
are
question.
they? That's the bigger question. Are they? Do you think?
I think they are. I would say that they are. I think that they
Okay.
can be done in a socially responsible way.
Gotcha.
But some people would say that.
Got you. I disagree.
I would like to put it like this way: if you consider yourself leftist, the whole idea is to look at every person as a human being and not as race. And if you got to lose like
That's not. I don't disagree with that.
jokes,
I disagree with that wholeheartedly. Actually,
The problem you can't look at
Pretending-
everybody as an individual human being when we spent a lot of society looking at individual
the
races.
only way to truly get rid of racism is to stop talking
we're
about
segregated, Wings. Regardless of how you feel about it, we
I understand we're
segregated.
segregated right now, but to get to where you want to be at, you got to take segregation out. Instead of looking at you as Arian Foster, the black guy, you're Arian Foster, the human. That's the only way racism gets defeated. And to
No.
do that, you got to slowly break the cultures and meld them into one.
And so just call everybody a nigga.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
With the A, he means.
Right.
Well, if you call everybody one, isn't that circle back around to fair again?
No, I
no,
don't think it
Woody,
works
that was hyperbole. I was joking. That's not.
Well,
what
if
was
I
saying.
call Destiny one, is it still bad?
Yes,
Probably,
Woody, what the
yeah.
fuck? Okay, so listen. Do you think that word has been used as a pejorative to put down a specific race in this country in a way that is unique?
Yeah, I'm goofing. There.
Wait, actually, that
Joking
joke,
out.
that joke that you
Destiny
just
rap.
told, that joke that you just told only worked because you said the N-word. I mean,
I didn't
course.
say it.
no.
You're talking about me.
Oh, I missed
Yeah.
it.
Of
All right, I didn't
course.
follow. My bad.
Of course, right? But what's interesting to me is like, because I don't like to liken Black issues with LGBT issues, right? Because they're not the same, but they do have a lot of things in common. Okay,
sure.
and so like I said, I grew up saying, and I apologize if I offended anybody, but I'm just using it to make a point. Is that I use the homophobic slur where it starts with a G. I won't even say it. It doesn't even matter. But I grew up saying that all the time. Everything was that. If it was a bad, it was that. But when
Rhymes with Trey, right?
Sure. And so but as I grew as a man, as I grew up, I started meeting people that were homosexual and how that offended them and how they had to fight that fight every single day and how they had to fight their sexuality with their family and with society and with the job and with this and with that. And the jokes that I put across in my personal life were not that important to me. I just don't understand why it can't be met with the same respect. Like what?
I mean,
what
it
are
can
you
be. It
losing? Like what are you losing by not saying nigga? I don't understand this shit.
I guess it just depends on the type of humor you're familiar with or the type of humor that you find entertaining, I guess. Have you watched any of Chris Rock's stuff? Would be like a lot of that is racialized as well. Oh, what? Well, that's no fun then. You could book me between Jesse Lee Peterson sessions, man. Holy shit. I've never had a crowd full of so many Black people booing me at the same time than when I am in front of, oh my God. We're talking gun control. Okay, I got a guy to the left of me. This guy is 6'2",
Can you explain what the
huge.
show is?
No, honestly, I can't. I wish I could.
On a mission from God.
It's
like
so
a
basically,
black
yeah, he's like if you take like a guy who's Jesse Lee Peterson, who also happens to be Black and very conservative Republican and is on his 4th or 5th stroke. I'm not entirely sure how many things need to happen to your brain to get to this level of cognition, okay? But he does shows where he brings in random people and talks to them about indescribable topics, usually related to Trump or God or Black people, whatever he says.
Black people.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah. Sometimes I go to his. He brought me to like a live conference once, and it's a crowd full of Black people and Black cops and MAGA wear and everybody. And I'll say something like, "Wouldn't it be cool if like kids in schools didn't have to wear Kevlar backpacks?" And the whole audience is booing me. And it's a very insane experience, and I'm not even sure how to deal with it. I will say one thing though. He brought an actual white nationalist to that convention, so I wasn't the most hated person like on the stage on that speech. I appreciated that at least.
They should always bring one of those guys on to make the other guests more comfortable. Where it's like, that guy's going to take all the heat. I can talk about Kevlar backpacks and all the Black people in the
What's
crowd
it
won't hate
called?
me too much.
A sacrificial anode? Is that what it is? Like it gets all the rust and corrosion, so the rest of the system is okay.
Yeah, this is something I'm familiar
Somebody's been in their garage recently.
Jeez.
Wow.
Showing off.
Wow.
I don't know how to follow that one up.
What's it called? A rebuild Johnson carburetor, boys? Is that pretty much like what we're all talking about here? I know cars, no big deal. Just Woody, just like a dick.
I'm such an asshole.
Oh my God.
I don't know why I happened to see you on the lineup of Jesse Lee Peterson because I'm a whatever he calls his high tier member of rebuilding the man, rebuilding whatever.
That's his goal to rebuild the man.
I was shocked you were on there. That was very brave of you.
Yeah, hey.
Is this a big deal guy? Like, is he popular?
No. He's like what does he have, like 100 or 200,000 subs? And he does like live stuff. Like I think he might have a radio channel, and he likes to bring people into like his little like stage area. Maybe fits like 100 people in this little auditorium, and they debate people and give speeches and
How
stuff.
do you do in these debates? So
You beta male. That's the
for context. Destiny
It's
once
way-
beat us 3-on-1 in a debate with the most bullshit facts ever. Something about paint chips from the 40s.
Hold on. Okay, this was Woody. I made it on my own. My parents only paid for my third crashed motorcycle. Okay, Woody person. All right, there was a lot of bended facts there. Okay,
I don't know what you're talking about. Go on.
I don't know why I took a shot at you there. What were we talking about?
I bought my own
I
motorcycle.
thought we were talking about the Black talk show host.
No. I was asking how you did in the debates, and I was saying that you beat us 3-on-1 with like paint chip
Bullshit
insanity.
facts.
Yeah, and it was a left-handed compliment, I think, but you didn't like it.
I took it as a right-handed insult, I guess.
That's not what I was going for.
That's what you get, Woody. Don't even stray close to that. That's a warning. That's a warning clap back from Destiny.
They'll be coming. I'm not going in here trying to win. I'm just trying to make a show.
That's
So
a
these
Destiny
debates-
cap for you.
These debates with Jessie Lee Peterson are far different. So if you've watched me and Dick Masterson talk, these are my conversations with
Hilarious.
Dick are rigorous, intellectual feats of strength and prowess, right?
Yeah, okay.
Jessie Lee Peterson is just playing to the audience, people screaming at each other, making whatever random statements. I think at one point he goes down the line and he asks, what does it mean to be a man? And then he asks us if we shave our balls.
This guy's awesome.
Okay.
It's quite the experience.
What was his response? If he said yes, I shave my balls, is he like, you're a beta male?
Well, yeah, he said, yeah, basically. Or if you have sex with a woman, do you let the woman fuck you, which means she's on top of you? If so, you're a beta male. Just a lot of crazy, random.
Woman on top is beta male shit.
I'm every variety of male that I can pull off, I guess.
I've turned again. This guy sucks ass.
He also says you shouldn't be having sex at all out of marriage, and that he advised me to cure my sex addiction, which is having sex with my girlfriend, by forgiving my mother.
His show should be banned.
How's that working for you?
It's not working well.
No.
I haven't been able to cure any addiction yet. I'm just piling them up.
Well, maybe I'll ask your mom to make the first step. So
he really is just like a fucking pastor. Go and say no premarital sex. Don't shave your balls. Don't.
Well, the creepy
let your
thing.
girl ride you.
He has like a whole. It's called the. Oh God, his organization is like. It's like
Bond.
beyond. Yeah, Bond. It's
Bond.
like
Rebuilding the society to rebuild the man. Rebuilding the man to rebuild society, or something like that.
something. Yeah, New Destiny or whatever. It's like the ND at the end. He has like the people that go there are very into him in a shocking way. I feel like I'm on a bad episode of the Boondocks or something. It's crazy how insane a lot of these people are. But yeah, holy shit. If you ever a chance to look into it, just it's a darker side of the internet, I guess. I didn't mean that like that, but you know.
No, it would be funnier if you did.
Destiny. I'm catching.
Yeah, no, I
sharp as a marble here. All right, darker
God.
side of the internet. Right. So, have you tried working your way up the debate chain? Like, do you want to talk to a Ben Shapiro or a Jordan Peterson or someone who, you're not just dunking on Fisher Price hoops anymore?
Dude, Destiny versus Ben Shapiro would sound like auctioneers.
Right?
Yeah.
So fast.
The unfortunate part is that like you hit like a lot of dead ends. I don't want to say with the right, because I'm sure it happens with the left too, I guess maybe. But like with the right, you hit a lot of dead ends where these bigger guys are very controlled with the content they do. So people like Mark Dice or Ben Shapiro is really large, or Steven Crowder. They don't just take on like debates on the internet, even against like other largish figures. They usually kind of avoid them because they want to control the, I guess, like the narrative that they present to their audience.
But they also
like boxing.
They do the uncontrolled.
You guys might as well just have belts. You might as well have like a welterweight.
So you can challenge someone for it.
Right.
You lose the belt if you.
I mean, it's the same thing. Like, oh no, we're not fighting him. He's too tough. Like, we get only a couple of these big debates a year, and
so they get to 38-0.
Only got a couple left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that's true. That's how Ben Shapiro got his numbers up. It'll be like Ben Shapiro molests retarded 14-year-old about guns, and Ben Shapiro dominates retarded kid into submission. against his will for
Yeah.
capitalism.
Ben Shapiro eviscerates handicapped war veteran for stupid stance on VA healthcare. Like it's always
Actually,
like some insane.
you can drag yourself pretty well. There's no reason for me and my tax dollars to pay for that wheelchair. It should be illegal to be over 5'6".
If anything, people in a wheelchair should actually have to pay the government money because you save calories by not having to stand at any portion of the day. Yeah, something.
Yes.
You sound exactly like him.
You should do Ben Shapiro parody stuff. You got the rapid fire stuff down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it a coup attempt? Was it just a riot? Was it Trump's doing? Was it contrary to what Trump really wanted? What was your take on that?
So I think that it's really silly to get fixated on the words that we use because people will get like hyped up on falling into what these words mean. And then the whole conversation devolves into that. So like, for instance, if we were to say like, well, this was a coup, somebody might say like, well, it's a coup because they tried to stop like a democratic process of an elected leader and they wanted to install their own leader. But then somebody else might counter, well, was it really a coup? They didn't seem very organized. They didn't have top-down direction. They didn't have widespread enough support from the leader directly. Like, so like, I think that like getting into like, was it a coup and blah, 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 I think is like dumb because then people just argue all day long about like what the definitions are and what you need for something to be considered like a terrorist action or a coup, blah, blah, blah. But I think that if we were to speak like broadly, I think it looks like a coup to me. Yeah, there wasn't like direction from Trump, but you clearly have a lot of people that are so far removed from reality that they can't comprehend that maybe their candidate lost. And their goal is to subvert the democratic process by any means possible. First, it was misinformation from Trump. Then it was misinformation in the media. Then it was misinformation in the alternative media. Then it was misinformation from Giuliani. Then it was misinformation from in the lawsuits. And then it was misinformation of the Supreme Court. And then it was misinformation about how Pence could overturn the election. And like then it was misinformation about how senators could object at every single stage. And all the processes, as stupid as they were and as much of a fucking waste of time they were, every single process was followed from start to finish. You know, they had their time in the media. They had their time on social media. They had their time in the courts. They had their time in front of the Supreme Court. They had their time in the Senate. You know, Trump called Pence a pussy. And at the end of the day, they lost at every stage of the way. And then it seems like at the end, it's like, well, fuck it. If reality isn't going to bend to what we want it to, then we're just going to break into the Capitol and force you guys to do what we want, which kind of feels like a little bit of a coup to me. But
is that confirmed that he called Pence a pussy?
I mean, it's reported, and it seems to fall in line with everything else Trump has said. But
I hope he did.
I feel like you let Trump off the hook pretty easily, and like they didn't have support from the top. Like Michael Cohen testified, and he said Trump speaks in code, which makes it sound really complicated. But this code isn't hard to decode. He says things like, you know what, Taylor, it sure would be nice if when you looked at General Flynn, you found him not guilty of anything and just just stopped it here. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not telling you to do that. I'm not pressuring you. I'm just saying it would be nice if it happened. Sure. That would really lighten my day up. That would make me smile. And you get the message, right? That's not a hard to decode code. When he says, look, you guys are going to lose your country if you don't march right down there to the Capitol and fight. People are like, he didn't say to like break windows. Right?
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that like it's not like Trump was communicating with a few guys on the ground being like, if you get into the Capitol, I'll get the military there to help you. And like that's what I mean when it wasn't like official code. Trump absolutely has the messaging though. Those people were there because of his irresponsible messaging year after year after year after year. 1,000,000%. I'd never disagree with that. 100%.
I think I caught some Fox News the other night, which I don't often do, but they did a montage of things that Democrats have said leading up to and during the riots of last summer. And a lot of it was way more inflammatory than what anything Trump's ever said. Like the stuff that Maxine Waters said about taking Trump out and what people were saying about blowing up the White House. And, if you see anyone who's a member of this cabinet, get in their face and push up on them and, don't give them a job. And, if you see them at the gas station, get after them. And I want to go
to when they were locking children up in cages at the border.
Yeah, following the Obama tactics.
That's not true.
No,
Carry on.
Obama didn't make those cages.
That's
himself.
Obama didn't fill those cages.
Yeah, that's right. It's like they had this thing.
So we were using Obama's cages. So just so we're all clear.
See,
I mean, there is a distinction to be drawn there. I mean, like we had some immigration policy, but listen, at the end of the day, you can't feel bad for them. You can't, like, when you're on record saying like shithole countries, Mexicans are rapists, blah 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 blah, and then you start stuffing kids in cages, it's going to look a certain way. I mean, you really have no one to blame but
The
yourself.
Obama cages, yes.
The empty
And
Obama
they're-
cages that were filled with the Trump separated at the border families. I mean,
I'm glad you pointed out that they were empty. Obama not following through with anything, really. You know,
All that wasted money on cages.
all that
Yeah.
wasted money on cages. Another
Yeah.
liberal spending bill of just an empty cage. It's a perfect analogy for the democratic process. Yeah. Thank you.
True.
Cages built, but not filled. Trump comes in, businessman doing business, fills those cages to the brim. Kids are leaking out the top.
Gotta get shit done.
So many kids that we're having to sell a few to child predators.
people will draw these comparisons between like people saying like we need to take Trump out, blah 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 blah. I mean, like, you can play the whataboutism all day, but to try to deny that like Trump has had a clear top-down message of undermining the integrity of our system from day one, and to try to compare that with some vague things that Democrats have said about like we need to take Trump out, blah 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 blah, when Trump is literally on stage saying like, well, maybe the Second Amendment guys can do something about Hillary. Like, I think that those equivocations are hilariously not true. It's not even close to the same level. Like, we don't have like Democrats mailing fucking, what was that one guy that was mailing pipe bombs to fucking like Soros and
news
Democratic
reporters.
politicians and shit?
Mhm.
What?
Email to
like,
CNN, stuff like that. Yep.
yeah, the messaging and the undermining of the democracy. To be clear, I'm not against like all forms of protest, but like when you're the president and you are undermining our democratic system at every single step of the way, like, dude, like there are people around the world in China and Russia that are just rolling around laughing that like our head of state could do more damage to the integrity of our system than some random Democratic lawmaker on the news, you know, calling for like, oh, we need to get Trump out, we need to take Trump out, blah 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 blah.
After protesters burnt down that police station, Kamala Harris said, they're not going to stop. They're going to be forewarned, be afraid. They're not going to stop. This isn't going to stop, and they shouldn't stop. You know, like I think there's
and
some
again, like,
equivocation to be drawn.
But it's not like, look, like in terms of like, we're talking about like nationwide protests. We're talking about like the BLM riots. We're talking about like protest cops. And then you have on the other end, Trump saying 3 million people illegally voted in the last election. The Dominion voting machines are counting votes in Germany. Like, just patently not true things that leave no room for interpretation. Like saying that like the election has been stolen. Again, like, you can walk through like every Democrat like soundbite that you can get over like the riots, but to say that there was like as clear a call, and the thing is too, is that like we keep hearing like how dangerous and deadly all these things are. Well, where the fuck is like where was that? You know, like in all of the BLM riots, and like this is the most rioting we've ever had in the entire history of the country. I think around the same number of people were killed as like the LA riots. Not a single cop got killed. I don't remember any cop killing a protester. I don't think
so either. Oh,
Yeah.
I know there were some grievously wounded protesters.
Yeah, there was that, sure. But then in
Yeah.
one assault on the Capitol, we get a dead cop, we get 4 or 5 dead protesters. Like,
Well, conservatives are more effective at virtually everything. I agree with you there. I'm glad you made that point. But no, I completely agree that like it's very different. And when we initially talked about this on the last PKA, obviously you weren't here, but I was a little bit softer on the protesters because at that time we were unaware of any police officers being killed. And what we were hearing was that maybe one had accidentally tased himself and had died from that. And I have a hard time being sympathetic to that. But then I saw this video of like the protesters at the Capitol, the mob, whatever the fuck you want to call them, beating a cop to death on video with an American flag. And I was just like, all right, I'm out. Can't defend that. There's no defense for that. You murdered a cop with an American flag. I am nowhere near your side of this argument anymore. Like, this is not what I thought happened, because all the news footage I had seen was Capitol Police moving barricades aside and people walking into the Capitol. And then afterwards, this footage came out of people breaking the exterior windows out with riot shields that they brought and then crawling in and
the initial
then beating that
coverage
cop to death.
Looked a lot different than the coverage from a day or two later, right? Initially, there's
Twitter
that
videos.
cute guy with the podium. There's the guy who's cosplaying as a buffalo.
It's funny.
Or something.
It's funny, frankly.
There's the guy with his feet on the desk, which is like super disrespectful. But if that's your team, it's really cool, right? If that's your team.
Can I ask you a question? Like,
yeah.
I know that you're more on the blue side, certainly than
against
than I
Trump
am
than
a lot of the
blue,
time.
but carry on.
But like, Mitch McConnell's not my guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
I hate Mitch McConnell. but he's like a necessary evil in some regards to like keep the balance of the force, right? Like you need a Satan for there to even be a good, right? There has to be some evil for there to be some good. So like you want people on either side with differing opinions so that one side just doesn't go way off to the left and or right sometimes. Do you have any like, do you identify with or sympathize with or like people like Nancy Pelosi, for example?
That was coming.
I love Nancy. Oh yeah.
I feel
Defender.
like I don't know what's so bad about her policies. I do see her as like an effective creature of Washington.
You know something else about her is she has huge tits, and you can tell they were huge when she was little. Like
Really?
not when she was younger, like 20s.
Looking for this now.
Yeah, tell us what you find.
Family OnlyFans.
Like when they wanted to impeach him, she was the one that sort of put that process together. When Trump shut down government, Trump kind of lost that argument. He looked worse in the public eye. And I think that's because Pelosi is navigating these politics better than Trump did.
Oh, yeah.
And big, huh? And share something. Give us a link.
Yeah, I'm looking for a better pick than what I found.
Asking for a link from Kyle. Never mind.
Yeah, because right now I've just got like modern Nancy Pelosi, but just wearing something that shows that she got some drugs.
Yeah. So, but like, I don't know. I feel like she's not even pitching her own policy. She's just working on behalf of Democrats. Maybe the same way that Mitch does. Maybe there's
the thing is that like politics is so much more complicated than a lot of people give it credit for. Like people will look at a national poll saying like, oh my God, people support Medicare for all, 52%. But what they don't realize is that like that might be like 82% support in New York and like 25% support in West Virginia. So when it comes to talking to individual lawmakers at the end of the day to figure out what they support, not every single person can be on the most extreme left policy that you have. And that's why Pelosi gets shit on a lot by people on the left because they don't understand, why can't you just make every single Democrat vote for the most like BAOC? And it's like, well, because we lose every single fucking seat if we did that. Like, you can't do that, you know?
True. Destiny.
Yeah, what's
just
up?
like the hypothetical argument. Going back to this insurrection thing.
Yeah.
Dude breaks a window. This is hypothetical. Goes in. They obey the velvet rope lines for some reason, and they put their feet on a congressman's desk. What's the punishment? What does King Destiny lay down for someone who had that level of civil disobedience?
They have to tongue bath the desk where they put their feet on it.
And
then tongue bath because that's also gross.
That's a really, really, really hard question to answer. On the most emotional, the emotional take is that like they should all be tried for literal fucking like attempted coup, treason, sedition, whatever crazy shit for trying to disrupt like the democratic process of putting in a new leader. Okay. The more measured take is that like you've got a bunch of people brainwashed in some crazy fucking cult that think that Nancy Pelosi is fucking Dominion execs to make machines like spit out wrong votes or some shit. Like these people are so clearly far gone. You just like charge them with trespassing, and unless they did some actual fucked up shit, then fuck it. I think you just charge what sticks. If somebody stole some shit from the Capitol, then charge them out the ass for it. You know, if it was a federal computer, then for attempted theft of federal property or whatever, charge them with whatever you can. But the whole going extra over and over and over again, I just think it doesn't. Fuck it.
Yeah, that's pretty balanced. I've thought about it myself, and like, my emotional argument was like, Kyle said he never felt like that was his building, right? So when he said the Capitol was down, I felt the opposite. I felt like, it was harder to do that. Right. The joke is, I'm no longer impressed with Nicolas Cage's ability to steal the Declaration of Independence. It turns out that you could just walk in there if you've got a big enough group, and they pull the gates aside and wave you in. And
yeah, did you see that side video where some cop just opened the door?
I have
on the
seen
side
that. Yeah. Now there were
just real quick,
behind it.
All of those videos are fake. Just as a heads up. Almost every single day one video is totally misrepresented. So there are plenty of shots, like even in that one where they're letting the protesters in, the camera pans out. That barricade is blocking nothing. There were people all around, like behind and everything. Even as that very shot pulls back, you see there's another protester like behind it. Like police were just
there's
moving.
A protester filming it.
Exactly.
Who's obviously on the other side of the barricade as they watch it get pulled away. And I'm like, how many people are on that side? I don't know. Maybe. So anyway, my emotional thing was Secret Service goes in there, they point the gun at their head, they say, put your feet down. If they don't, they pull the trigger, right? Like, that was my, like, because you're not supposed to be in the Capitol. You're not supposed, it's a coup. It's treason. It's wild to go in there and try and prevent the rightful president from, getting the next job. All right. So, but it was like, all right, you don't actually want that, right? You don't actually want that. These people may not have, a lot of them did have coup on their head, right? They wore Civil War hoodies to the thing. They brought Confederate flags and it. But a lot of these guys, that's overkill. That's stupid. You're going too far. And I was like, you know what I think a guy should get for that? 4 weeks. 4 weeks. I kind of like that. That's a life disruption. It's a punishment. It's probably not life changing. It's as life changing as an automobile accident where you're not hurt. Like, it's a financial penalty that you have to sort of come back from, and then you're okay. And you won't soon forget it, but.
Yeah, they're talking about decades of prison.
Yeah. Well, people are talking about that. Trump talked about that. He said he put a monument protection law in there that anyone who...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If people got charged for that, that would be extra ironic.
Trump did. So during the BLM protests, Trump put a 10-year minimum for people who desecrate monuments or something, like deface. Yeah, because they were like graffitiing courthouses and stuff like that.
Has that been used yet? Like, has that happened to anybody?
I don't think
anybody yet.
I don't know how they're charging people. Like, they're kind of saber rattling now about how hard they're going.
At all, like Trump's rule of the 10 years for statues. Like, has that? Because obviously a bunch of statues have been vandalized. Like, has anybody gone away for it?
Oh, I don't know. But I think Trump executive ordered it or something. Like, it's a thing. And now it's his supporters who are doing it in mass. And I don't think he saw that coming. The narrative was always like, watch how peaceful we are. We pick up our own trash. We're the good protesters. And that changed. So, like, what do I actually want? I think 4 weeks. For people who go in there and, like, do shit, go into the offices and put their, like, I don't know. If you steal a hard drive from Nancy Pelosi's computer, that's bad. You're not supposed to do that.
One of the things that makes me wonder, though, the argument that I could see pushing me to the other end of this, and I just haven't thought much about it because there's so many other things to think about right now. What if they would have gotten into, like, a body of lawmakers? What if they would have gotten into a room with a whole bunch of Congress people? Like, could we have theoretically seen for the first time in U.S. history, like, a whole bunch of fucking lawmakers getting held hostage and killed by protesters?
The zip ties, the gallows they constructed. They were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Hang Pelosi.
And then when I think about it on that end, well, now it's like, these motherfuckers need to die. What the fuck? This is some crazy shit. Because like you said, like, why are U.S. citizens overthrowing the Capitol during our election process? Like, we're a literal laughing stock. It's probably one of the most embarrassing moments in recent history of this country. It's like unbelievable.
Right? The Capitol's not supposed to fall.
Yeah. The double ironic twist is that is that it looks like, but it looks like, I say this cautiously, unless a bombshell is released, it looks like the reason why federal troops weren't there is because the mayor, the MPD, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the Capitol Police specifically didn't want any federal presence there because of what happened last time, because they were worried that more federal troops would incite violence. And it looks like the blame might actually fall on, I know the head of the Capitol Police already resigned, and even the mayor, for specifically rejecting help over and over and over again because they were worried about repeating like a Lafayette Square where federal troops are out gassing protesters, and they didn't want that look, which is like triply ironic. So
I read the opposite. That guy that resigned specifically requested National Guard help, and he didn't get it.
Let me be very, very clear here, because there's a lot of this concern around. So one, the MPD, the Metropolitan Police Department, not the Capitol Police, they requested help from the National Guard, but the help that they requested was 320 or 370 unarmed, no riot police to help with like traffic and stuff. So that happened, but specifically non-riot police officers. And then the other request that people talk about was that during the day of, a few hours after the riots had like broken into the buildings, when they were requesting help from the National Guard, at that point, the chain of command got very fucky. And there was, I don't know if they denied the request or it was just who the chain of command. There were a lot of arguments about like who was responsible for this. Like, do we have authorization to go in or not? I don't think it was a specific, we're not going to help you, fuck off kind of thing. I don't think it was specifically that going through. There's a whole bunch of people that have posted big timelines on this, and that doesn't appear to be the case.
Yeah, like I'm reading quotes right now. I am making an urgent, immediate request for National Guard assistance. I have got to get boots on the ground.
Yes.
And
they had no contingency plan for that.
And they said, I don't like the visual of the National Guard standing in a police line at the Capitol in the background. And they're like, the situation is dire. Literally, this is a guy on the phone crying for help. It's burned in my memories, right? They're going back and forth, and they're like, "Hey, I want to be clear. Are you denying my request for help?" And he said, "I'm not denying it. I'm just not the guy who can authorize it." Like
Exactly,
to your
because
point.
there was so much confusion and again, they specifically rejected having contingency plans in place. And I think a lot of it was they were worried that Trump would send in federal troops and it would look bad. So they're like, nah, fuck you. We're going to deal with this on our own. Fuck Trump. Fuck that. And I think that actually came back to bite them in the ass.
I look forward to it coming out because I've seen it presented in a different way. They were almost like, we want to have people here, and they're like, no, we like not having people here. We like it being fucked. And you say no, but I feel like it's not known yet. Like it's still
the reason why I would put money on this right now, I would bet you against it right now. The reason why I know that's not the case is because if those requests were being made and rejected, two things would have happened. One, it absolutely would have leaked because Trump has one of the most leaky administrations of all time. Somebody would have leaked. MPD and Capitol Police make big requests. Trump shoots them down. It would have leaked 1 million%. Number one.
It has already.
Number two, what?
It has. They said they were trying to get Trump's help and they couldn't. Why couldn't they get it? Because Trump was watching it on live TV and not taking calls.
No. That was day of, though. I'm talking about preparation. In preparation, they didn't make any requests because this stuff is negotiated because they knew about this like weeks in advance.
In preparation, they said, hey, we're not asking you to be here. We're asking you to, quote, lean forward and be ready to get here if anything happens.
I don't think that happened, though. That's the thing. Because the second thing I'd say is that if requests were being made for them to be ready to go in and they weren't doing that, then the mayor would have been complaining on social media. And all over the country, we would have heard, because you have to keep in mind, the FBI was already on the ground making arrests in preparation for this vote counting thing. Remember that Proud Boys guy was arrested. Like the FBI had tips and everybody was on the up and up of this. If they were begging the National Guard and the federal government to be ready, like please be ready with troops. And they were like, we're not going to do shit. You better believe Mayor Bowser would have been on Twitter, Trump fucking us over. Everybody would have tweeted out, he's not providing help. It was radio fucking silence because they didn't want any federal presence there. That's what I think. And I think that seems to be what's played out so far, but we'll see.
Yeah. We've probably done too much politics already, but yeah, I guess I'm reading that. I'm just looking through this. There is a lot of day of asking for. I don't have no counters to your like preparation side, but I'm not sure that not responding to the day of makes everybody innocent either.
I just think leadership was
chaos, cloud of war type stuff.
Yeah, the leadership fucked up. This should have been prepared for. They totally dropped the ball. The reason why I like to focus on that is because like a lot of people are saying that like the cops were white nationalists. The cops let them in. It was a bunch of racists. If this was BLM, it would have happened. Bullshit. I think that every cop that was there did the fucking best they could. They were like fucking. When you get macro shots of this, you've got like fucking. This is like Left 4 Dead tier shit. You've got like 40 cops standing against like an army of like 50 fucking thousand protesters. Like, what do you want him to do? Like people were showing like videos of like initially like, oh, look at that black cop, like he's just walking them up the stairs. Like, motherfucker, it's one cop running away from like 30 fucking people by now. What do you think he's just gonna start unloading his fucking Glock into the crowd? Like,
that'll calm it down. Yeah.
They were totally unprepared for this, and it's a travesty. And I think it obfuscates the issues to have people starting to say like, oh, it's just racist cops that let him in because they were all white nationalists. That just bothers the fuck out of me.
So in West Virginia, I guess they've had some issues getting people to sign up for the corona vaccine. I can't imagine why. And so they came up with this sort of giveaway lottery program where if you get vaccinated, they're giving away pickup trucks and hunting rifles.
In Ohio, you get $1 million.
I think there might be cash on the line too. Like there's a whole bunch of prizes. It's like a fucking potluck or something. There's like custom hunting rifles, like pickup trucks, and I think cash prizes too.
We're doing that in LA too. I think we got like $15 million and bunch of Dodgers gear.
In Ohio, they give $1 million. Like there's been a couple of winners. There's been 2 winners so far. They get $1 million for getting their COVID vaccine. On one hand, I get it. I get why it makes like public sense. If you get that many more people to sign up, it's probably worth the $1 million a week in economic activity to have the vaccine that much more widely distributed. And cool. I get it. On the other hand, it just seems like a free vaccine should be incentive enough, right? I'm about to get a 3rd shot just because I've never had free healthcare before. This is amazing. These fucks need $1 million to go. Okay.
I think even if you got vaccinated, you're automatically like retroactively enrolled.
Not in North
I'm pretty
Carolina.
sure I read that. Oh, in California, I'm almost positive that I read that, but yeah.
I don't think North Carolina has a program like this. But it'd be neat if my kids won.
I wish I had gotten into some sort of a lottery. I was there first day. Why don't I get anything other than protected from a deadly disease?
I claim seasonal affect disorder as my serious ailment, so I should get it early. That's my level of enthusiasm.
I told some kind of a small lie that couldn't be verified. I don't remember what it was. High blood pressure or something like that. Like, what are they going to do? Put a cuff on me? Give me the fucking shot. Give me the fucking shot. I don't care. They had plenty. It's not they were running out.
In North Carolina, all you had to do was go to a Republican area, and there were plenty of extra shots.
Give them something that can't be verified. Name's the easiest thing to verify.
I know.
Say you have insomnia. They can't disprove that.
I'm so do a sleep study on me.
I told him I was running a fever.
And I was in like a smooth criminal.
I would have pulled that syringe. I would have pulled that syringe out of the arm of a sick old woman if it meant I got the vaccine a day early.
I could just imagine them being like, all right, stick out your arm, and you're just like, I forgot something in my car, and you're out there running around your car.
So Dick,
you're flexing?
Dick, you're avoiding the vaccine?
Me? Yeah, I'm not getting that shit. It'll make you gay. It's full of Bill Gates' robots. I don't want to get
my God. Not only you're a conspiracy theorist, but you're homophobic.
I keep explaining to people that not getting the vaccine increases death. Why would I get the vaccine to stop this beautiful virus that God gave us to remove the fat and the old?
It does
think
seem
we're
like
cleansing the boomers a bit.
Yeah, I mean, nothing could be more perfectly created to get rid of the fat and the old, and we're just wasting it. So no, I will not.
Still
Making sense. Making sense.
We've strayed far from God's plan. Kyle, what was your question?
Do you know any people who are still anti-vax, who are just like, you people have really fucked yourselves over? Don't you know that 4,800 people died,
became gay? What if some guy's like waiting to come out of the closet and he's like, this is my chance.
The vaccine made me gay.
Goddamn vaccine.
Finally, they'll have to accept me.
My God.
You were 1,000,000% right. Alex Jones is right. It made me gay. There's no reversing it.
I just want to see how hard it will be, because I think I'm immune naturally. Like, that's a thing. My girlfriend had it. We didn't take any COVID. We didn't take any precautions at all, and I didn't get it. So I figure I must be immune. But I want to see what it's like getting around in life without having one of those stupid cards. Like, what am I going to be allowed to do? What lengths am I going to have to go through? How many lies will I have to tell to exist in this world?
Is California still like totally shut down?
Yeah, we get out. They open it up on Juneteenth for us.
I think a lot of stuff
bars
around California has been opening though. Like, you can go down to at least I've done it in Huntington Beach. You can go into restaurants and stuff and like indoor seating and whatnot.
Fucking everything is open in Missouri and has been for months.
Yeah, I would have to go outside to find that out.
I'd have to go around to my favorite bar. Well, no. Yeah, you should go get a beer, Woody, just to be like, what have I been missing? Nothing that I want to do, and then just leave.
I only brought it up because one of my friends, and I'll use your real name because people don't know, Kyle is his actual name. Kyle, I like you a lot, but the fact that you don't believe in the vaccine,
I like Kyle also,
that you haven't gotten the vaccine is troubling to many of your friends, and we're not trying to throw it in your face or make you feel foolish. We just care about you. And when you quote those statistics that you find from the internet, we all just shake our heads because we like you. We care about you.
Because we like you. Oh, is this? Well, I
know Kyle by his other name more. It took me a second to figure out who we were talking to.
Yeah, I guess there was that report from the CDC that like 4,800 people out of the 200 million who were vaccinated died like a week after the vaccination. And it's just like, I wonder why. I mean, they vaccinated the sick and the old first, you know, I'm shocked. The fact that there was only 4,800 leads me to believe there's something in the COVID vaccine that
keeping you alive.
that keeps
Dude,
people alive.
They slip some adrenaline in
Like too
there.
low of a total. That many old
I was like, wait, that can't be possible. They vaccinated only 4,800 died. I had thought 20,000 just from like
dude, some of those
Actuary
boomers,
tables, yeah.
they just would have had strokes on their own in that window of time. I imagine.
Yeah, it doesn't even make sense. But he was just like, aha, vindicated. And I was like, nah, man, no. And he's like, you are all gang. And he was like, you're all ganging up on me in here. And somebody was like, man, we all just kind of see things the same way. We didn't sign a blood oath or anything against you. It's just that you're saying that the sky is falling and we're all just letting you know that it's just a little drizzle and we're not all going to die and you should really get vaccinated.
Yeah, in a few seconds. Man's driving on the highway. He hears a report over the radio. Be careful out there driving because there's a person going the wrong way. And he looks around and says, you know what? Everyone's going the wrong way. That's you, Kyle.
Yep. That's you,
Kyle, stay strong. Don't let these bullies take control of your medical decisions. It's your body. It's your choice.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah,
If they believed in the vaccine, they wouldn't be trying to make you get it. That's the real. See, it's that little sliver of doubt in them that they know it's all bullshit. That's why they want you to get it and be on board. Everybody's got to believe in it.
You know what? I just decided the kind of guy I'm going to be just from Dick. I'm going to be the kind of guy who waves a pencil or pen around while I make a point. I like that guy. You're the conductor of your own symphony over there.
Did COVID come from a Chinese lab?
Maybe. Hard to say.
Isn't it?
There's two big parts of that though that people like to conflate a lot. So one is the idea that it's possible that there was like gain of function research being done. So the idea that you kind of like, my understanding is you like kind of meddle around with the virus to see how could it become more contagious, what could go wrong, et cetera. And that maybe some people got sick while studying this in a lab and then it got out that way. By the way, the evidence for this is still incredibly scant. This hasn't been like proven. It's not 100% anything like that. But then the second one that everybody was originally running with, they like pretend they weren't, was that China like intentionally artificially engineered like a bioweapon virus in a lab and then released it to the world. So people like to use evidence for number one to say that number two happened, but even this first thing is still, it's something that should be looked into, although I don't know at this point if we'll ever truly know. But like the evidence right now was literally like 3 people were sick with flu-like symptoms that also worked in this lab for a while before it got like out and big or whatever. But even the sources on that are debated. Like even in the intelligence community, they weren't 100% sure if this was like viable or valid information or anything. So yeah.
What's more, I don't know. Are more people who are saying it's coming from the lab saying that it was released intentionally or that it was like it escaped at this point?
It's hard because nobody's really honest about what they think, but it feels like people feel like it's intentional. But I think they try to say, I don't know. People dance around with what their actual opinions are all the time.
Well,
but
they shouldn't have let it go in their own country.
Yeah.
That seems like a huge oversight if you were going to release it to hit your own country really hard.
Yeah, you think so, right?
I haven't looked into this.
People's belief systems line up along their political belief systems, right? Like if you voted for Trump, you most likely believe that this was an engineered thing that came from a lab and they had nefarious intent when they did it. And if you voted for Biden, you probably believe that it came from a bat and it was just an accident and nature just fucked up shit sometimes. And I'm over here like, shit, bro, the reason we didn't take you seriously is you were also saying that, like, there's pedophile lizards running the government, and you were saying Obama was from Kenya, and you were saying that, like, all these other wacky conspiracies that you were buying into, and then you said the Kung Fu flu was from a Wuhan lab, bundled in with all the other, like, lumps of bullshit you try to peddle, and of course no one took you seriously.
And that's irritating too, because some of these guys are acting like they're vindicated when initially their evidence was like somebody's picture was deleted off of a website or like shoddily translated articles that weren't saying what people said they were saying. And now that there's like been something, a new piece of information, people are like, oh, look, we were right the whole time. It's like, no, you weren't right the whole time, you motherfucker. First of all, we still don't even know if it actually came from a lab. We have no idea. And secondly, this is when new evidence is presented. Yeah, of course, it should be taken seriously and you change your mind on it. But that doesn't mean all the crazy, insane shit you were saying before, you're suddenly vindicated for that. You know?
Was the bat thing a bit of a meme? I remember it being a meme in the beginning.
No, I think that's
the prevailing theory still.
Yeah, I don't want to like get this incorrect, so I'm trying to do it. I'm like, pretty sure that bats have like some kind of structure with the way that they work, that they can carry a lot of diseases that easily transfer to humans that don't have negative impacts on them. So I think bats are seen as a pretty common vector for viruses. For humans, viruses that can infect humans. Something that's kind of funny or strange is that, have you guys ever seen the movie Contagion?
Yeah.
So
If you remember in that movie, if I'm getting the right one, if you remember in that movie, that's how their virus started, right? It was a bat pooping somewhere and then it going to a market or whatever, and that was exactly what their theory was in that movie for how. And I think some in the past I think have been theorized to come from bats too, but
yeah, don't they? Or no, it's armadillos that have the plague, isn't it? Like a huge amount of armadillos have the black plague. Like they say not to touch dead ones.
Yep.
And bats have rabies.
Yep.
Yeah, they carry, but armadillos are disgusting. Disgusting little animals. No, they have the black plague.
They're cool though. They
some
have
of them
shells.
have the black plague.
We need to purge them.
Some people have the black plague.
Yeah, are people disgusting?
Yeah, but not in America, right?
No, probably.
Is the black plague still around?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Black plague still around. Yes, the bubonic plague is still around. Why? You don't need to worry.
Oh, yeah, believe that.
What if this came out like March 2nd, 2020?
1545.
1540 or like 1310.
Why ye need not worry of the black plague.
Why thine conspiracy fools ought be reprimanded. Like the well water is clean. Pay no heed to the taste.
Does well water with lead in it taste better? Right? Isn't lead sweet, and that's what makes battery acid so delicious?
Is battery acid delicious?
Yes.
Apparently. You would need to consume a lot.
Woody's the only one. Woody's the only person I know who's not retarded or dead who's tasted battery acid, and Heath says
Not
it's sweet.
dead.
Yeah, I was going to say the retard argument is a lot harder after the hour and a half we spent troubleshooting the audio at the beginning.
That's funny.
It's funny because it's true.
It's a rough one.
No respect.
I didn't care for that joke.
Man, apparently, I think this is clickbait. They don't even have pictures of. Wait. 7 cases a year in the United States.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I told you not to be worried about it.
I'm not worried about it. I was just curious.
You seem pretty worried.
No, I'm
More
stronger.
people die from drinking battery acid in the United States every year than the bubonic plague. Again.
Not true.
Yeah, apparently, more
Battery
people die in the
acid's delicious
NHL
and it makes
playoffs than the bubonic plague.
Steve, what do you think of the whole separating families at the border thing?
Oh man, wow, we're pretty late into this. I don't know. I thought it was funny that Trump said that he couldn't do anything about it and complained about it, and then 2 days of bad press coverage. Somehow he made that shit go away real fast.
Yeah?
Yeah, he handled it like a complete idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which he seems to do that a lot. Yeah.
I'm shocked that he would deviate from the truth.
Whoa, really? Trump
Yeah.
being dishonest about something? The guy that said 3 million illegals voted in our election and then disbanded the organization that he put together to track that? Or
Hey, you didn't prove they didn't.
Oh, that's true. Oh God, Trump lies about it. So, did you see the video of the letter that he read where he was bragging about how amazing the letter was from North Korea? And then at the end of the video, like 6 minutes later, he's like, I haven't read it yet.
It was like a
oh,
costume
God.
letter. It was like extra large and everything. It was like
He is an expert at shooting himself in the foot over
But it
and
doesn't
over
matter. His
needlessly.
fans don't care. They worship the ground, like anything this guy says. And like he's in this perfect position where if he says a lie, it's just to trigger the libs. And so like it's fine if he's lying. He's doing it to trigger the right people, and that's what makes it epic or whatever. And it's like, okay, well you have a paradigm where literally nothing he says is ever wrong, because if it is wrong, he's doing it just to be funny. So like when he says he had like a landslide election win, which is patently not true, we can very easily look up the numbers. Like it's just an epic troll for the libs. You know, it's just like, yeah, there's a lot of shit like that. It makes me really uncomfortable that he can just tell kind of like flat out lies, I think.
Yeah, it seems like as the nation gets more divided, it's almost like a sports team. I used to root for the Philadelphia Flyers and still do sometimes. And they had this guy, Eric Lindros, who was chippy, right? He played strong. He finished his checks. We all loved him. Every other team hated him, right? He broke Jeremy Roenick's jaw. He smashed
Everybody liked that because he was a prick.
and it's just like, yeah, but if he's on your team, you love the guy. You like your own dirty players. And somehow that circles back to Trump in my mind, where, yeah, he do or say anything, and people just root for him.
on
Yeah.
both sides changing their positions like as he says them.
Yeah.
Where it's like all these, for an example on the right, people being like, free trade, this is so important, free trade. And then he's like, that's a terrible idea. These are awful deals, the worst deals. And then suddenly everybody's like, yeah, terrible deals. Read it, make steel and aluminum expensive as fuck. Like
It's one of the most insane things to me was like listening to my mom, who when I grew up, I was a diehard conservative. And my parents are still diehard conservative, ride or die, fucking bleed red conservatives. And I remember
They bleed
growing
red,
up,
do they?
they bleed red.
Well, technically, your blood when you bleed and it gets deoxygenated is kind of a darkish color.
I don't know. But like, so like my mom, I remember listening to her, like as a kid, she would like cry telling me like what Bill Clinton did was one of the worst things ever. It's not about lying under oath or any of that shit. It's just the way that he treats women. That rolls down, Stevie, from the top. You don't understand, because my mom was in the Air Force, and she's like, when the president, when the commander in chief is allowed to treat women that way, my commanding officer, my fellow Air Forceman, like everybody's going to do the same to me. And it's like, it's ridiculous. And then listening to her defend Trump, like the grab him by the pussy shit. She's like, that's just locker room talk, Stevie. All boys talk that way. And it's like, oh, it's strange that like you have such a different tone. Like, I wish I could have another world where Obama said that, and I could listen to the fucking outrage of the Republicans that get mad when he like asks for Dijon mustard or wears like a tan suit. I wish I could hear the world where Trump is saying where Obama is saying that his daughter is very attractive and that I think he would consider fucking her. I think that was something that Trump said, or in like a kind of lighter words.
Yeah.
Oh, dating her. Okay. Like on Howard Stern's show, where he could have like multiple wives, or not multiple wives, but like be divorced. Like, not to play the race card, but I'm pretty sure that if Obama would have come in as a black man with a divorced fucking family and then brought in like a wife overseas and shit, you would have definitely heard Republicans harp on their fucking family value shit.
Twice
yeah,
divorced,
like,
right? 5 kids,
yeah.
3 wives.
If Obama would have fucking fucked a porn star and then paid to cover it up, oh,
That would've
my
been great.
God.
the only thing that like makes that different for the populace is that people knew Trump was like this going in. Like, it would be much more shocking to see someone like Obama doing that, because I don't think most people peg him as the kind of guy who would
Sure.
do that.
But if
Fucking porn
Obama was
stars.
running and people knew that, I think it would be a big deal. Like, look at how you get the Republicans crying today, where Trump is like, I can't do my job when people are mean to me. And Trump was one of the guys that led the fucking movements that asserted that Obama was born in fucking Kenya, right? The birther movement, like that was
Yeah.
He
largely
also,
Trump.
I don't think he can complain about the name calling or meanness when like every one of his like very
Lion Ted,
very
Crooked
like yeah,
Hillary,
Lion Ted,
Little
Cruz,
Rubio.
like those things stuck, and so for that reason, like it was very good, branding, I guess, to brand someone else as that to win, but then to turn around and play the now you got to be
Victim
cool to
card.
me, like it doesn't wash.
You talked about the hypocrisy. My parents are on that hardcore. I would stack them up
Oh,
against
shit.
yours. They so like you said, when Clinton was in office, oh my God, he's our nation's moral leader. It's disgracing the Oval Office, the oral office. They went bonkers on it. My mom said that for the punishment of cheating, he should be killed. She thought they should murder or
Traditional conservative values, yeah.
capital punishment on Bill Clinton, right? And
He should be beaten to death with a shoe.
right? That was her stance on this thing. And then W comes on, but with Trump, they say that he got saved either during the election or just prior to it. So all the things he did prior to that don't count. Hey, look, this is my parents talking. We got saved late in life, so we understand what it's like, and all the things you did before you got saved. They're in a whole nother category. They
What
kind of
makes them
don't
think
count.
that
How
he got
convenient.
saved all of a sudden.
Oh,
Because he
he's
won the election and he has an R next to his name.
because he's doing the wonderful things now that he's in office, better than they ever hoped he would do. That's where
Remember
they stand. And my favorite of all is my mom has suggested that Michelle Obama is a transvestite or
Oh, yeah.
straight up an actual man.
An actual man. That's what I just don't. What would make you think?
I don't know
feel
where
like
the
even most
children came from
Republicans
in this
don't
scenario.
think that he is a Christian. Like, or they, I'm sure he would say he's a Christian. Like, I bet he does.
Trump,
But,
yeah,
like,
I think so.
Do you really think he's going to, do you really think he's an actual Christian, or is that just a political, move?
According to polls, 2/3 of Trump supporters believe that Obama is a Muslim.
Well, I mean, no, that's fun because he's both a Muslim and Jeremiah Wright, his Christian pastor, is the worst person of all time. Like you gotta pick what you dislike. It's
insane.
Way more likely he's a Christian with a crazy pastor than a secret Muslim.
People will dig so hard for these comments on like, well, one time, there's a videotape of Obama and he whispers to a Russian politician, you're like, I can't talk about this much. I'll have more flexibility after the election. That was one Obama thing. And Republicans turn this into a huge thing. Okay. And then you get Trump, who has Paul Manafort as his campaign head for like 6 months, like 159 days or some shit. And they're like, it happens, and it's like, if this was a Democrat, you would lose your fucking mind. Like, Republicans unironically believe that Hillary Clinton takes children to the basement with Anthony Weiner's like ex-wife and rapes them in like a pizza place, and like, and it's all off of like 2 words in a fucking email where it's like, oh well, this here is actually hyper-coded language for child rapists, and it's like, okay.
Kyle and Taylor made that argument on this show. They'll deny it now, but they said it.
Oh no,
no.
Okay,
they said it.
You're so misleading.
Someone play it back. Play it back. Someone go find it.
No, I encourage someone to go find it.
Yeah.
Because
I love that we're relying on old Iron Trap memoried Woody.
Yeah.
Do it.
No, what I remember what we saw and what we said was, this is a really weird way to phrase emails. Like, why are they writing like this? But that does not mean that you go, these are oddly, strangely phrased emails to, there's a rape ring being led out of a local pizza place.
Yeah.
That's what we said. Like, you can look at those and be like, yeah, this is oddly written.
It'll be linked on the subreddit. We'll see who's
and
right.
again, to Occam,
I could be
and again,
wrong. It happens.
to Occam's razor, it like, did they say like a lot of weird shit? Yeah, but they're fucking like 67-year-old people writing emails. Have you ever watched your grandparent like write an email? It's always like very fucking awkward and very weird.
Frustrating.
And it's probably more likely that that's the case than there's like a secret fucking child rape ring being ran. That like.
Well, there's no basement
somehow...
at Comet Pizza. That was that was the lock
It's
for
not
me.
even a fucking basement.
No, Woody, you're mistaken there. The basement is behind a poster. If you play Pokemon Red, they can hide these switches behind posters. You will switch that, you will find a secret. That is where the rape is happening, folks. Hillary Clinton is a goddamn demon.
Drives me crazy, dude. And I'll like even try to talk to my mom. Like, my mom will say things like, Stevie, like, I know that 1 million immigrants were bussed into these places to win the elections. And it's like, okay, Mom, let's think about this for 1 second. Let's say there were 1 million illegals bussed in. Not even the 3 million they're claiming. 1 million. How many people can fit on a bus? Do you think like 100? Do you think that's like an okay estimate?
Seems high.
Okay, let's say 100 people could fit on a bus still. What is that? That's like 10,000 buses of immigrants that are being... How does nobody have footage of this? Nobody took a picture of these 10,000 buses moving through parts of the U.S. where nobody's seeing like these millions of immigrants. How did nobody catch this? Like, in a day and age where I can get video footage of literally fucking anything ever happening, look at all the school shooting shit, right? Like, it blows my mind that people... The fake news and the fake narrative shit, like, it makes me want to fucking kill myself. It's the worst part of my debates. When I open up a debate and a guy unironically says shit like Hillary Clinton unilaterally sold 1/5 of our uranium to Russia. And it's like, why would you think anyone in our government even has the power to do that? Like, does that really make sense to you? Like, yeah. It's frustrating as fuck.
Well, I'm glad we got a little of it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that kind of is sad today is that I feel like if you are, because I'm actually like pretty right-leaning economically. I'm a very big capitalist, which a lot of my fans hate me because I have a lot of fucking lefty fans now, but I'm a pretty big capitalist, big free market guy. If you are like a sane conservative, I like guns too. There's like, you have no voice right now in the United States, right? Like, what if I believe in free markets and I do believe in capitalism, and you know, I like my Second Amendment and shit, but maybe I also think that sex ed in school is okay, that contraception isn't the fucking devil, that climate change is probably fucking real. Like, where is my voice right now? Like, I feel like I have to be a Democrat because Republicans have just gone so far off the fucking deep end on some shit.
Do you think it's probably real or definitely real?
I mean, like, it's something that, like, the majority of the scientific community not only is of the consensus that global warming is happening, but that it also is primarily due to man-made changes,
so it's
right?
Probably real.
Like, most likely, yeah. I mean, and I actually looked up yesterday. I was curious because it's been so fucking hot here. And I was like, you know, the record high temps are always like really crazy. I'm curious if we're like close to record high temps in Omaha. And I just like happened to look it up. And it's like over the past weekend, Omaha set like 3 days in a row of consecutive record high temps. And I'm like, holy shit. Yeah.
Neither side of this has been comfortable because we broke a ton of records in winter this year. We had like 3 weeks straight of like 0 degrees or some shit. And then now in summer, it's the complete opposite shit. I was thinking it was going to get a little more comfortable for a little while. You know, like we're in the golden age of global warming.
Mm-hmm.
Like it should be the fun part now. Like we're not in day after tomorrow yet. Like we should be enjoying it, but no, it's just getting more extreme on both ends. Or maybe it's not. It always seems like it is, but then apparently it hasn't changed that much. But then they'll say like, well, fraction of percents or small percents changes in this amount of time actually is pretty big. You just don't know because you don't have this perspective.
The scary thing right now that's scary for Republicans is that Trump is like a full-on like borderline kind of fascist cult of personality that is causing a lot of problems in the Republican Party, such that if you are a mainstream Republican, you're in this very awkward situation where you don't necessarily want to align completely with Trump's agenda, but you have to, or your party will fucking crucify you.
Trump will use his bully pulpit to attack other Republicans.
There's a lot of mainstream Republican senators, politicians who really don't like him.
Well,
there's
and if you're like a Paul Ryan and you're a McConnell, you're in a very weird place because the Republicans can't turn their back on Trump because then they'll lose so much ground that they've gained because you don't want to alienate Trump's fan base now from your party. You'll be completely fucked. And the Democrats will gain so much ground if you do it. So you're like in this really weird spot as an establishment Republican, or even like a Tea Party, where like you don't necessarily, you're like, okay, like I was in favor of less immigration, but I don't know how I feel about building a fucking wall on our border. That seems a little bit extreme.
I agree with you on the cult of personality thing. Totally. I think that's undeniable. It being fascistic, I don't think is true at all. Like no fascist ever has been able to be torn on and ripped by every pundit ever, freely.
But like the scary thing is that Trump has made statements. Trump's understanding of our First Amendment rights are very frightening to me in the U.S. He's made a couple of statements that are instant deal breakers for me. I remember one tweet he made, and I'm sure you could still find it, is he was saying that people that burn the American flag should have their citizenship revoked. That's a pretty big one for me. That's holy shit.
That's terrible. That's dumb.
That was a horrible thing. He relentlessly attacks the press, and not like I think the press is shit, but like I want to open up libel law so that I can sue the press for fake news. And his constant attacking of the press is something that makes me scared too, because like you don't want the president of your country attacking the thing that's supposed to exist theoretically to kind of keep the, Congress and the president honest. Like that the attacks on the free press are very frightening to me as well. There's that, and then there's the extreme hyper nationalism, like this weird isolationist foreign policy that we're taking, where we're kind of fucking all of our allies, fuck everybody, tariffs on everything. We're going to do everything in America, like, fighting with like Canada. Like, how do you get into fights with Canada as the United States president? It doesn't even make sense, all of those things just kind of worry me a little bit. One of the big frustrating things that a lot of like debate related stuff too is that like when you talk about like conservative destroys somebody else, the right leaning arguments are always so easy and the left leaning ones are so fucking hard, and it gets really frustrating because like in order to get like a lot of complicated positions, there's like a lot of prerequisite knowledge required. So like if I'm arguing with somebody over say like the position of Black people in the United States, right? What do we have to do to help Black people? The person on the right's argument is, well, everybody can be a success story. Here's a story of a random poor person. He's rich. Everybody just needs to do that. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, blah, blah, blah. Well, what's your thing, Stephen? What's keeping Black people down here? It's like, okay, well, hold on. Well, so firstly, you've got the realities of generational wealth, right? If your grandparents did well, your parents probably did well, you're probably going to do well. You've got stickiness at the ends of economic quintiles of percentages. You've got things like, lead factors into crime levels, and Black people are disproportionately in houses that contain lead. And this link is like really well researched, really, really well established. You've got policies like redlining and not gerrymandering, gentrification, things that have pushed Black people into fucked neighborhoods. And you've got like the crack. There's like all these things that I have to explain to even get you to like my side of the argument. And I feel like I've already lost when I have to start going down these really complicated passages to explain like, this is why this group of people might be fucked. And then the other guy just has to utter like 2 lines and he's already like fucking won the argument,
The other problem is, and I might be looking through my blue lenses, I feel like on the red side, they often have a very low standard of proof for what they want to believe.
I argued with this guy yesterday, actually. He's like Anthony something, the Black conservative online guy. He's got like 200,000 YouTube subs. I don't know, like the hugest guy.
I heard of him.
I was arguing with this guy. So this guy knows who I am because do you remember that Joyner Lucas song, I think it's I'm Not Racist, where like the white guy raps and then the Black guy counter?
Yeah, it's really good.
Sure. So this guy did like an observation of that, or his reaction, and I saw that he was conservative. I was like, oh no, this isn't going to be what I think it is, right? And it was. It was him listening to this rap, and in 20 minutes he agreed with every single racist viewpoint of the white guy and said everything the black guy said was wrong. So I did like a reaction to the reaction. I was like, this is insane. Well, this guy showed up on my YouTube chat yesterday because I'm streaming on YouTube, and he comes on to debate me, and I wanted to fucking blow my brains out. This guy is walking through every fucking racist talking point, unironically. It's a black guy that I've ever heard saying things like, so I bring up like, you know, okay, well, he's like, how are black people held down here? It's like, okay, what about things like redlining that existed in like the 50s?
What is
He's like,
redlining? I don't think I've heard of that.
so redlining was the idea that basically a long time ago, it was official policies in businesses to not loan to black people. Like as a bank, you would say, we do not give loans to black people, period. Like that's it. And his excuse for that was like, well, it wasn't just discrimination against black people. They just didn't lend to people with low credit. And I'm like, really, dude? And then he's telling me like, well, yeah, my grandpa had a house in West Virginia. And it's like, okay, that's like a one-off thing. And then he just kept going on with like these anecdotes. Conservatives love one-off fucking stories. He's like, you know, I got stories from my grandma, and she told me that the KKK would ride around, and when they went to neighborhoods, black neighborhoods, they were handing out toys and stuff. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
We
Like,
don't hear about individual stories of kids, illegal immigrants coming from Honduras who just wanted to learn to draw. And shit like
and
that.
that's like, yeah, and that's like the most frustrating thing to me. Like illegal immigrants are all fucking criminal fucking masterminds, MS-13 that are infesting the country in Trump's words. And it's like, okay, well, where are these same stories of like this poor illegal kid, this family that like, if I was in their position, I would do the same fucking thing every time, right? If I'm a father, fuck the country. I have zero allegiance to my country. My family will always come first. If I think that I can forge a better life for my family illegally immigrating to another country, I'll do it 9 out of 10 times, right? Assuming I can make the journey and not fucking die, or it might even be worth the risk, which some people think it is, you know?
Do you think
but
the
like,
U.S. then has like a moral obligation to import people from all over the world who are struggling in those ways?
I wouldn't say to import people, because I don't think it's realistic that a country can take on an entire other population. But when you talk about like deporting every illegal immigrant, like this is a fantasy idea. One, it's not even economically feasible. Two, it's probably immoral. I never argue morality with conservatives, because as far as I'm concerned, they have none. So I usually just try to argue like empirical, like economic realities, like, hey, you know, illegals help our economy a lot. Just make them legal, bring them under the fucking tax base. Like it makes sense, you know? And you can tell like Republicans are so not concerned with economic outcomes. When you look at things like DACA, like we paid for these people to be educated. Now they are educated. These are some of our best citizens, because DACA people have no criminal record. They can't. A lot of them went to school. They register with us. They get temporary Social Security numbers so they can pay taxes. And now that we spent all that money educating them, you want to ship them back to Mexico? What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, why would you want to do that?
They all went to school. It's a DACA requirement.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think that equating all illegal immigrants with the DACA recipients is dishonest. I mean, that's
no,
not
that
fair
it
at
is
all.
dishonest, but like, but DACA is the thing that Republicans attack like hardcore. And it's like, if there was any group of immigrants that you should be championing, it should be the DACA kids. Like,
There are
these
bigger
are
fish to fry. If your concern is legal immigration, there's no reason to start with the DACA recipients.
Well, sure, but Trump was the one that rescinded the DACA thing by
But
executive
it
action.
follows a pattern of kind of hurting children, you know, DACA recipients, the kids that come across the border, as a way to strong arm the liberals into agreeing to the conservative wants, like a wall.
Yeah.
I don't think the wall is ever going to happen. I think we could be much better served just increasing money for border security as it currently exists, instead of building who knows how expensive wall. Like, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't think even most people like Ann Coulter, who that was her big thing of like a wall, like they even have to be coming to the realization like this isn't going to happen.
Sure.
Like,
Well, that's because even Republicans, and this is where I talk about a disconnect between Republicans and Trump. Republicans in general, I'll catch flack for saying this, but like Trump, in my opinion, is kind of like openly racist in a lot of shit that he says. Republicans aren't generally that politically stupid. So a lot of Republicans don't want to argue for a wall because they know that it hurts them in elections back home. So you're in this really weird spot where you got to go to the table with Democrats. And this is why they're having so much trouble getting legislation passed, where you're trying to represent the Republican agenda, but there's also this weird agenda that Trump wants to push, and he won't support you unless you're pushing it. But then no Democrat is going to agree with it. So you're in this like weird, like two-way fracture in the Republican Party. And that's like one of the big reasons why nothing is getting done in Congress, even though the Republicans own the Senate, the House, and the executive branch, and soon the judicial branch. It's because Trump has all these like really weird desires that I don't think even mainstream Republicans are totally behind.
no, he's as a Republican president, he's not conservative by
Probably not.
Republican standards. No, not at
Yeah.
all. I mean, he's against free trade, which
Yeah.
you know, and I've heard people make the case. oh, he's using this as an anchor point, as he does with
Fuck
all
off.
negotiations. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, I mean, it's getting to the point already where we're seeing cost
Trade
increases
wars.
on these, trade wars. And so
Yeah.
it's like, well, how long are we gonna?
What
hold
dimension
this,
of
quote,
chess are we
bluff?
at this point, right?
No,
Yeah,
we're playing rooftop backgammon. Like, we're playing totally different sports.
Destiny, I know you're like me, a fellow Midwest boy. Does any part of you ever think you'll make it back to Omaha or anywhere in that region, or are you?
I get depressed just
Finished
flying into that city. If my son didn't live there, I would never ever go back. It is actually agonizing to be. I don't know why. This is going to sound really, I don't know, privileged or disconnected or something, but just like I feel like there's just like nothing for me that exists there. Like in terms of like everything that I do online, like the things that I'm interested in, the issues I talk about, like who my friends are.
You're
whatever.
an internet being, and you still feel like this physical location has nothing for you.
Not, yeah, it's just like when I'm flying into Omaha, like I'm looking at the whole city, like what is there for me here in this entire city? There's literally nothing.
What's in Florida?
Miami just seems like a cooler place. My wife likes to be here. I have some friends down here that I know personally.
I mean,
Miami.
weather, that's huge.
Well, I came from LA, which has like perfect weather, so it's hard to compare to fucking Miami. But
Did you own a place in LA?
no, always apartments. I own a house in Omaha where my kid and my kid's mom live in. But
Roger that. Yeah, I would just because real estate's so insane. Like, I bet if you had a place in LA, it would have grown to like half your net worth.
yeah, maybe real estate is
Is the
that's
real
something
estate?
that we haven't figured out yet in the United States. We're getting pretty close to having to do something about that.
Yeah, dude. I
Is
just
it going
read
to
on the-
crash again, like 2008?
Well, I don't know what it's gonna have to do, but it maybe in Raleigh they're like it takes 40% more money to buy a place now than it did a year ago.
The problem is that like before when it crashed, okay, everybody says that it's going to be like 2008 again. The problem before was that mortgages, through a whole bunch of weird tricks, got like plugged into all of these like international investment markets that just drove the fucking demand for these types of like financial products, mortgages and shit up insanely high. The issue now though is that slowly over time, what's happening is there is genuinely a massive fucking demand to live in cities. That's not artificial. Like some of the prices have probably been driven up because of a combination of inflation, a combination of some supply chain stuff, a lot of which has been resolved. But I think like people keep looking for like these ways, we got to build affordable housing or we need to like raise the interest rates. You can try to do tricks like that, but we need like to genuinely overhaul how we do zoning in the United States because there's more people that want to live in places than there are houses and the costs are just going to continue to go up. There's no way to get around that. It's like a physics problem. Like,
But the people don't want to live in the kind of houses that you just proposed, right? You're like, you change the zoning, and what he means is change from like low and medium density housing to high density housing.
yeah,
like
Americans need to get over themselves and learn how to live in fucking high density places because it is a 7 trillion times higher quality of life. And until they figure that out, they can starve on the fucking streets and be fucking morons. It's so
But that
unbelievable.
quality of life thing is a matter of opinion. There are people who would be like, I'd rather drive 40 minutes to my house with a yard and a swing set than drive 15
They
minutes
should be able to
my
do that.
apartment.
Then yeah, they should drive 2 hours out of the fucking city to go live where they
Well,
want.
you made it
But
2
actual
hours.
cities should
That's a
be
long
actual
commute.
cities. In the United States, like it's true here. It was true when I lived in Glendale. It was true when I lived in Culver City. It was true when I lived in Huntington Beach. I should not be in a high density place that has like a fucking 10-story apartment or whatever, and I can walk across the street and see these dilapidated shit fucking houses that are going for $850,000 a pop because the zoning is fucked. That's unbelievable to me. If you want to zone for some single family housing and ruin your shit, you can do it. But like there needs to be way more ultra high density like places in the United States because it makes public transit work better. It makes retail work better. The places you can actually walk, like if you go to Europe, you can walk anywhere. Anytime you're in an apartment, like, oh, if I need to get some milk in Europe, I'm like, oh, I'll be right back, Melina. I'm going to go downstairs and get some milk. If I need to do in the United States, like I got to get my grocery list. I got to go down to my fucking car. I need to drive 15 minutes away. I got to do a whole fucking ordeal. Like it is so agonizing
You ever
to
go
live
on
in
the,
cities.
I mean, that's more of a civil planning thing. So like,
That's
how
what
No,
you're
that's a
talking
car
about with
thing. No,
zoning, but
You're talking about the subreddit "fuck cars."
that's part of it. They talk about that shit, but yeah.
Yeah, this is the
Just-
whole front page of that. It's because if you eliminate cars and the infrastructure to facilitate them, then like life just improves so dramatically.
does it
I mean-
really if you live in the suburbs?
Well,
like,
it-
there's no way for me to walk
what?
to the store comfortably.
what they're
Like, I
saying
have
is you
to get
can
in the
get
car.
rid of the suburbs and just create more density.
Or like move
This
the
is
So I,
pretty
so I
like
have to
reasonable
so I have to
hour.
lose all my room in my house and live in an
Well,
apartment.
no,
with
no,
home
we're
gym
not
now.
saying. I don't think the fuck cars people want to like make
Okay,
cars.
well then fuck that plan. Fuck
I-
you. No.
I think what they want is for there to be no cars in the cities.
Okay, well they can have no cars in the cities while they're getting beaten up and murdered at high rates. Like, and I
Yeah,
obviously am biased because I live in St. Louis, which is the most dangerous city in
do
the
you
country.
live in is Don't answer this if you think it's the wrong question. Do you live in the St. Louis city, or do you live in a nearby?
No,
St.
no,
Louis?
He's down.
I lived in St. Louis City for 2 years, a couple of years ago, up until the very end of 2018, and then I bounced to the suburbs, and I like it a lot more.
I just because like I have a Raleigh address, but you guys probably everyone's seen my house from the Google Maps. Like even though it's a Raleigh address, it's not really densely populated.
Same thing, yeah. Like I could get mail delivered to me with a St. Louis address, but I am not near the city. Like I'm not at all.
No, I'm
by design. And I mean, St. Louis is definitely different than some of these other cities he's talking about. Like St. Louis is a third world hellhole downtown, and that's not exaggerating. Like it's.
I remember
I know a lot of my friends now that none of us have ever been like, oh, be careful. But now it's like, damn, if I go to the Cards game, I gotta stay in Ballpark Village, otherwise it's too scary.
There's
weird
a
lot of U.S. cities that have these problems. Go ahead.
I'm a world away from places that are 6 miles away. Like whenever I see like murders and shit in the news, they're not far from me by paramotor. Like it's a very different environment from like my yard and my neighbors. Like they all seem like nice people, but it's not that far. Like I am in Raleigh. So what were you saying, Destiny?
I was just saying I would get so mad like in 2015, 2016, because this is when I'm debating like white nationalists and shit. And they're always like, you got to look at some of these cities and how dangerous they are in fucking Germany and Sweden. And like there has been like an increase in crime or whatever, but it's like, okay, bro, but like, have you ever been to LA or Chicago or fucking Seattle or Miami or like any of these like major US cities? Because dude, they're like, it is another level of insanity in the United States for how dangerous some of these places are.
Yeah.
Like I remember going to some European cities, like I'll ask friends, and I still do this, I'm a fucking American, I'll be like, are you ever worried about like getting shot here? And like, getting shot? What the fuck are you talking about? We're not in fucking Russia. You're not gonna get fucking shot.
No, we're gonna get stabbed,
like,
idiot.
Yeah, you get stabbed. Yeah, but hey, listen, I'll take my chances against some dude across the street with a knife versus some dude with an AR-15 that comes in and decides he wants to kill white people. Okay, listen. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's we're in a really sad state of affairs for a lot of U.S. stuff. And the thing that bothers me is I know we can do better if we could recognize that there was a problem so that the political will would exist to fix it. But we're just not there right now. And it's very frustrating to me that I go to like, I remember in 2013, I lived in Warsaw for 3 months and I'm thinking like Poland, shithole country. Obviously it's Poland. And dude, in 3 months in Warsaw, I never needed a car ever, a single time. I could ride the tram and the buses. Even like looking at the maps without speaking the language. I got around that entire city. I never felt like I needed a car ever. And I could everything was accessible.
Nice.
Everything in Europe is so much nicer. Or like trains, like I can go from two places that would be like a 3-hour flight and go to the airport or the shit. I can take a train for like $60 to go from 2 hours, and it's like the easiest, nicest ride ever. And like, I don't know. There's American cities are very, very, very frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, but it's almost like, what is to be done about it? Like at this point, so many things have been built up in the suburbs, like that. Most
like
people prefer to be built out, to be living further away.
I have a good time. I drive into the city. You get right to like everything's so concentrated, and then I drive out of the city and I go home, and it's great. It's perfect.
Yeah, I like the suburbs too. It's great.
I
have a giant home gym in my basement. It's safe as hell. I have to drive everywhere, and if I want to go to the city of St. Louis, it's quite a drive to see a Blues game. But guess what? I don't fucking go to St. Louis very often because it sucks. Like that's why I don't go. It's not necessarily because of the crime or anything like that, although that does play a part when you're talking about a city like St. Louis. But it's just that the crime has driven out all of the fun stuff out of the city, other than Busch Stadium with Ballpark Village right there. Like that, they have like an area with bars and stuff, and that's literally it. It feels like a few years ago they built Ballpark Village to be like, hey, you can go to fun bars and stuff right from Busch Stadium where the Cards play. And you cannot leave that area. You can just stay right here the whole time. And now, like, that area is getting dangerous. There was a murder in the middle of Ballpark Village like 2 weeks ago. A guy was watching a sports game and got shot in the head. Like, what? It's a horrible place to live. And I don't want to be here.
I remember that stupid fucking... Do you remember that stupid fucking Seth Rogen tweet? Where he tweeted out, Casey Neistat tweeted out something about how he got robbed in LA and he just got so pissed off, and I would get pissed off getting robbed. And Seth Rogen tweeted out, like, oh, well, I've been robbed like 15 times. I don't know. I don't think it's really a big deal. Like, I've never felt violated. Like, bro,
what?
I hate you so much.
I'm just worth $60 million. I don't mind getting robbed. Shut up, bigot.
What an unbelievably fucking stupid fucking... I hate these people. But in Community, they just recently removed an episode off of Netflix, I think, right? Because there's an Asian guy that does like he dresses up as it's like a black drow or something, but he's like in black face paint, and the joke is obviously that he's doing blackface, even though he's not technically doing blackface. But that whole episode got removed because people were worried that that was like a little bit too much. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of. I feel like there could be like a lot of humor. I mean, like I feel like traditionally, like humans joke about a lot of dark topics, and it seems kind of weird to just lose that to axe that whole section out of comedy. I feel like you'd lose a lot in terms of stand up or a lot of the edgier comedy shows. Not to say that all of it is defensible or acceptable, but
so
is blackface always bad?
Jesus Christ, Woody.
So here's the context.
No, hold on. Instead of asking that, just tell me when blackface is good.
Tropic Thunder.
I'll tell you when. No. So like, let's say kid's an NBA fan, and he's all about. Now, pick your favorite NBA player. Make it LeBron James or something.
Yeah, make it the darkest one.
Oh, well, pick your favorite one. I don't know.
Bo Outlaw. Go ahead.
Who'd you pick?
Don't matter. Go ahead.
Yeah, Matisse Thybulle. I got his name wrong, I'm sure, but he's my new favorite.
Sure, man. Go ahead.
And right, so he decides he wants to be like him. He decides he wants to be him. He buys his jersey, buys his shorts. Does his hair.
How old is this kid?
Make him 8.
Okay, he's 8.
And he feels like his costume's not complete unless he's also dark skinned. You calling that kid racist? He's a super fan.
No, I'm not calling that kid racist, Woody. I'm calling his parents socially irresponsible.
Aha.
We don't live in a society where race is not a issue. Like, we're not privy to that. We don't.
That's a choice, right?
No, it's not a choice. That's a reality. You live in a multicultural and multiracial society where the history of race and racism is interwoven with everything that you do and everything you see. And if that's not the case, my brother, that is what we call privilege. I feel like
it's the reality because too many people have made that choice, right? Too many people have decided that this is a bad thing in some way, that this kid is not allowed to be a huge, is it Matisse? Did I get his name right?
Why does he have to paint his face black in order to be a fan?
He's dressing as him. He's being him for Halloween.
Awesome. Okay, so you don't think it's important or pertinent?
You're muted, Arian.
I'm muted. I didn't.
Not anymore.
Okay, got you. You don't think it's important or pertinent to educate this 8-year-old child as two white parents of a white child in America why putting black paint on your child's face might be misconstrued as anything other than racist? You don't think that's important?
It could be, but what if these parents are good-hearted and they're trying to break down borders one person at a time?
Woody,
and they say, my kid is an NBA fan.
You want to break down borders? You want to break down borders, my nigga? Instead of painting black paint on your kid's face, go fund a poor black school. That's not going to break down no borders. It's not going to do it.
Why isn't it? It could. It could.
It will not. Because please
only because you're seeing evil in places where there is no evil.
Woody, please that's bullshit. Please, racism in America. This is the issue with racism in America, and you got me angry black man right now. But this is the issue with racism in America. Racism in America is marketed as intent. I'm racist because I have a superiority complex. I think white people are inherently better.
Okay.
That's not how we view racism in America.
Okay.
Racism works and operates in a way that is very unique. White supremacy is an actual thing. Okay. And what blackface has done over generations has marketed black folks as ignoramuses, as doofuses, as unintelligible, as not articulate, right? And all this does is perpetuate stereotypes that infects the bias of everyday average Americans. It's the reason why Karen is the thing right now. Because when she calls the police on a black man and she's scared, what does she know? She understands the dynamic that black people have with police in America. This is how deep it gets. She might not be inherently think I'm better than black people, but she understands the dynamic between black people and the police, okay? She understands very well that if a black man and a white woman are standing there at the scene of a crime, more likely than not, who's going to be assumed guilty?
Mhm.
that black man. Okay, that's how racism works in America. So for your 8-year-old child that's a white kid that wants to paint his face black, you could educate him on those dynamics and how that works and operates in our society, other than saying he's just a fan, because it's bigger than that. My problem with people in America and politics in general is that you view your little world as like, man, as long as I fix my little bubble, it's all good. That's not the case. You don't live in that world. You live in a world where there is a long-standing history, whether it be race, whether it be class, whether it be whatever the case may be. And you're part of that lineage. And it is your duty, it is your obligation to carry that lineage, put out the torch or carry the torch, and whatever the case may be. And so, no, there's no instance in my opinion where blackface is good, because it continues to perpetuate stereotypes that has denigrated our communities for years. And if you look at the statistics and the data, it backs that point. We all use drugs at the same at the same rate, but overwhelmingly black folk and people of color in general get locked up for more.
It's true, but that's not a result. Like, this kid is breaking down barriers.
He's not breaking down no fucking barriers, Woody. What barrier?
Why are you yelling at me?
Woody,
Arian, you
what
make it so people
barrier-
can't talk about this.
No, I'm telling you, you telling me a white kid painting his face black is breaking down barriers, Woody. What fucking
I'm
barrier?
hypothetical. My kid didn't do this.
No, I'm saying in your hypothetical, what barrier is he breaking down?
He's making it okay
this
to be a
little
fan of
MLK
a black
kid
person.
That little white kid made it okay to be a fan of a black person, painting his face black.
One person at a time, right? Like you're laughing at this, right? Like it has to be done as evil, right? Like this, like he's doing it.
You didn't
as
hear
some
listen
sort
to
of
a word I
minstrel
said,
show.
Woody.
Oh my goodness! You can't tell me what I listened to. I hung on your every single word.
Okay, well you missed
Play
the
back
point.
the tape and watch me pay attention to you.
You missed the point where I said racism in America is largely misunderstood by intent. Racism works and operates under a system of white supremacy that it perpetuates stereotypes over and over again. And that's where blackface has denigrated people's bias in our culture. And that perpetuates throughout the zeitgeist of our culture. If you look at movies, if you look at that's why Chris Rock stood up at the VMAs and was screaming for black roles and black leads. Because if you look at our roles in Hollywood, like regardless of how you feel about art in general, we live in a culture that is just interwoven in entertainment, movies,
okay,
entertainment, period, right? Sports,
military.
Yes, our depiction in these roles largely are negative. Largely, it's rare that we have positive black roles, and this is why Black Panther was such a big deal, right? And why you had like cats like Ben Shapiro. He was banging on when Black Panther was being marketed, and he was like, Wakanda's not a real place. Because growing up, our superheroes look like you. Every superhero looked like you. And so this was our black superhero. Representation matters. Does it not?
I feel like you're holding innocent people responsible for the actions of the guilty, right? And it's a shame. And like there are people who try to make the world a better place, and you're like, nope, you're doing it the wrong way, right? And whether that be to adopt culture or I don't know, integrate, break down barriers, you're like, no, I don't like the way you're doing that. You can give black schools money, but you can't be a fan of a black basketball player and dress like him for Halloween. That ties back to some 1920s minstrel show that made black people look bad. And it's like, okay, I see why they were so terrible. But for you to equate those two things,
before you go further,
like it assigns this horrible intent that's not there.
Got you. Do you think those black tropes harmed black folks? In what way?
I think you phrased it really well when they they tried to make them look like doofuses, right? They made them play out in a way that was degrading and non-flattering, and it allowed people to think they were better. Like, and if the black guy is the dumbest person in every show, then at some point people start to see them through that lens.
Got you. And
That's
when
why
did
it
that
was
stop?
bad.
When did that stop, Woody?
I don't know. What are you saying? It didn't? Is that what you're going with?
That's what I'm saying, Woody.
Yeah, I get it. It's
That's why
not
we fight
minstrel
for
shows
black media.
anymore.
That's why
but
we
instead
fight.
it's shit.
It is minstrel shows. They just changed forms.
Right. Well, that's technically not minstrel show anymore. But I see what you're saying. Like, I can't even think of a show that makes a black guy the bad guy anymore, but I'm sure it happens. What's a modern example of that?
I would say like contemporary like TV. I think we've gotten pretty decent in terms of like at least not making like every black guy the bad guy or being that stereotypical insofar as that goes. There's still other stereotypes or problems, but
Yeah. The Wire, maybe? It's a little
I
while
think
ago.
The Wire had pretty good representation on both sides. I
Yeah.
would say.
So the issue is you see how that has affected culture, right?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I don't feel like I'm affected by minstrel shows anymore. I don't
You
think
might
I've
not
even
be,
seen
Woody.
one.
Let's say you're the most rational human being that's ever walked the earth, Woody. You might not be affected by that shit. Okay. Do you think? Okay. Do you believe that jury bias is a thing?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
All right. My chat is talking to me. I'm sorry. They're in my ear.
Mute them, Woody.
I'm thinking about it. I don't need you. I don't need you $2 to talk shit in my ear while I'm trying to make my points. Sorry, they derailed me. What was it? Why am I unaffected by minstrel shows? Is that where we were?
No.
Why do juries have bias?
Oh, why? Thank you. Yeah. So I think where you're leading me there is: do juries have bias because they saw this on TV and they have a built-in predisposition to think that a guy who looks like this and dresses like that is the guy they saw on their TV show?
It's
or
a
the
small.
movie?
It's a small stream that leads into a big river.
Yeah, I hear you, and I think that actually there's a lot of rational sense that goes into that, right? You know, you can absolutely train a society to say this is what bad looks like, so that's true.
Do you think that has happened?
Yeah. I also think Destiny made a solid point where they've gone a long ways to back off of that, and they try to be much more socially responsible than they did even 15 years ago.
I think that's a horrible way to describe that. I don't think we've gone a long ways to back off of that. I think we've gone a long ways to reverse some of those things, and we fought for that. People fought for that.
I think that
Yeah.
I feel like two really important issues that are brought up is I think that something that Arian says that nobody ever seems to catch in the main conversation is something that's really important is when we talk about like systems of racism that exist in the United States, you don't actually need any racist people to make those things happen, right?
Yes.
Like technically there's nothing racist about the war on drugs until you look and see who ends up getting, enforced on this, most of the time. There's nothing technically racist about, patrolling certain low income neighborhoods until you wonder, well, why are there certain low income neighborhoods? Why do some people tend to live in certain areas where the system can be really fucked, but it doesn't necessarily require like a racist cop to do something that has kind of like a racist effect. So you can contribute to like systemic harms without realizing that you're actually doing it. I think that's an important point to bring up. Something that I think is interesting that Woody says, and this is like kind of the side that I fall on though, is that like, it seems weird sometimes if we understand that racist outcomes can be a result of non-racist actors, there has to be some line where like, is every single potential behavior, like, do we always like all of these need to be eliminated, or can any of these ever be normalized at any point in time? So like two examples I'll bring up is one, like white people wearing dreadlocks. Like, can that not be like a thing that's okay? Like an incorporation of, Black culture, or like white people rapping. Like, is that okay? Like an incorporation of Black culture into stuff that you do without it being like making fun of Black people? Or as Woody brought up, more famously, there's an example of somebody that wanted to cosplay a darker skinned character. I don't know if she's like Brazilian or I don't know who the fuck she was. But in Apex Legends, and she kind of like charcoaled her skin a little bit. It wasn't like full on black. She didn't do like big lips or anything, but she definitely darkened her skin. Like, should all of these things be treated in this horrible way that all need to go away, or can any of that ever be incorporated into like a broader culture, and then these actions made okay and not have those same racist outcomes?
Well, I think all of it is contingent on the nuance of each situation, honestly. I don't think it's just like you said, committing racist acts doesn't mean, in my opinion, you're inherently racist, right? It could mean that you are a constituent in a society that breeds that. And so to me, it's just being aware of that. And to me, that's what allies are for. And that's what allies are. Like, I'm not inherently homophobic, right? I keep bringing up this example because I used to say those words all the time.
Yeah,
But
same.
over a course of time of me understanding their plight, I understood my place in that denigration of that group of people. And so it depends on, like, a lot of this stuff is just contingent on how people feel, right? And you're never going to have that 100% cohesiveness at least while I'm alive, as far as it's okay to do this, it's not okay to do this. You're always going to have disagreements. But to me, it's about paying homage. It's the reason why somebody like Eminem is not universally accepted in hip hop and the Black community, but more often than not, it's like, yo, he understands. Because
I definitely understand that. So, but I'm just curious in terms of like Woody's example. What if this kid went so far as to, he didn't quite do like the blackface, he didn't darken his skin, but what if he like put on like a stereotype, like a black afro as like a wig or something? Like, would that be over the line? Or if this kid legitimately just wants to look like a certain Black figure because he wants to emulate them because he thinks it's cool to dress up with this person?
To me, no. And so when we're talking about this, like, we're talking about this in like really broad senses, right? It's not like, yo, man, fuck that little white kid. That's not my stance on it personally. Like, even if, like, Woody said this shit live to me on stream, and I just explained to him I'm not comfortable with it, right? I'm not one of those cats, like, I'm not finna fight you anymore. I'm 33 years old. I'm good. Like, I'll go the other way if I feel like you one of those kind of people. My thing is, the bigger issue to fight is the zeitgeist of America. Our cultural soul of America is inherently racist. And the understanding of that is more important to me. Right?
Yeah, I feel like you've got a little bit of guilty until proven innocent there, right? Like, Eminem can rap.
But that's my point though. Is that I think correct me if I'm wrong, but you think racism is just an inherent, I think I'm more superior than you because of my skin color, right? Am I wrong by saying that?
Yes.
Okay, so
explain
to me your definition of racism.
Well, so, okay, that superiority thing I think is the actual definition of racism, but there's something else. There's a prejudice, and that's the bigger problem I have. When people prejudge, when people assume this or that about a group or a group of people because they're judging a book by its cover, right? So racism, I think, actually is that superiority thing if you were to define it. But prejudice is the other problem that we're talking about here. And I picked a little kid dressed and wanted to emulate a basketball player because it was the most innocent example I could think of, right? A child who wants to emulate this guy, who looks up to him. He says, man, I watch this guy's vlogs. He's awesome. He's my favorite NBA player. I think he's my favorite NBA player right now. But this innocent kid can't emulate him because there's rules in place here, because of something that happened in the 1920s about blackface. And I described it as blackface, but it's not meant to be that. It's meant to be what Destiny described, just dressing up as the guy.
But you just agreed that the ramifications of blackface still reverberate through our society. You just agreed to that. If you disagree with that, let me know.
The ramifications of like acting in like a racist way towards Black people, like a racist character. But like, what about white kids that wear like street clothes? Like, this is a lot of stuff that was like stereotypically Black, and now, I mean, like you said, like Black culture is one of the most emulated cultures around the world now. Right. Like, is a white kid wearing gangster clothes? Like back in the 90s, right, when we grew up, at least when I grew up, they would say like, you look like a thug. You look like you're trying to be a gangster. My parents would say that. They're Fox News like brainwashed, and they with their dog whistling is you're trying to look Black. That's how they'd say that, But like nowadays, we're cool with white people, like wearing whatever street clothes or whatever fashions or whatever, because in a way you are like representing that culture. Does it seem possible that at some point in time like darkening your skin a little bit to look like a certain figure might not be like a horrible thing, or might not be like that big a deal, I guess. Although you already sound like it's not like a huge deal to you. I'm not trying to say that.
Yeah, no. I don't think it's a good. I mean, I don't think it's a big deal. That's not what I'm saying. Fetishizing culture is normal in my opinion, right? But the issue that I have with it is there's certain stereotypes that perpetuate tropes in our society that are harmful to this day, right? And they have a history, and they continue to perpetuate that history. So a white kid wants to dress up as, in Woody's example, as a black basketball player, right? What is the point of painting his face black if we're trying to get to a racially neutral point in America?
You ask that question a lot. I don't think it's a fair question. What is the point of, like, well, what is the point of anything? Like, I imagine if somebody's dressing up as a
like
well, no, well, sure, we can go there. But I mean, like, so if somebody's trying to dress up as a basketball player, and you're asking, well, what is the point of him darkening his skin? Well, probably to look more like the basketball player, right? Or what is the point of reading the N-word in a Huckleberry Finn book or whatever? Well, probably to read the book that you're reading, right? The point is to just do the action, right? So if you want to dress up and look like a basketball player, and you're like super white, maybe you want to look a little bit more like him. So the point would be to darken your skin, right?
Right. So this is where I would say context is everything. Like it's not the same in America. It's just is what it is. And to deny that is to be willfully ignorant about the current circumstances Black folks are in America and the history of Black folks in America.
So then the question is there ever a time when you get past it, right? Because like in my head,
would you say this to a Jew about the Holocaust?
No, I don't think you're here. I don't think you're catching the meaning I'm going for.
I know exactly what you're talking about. At what point do we get past this shit in America about racism? I agree, 1,000%. At what point do we get past this shit? But what is not getting past it is perpetuating these tropes. But the interesting thing is, white folks love to draw the line at the Holocaust. They love to draw that line. Well, hold on a minute. You would never tell a Jewish person to get over the Holocaust. But what you're telling Black folks is to get over the embarrassment that has been perpetuated throughout the entirety of our existence in America. That's what you're asking us to do. You should ask yourself why you don't feel the same way about the Holocaust.
You've spent a lot of time telling me how I feel tonight, and it's not a good way to debate.
Well, explain to me. I'd love to be proved wrong. That's my thing.
People have dressed up as me for Halloween repeatedly. I fucking love it. It's an honor, right? It's not all that flattering. They called them Woody's gamer shorts. I wore plaid shorts a couple of times. Apparently, I look really silly in plaid shorts, and it became like a thing. They wore t-shirt and mandals. I wore mandals on camera. That stuck. So
I think the difference between some of those things though would be that like if somebody wants to, so this is like a way that I think of this. If somebody wants to dress up
because they dress up as Woody.
Yeah, if somebody wants to dress up as me, there's no like intrinsic quality of mind that somebody could dress up with that would be like making fun of me. There's not anything that's intrinsically bad about me. Right?
You're making fun of me.
Yeah, no. I'm saying like by virtue of just like what I am. So like if I'm a white, if I'm a guy, I'm okay generally. Like if somebody dresses up as you to make fun of you, they have to actually like pick out like particular traits to do it. They're not things that like a large group of people have like a history of dealing with. Whereas like if I were to dress up as like a Black person, right? Like that characteristic of being Black is something that intrinsically has been negative throughout like American history. So the engagement with that is going to be a lot different than like your personal engagement with people dressing up as you, I guess. Right. There's like a different feeling there.
Somebody's going to say, "Oh, that's funny. You dressed up as Woody." Whereas if somebody dresses up as Black, right, the adjectives involved in that are going to be entirely different. And they're going to be disrespectful, and they're going to be meaningful in a social context.
Like if I go to a convention dressed up as Woody and nobody knows who you are, nobody's going to laugh at me or get the joke. But if I go somewhere dressed up Black or whatever, like there's a whole bunch of words or insults or things that people can dig into just by virtue of me being Black because of the social association with it.
The reason I brought up dressing as me is because it seemed pretty parallel to dressing as a black guy. And
What the
here's
fuck,
and I-
bro.
so here's
what?
where the differences lie, right?
How
There's
can
obviously
you
not a
even say
long
that
history.
shit?
How can it dressing up as me be like dressing up as you? How are they so wildly, totally different? Because
What the fuck
of the
would he-
reaction
Are you
to it.
serious, dog? You dead serious too, ain't you?
No, look, I guess I'm
How
just trying
can
to have this
dressing up as a
conversation.
black man in America be different than dressing up as Woody? You really
Like,
asking that question?
See, you keep
Let's
doing
no,
this,
let's
right?
let's dig into
You
it. Let's
don't
dig. Let's dig
argue
into it.
in an honest, like intellectually curious way.
That's
You do it in
nonsense
the
because
still
I've been doing
judgmental
that for
way,
about a
and you
good
tell me what I
3
think
hours. I've been doing that for a
over
good
and
3
over
hours now,
again.
Woody. I've been gonna like, come on now. That's just a wild thing to say.
Yeah,
What's the difference between dressing up like a black man and dressing up as Woody? That's a wild thing to say. But I'll let you intellectually defend yourself, and I'll respond. I apologize if I disrespected you. Go ahead.
So when someone dressed up as me, I didn't choose to be like, oh my God, you picked my worst outfit. You're making me look dumb. It was like, oh, that kind of neat that you thought of me. Like you could have dressed up as anyone and you picked me. And there's an ability to do that too. If you're Matisse, I'm sure I'm messing up his name. He could be like, dude, of all the players in the NBA or of all the athletes in the world, you picked me. And I think that's kind of cool. Like maybe it's my vlog, maybe it's my play, maybe it's my character. You picked me. You thought of me. Of all the people you could have been, you picked me. And I think it's an honor, right? That's one way he could respond. Or he could say, man, are you not familiar with the 1920s minstrel shows that made black people look like doofuses? I'm offended that you chose me. And it's like, look, I get that there's a cultural thing that we live in a world where there are other implications here. Like I get it. I'm not immune. I'm not deaf to what you're saying, but I'm also like hopeful of a better place.
Well, the better place doesn't involve what you're talking about.
It does. It does. The better place.
How can
the
you
better
say
place,
that?
There's
a majority of Black America, Woody, that says a white kid putting black paint on his face says, "Yo, I don't fuck with that." And you're saying the ideal place, Arian, is where he can do that. And we're saying, no, fam.
Yeah, the ideal place
is the ideal place
of
me. What if I had a kid and I dressed him up?
What if I got to finish my sentence like I let you?
Okay, go ahead.
It's the ideal place where it's not hurtful anymore, right? Is the ideal place where black people stop saying, hey, I hate you dressing like me.
I think Arian is laughing. I'm sorry, I keep hearing Adrian. Arian is laughing, but I think he agrees. I think it's just like we have so much work to do before we get there that we're having a conversation that's like way. You don't. Oh, not there's no world.
Fuck no. If
Wait,
I'll agree if you agree with this, dog. I'll agree if you agree with this. What if there's a world I dress up in rags and I have a Star of David on my shirt, and you say it's cool I dress up with like that? It's all right. Are you saying that's okay?
Yeah, I don't care.
Bet. Then we have nothing to disagree. I mean, we disagree ideologically, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you can't see if you can't see a problem with either one of those things, then I feel like you're an idealist in a world. Yeah, for sure. But you're an idealist in a world that is based in an entirely different reality than I occupy. And so
I feel like you've taken these idealist dreams and assigned an evil intent to them for 3 hours now.
It's not about. All right, I'm gonna say this. This is the last time I'm gonna say this. It's not about intent, Woody. It's not about intent. There is piles of evidence that says people's bias towards a certain demographic can demonstrably change their outcome and their fate in their life, depending on the crime that they committed. That's not light to me. It is to you because you don't have to deal with that reality. It's not light.
You keep telling me what I think. It's not a fair way to go.
If it's not light, then you would have to concede that it's a problem.
I do concede it's a problem.
So why perpetuate it?
How do you solve it?
That's a heavy question, but dressing white kids up in blackface ain't it?
I swear, like hypothetically, imagine a world where we didn't have these divisions. Imagine a world where like people saw emulating black guys and emulating Jewish guys and emulating Native Americans and emulating white guys as just all the same. That they didn't say like, oh my gosh, don't do this. This has a history and a damage associated with it. Instead, it was just, I don't know, people were all on the same team. That's the goal. And how do you get there? I think you're saying we're not there, so don't pretend we are. And I hear where you're coming from, which is what I actually do in practice. But the dreamer in me says we can do better than that. The dreamer in me, like, I was in a call, and a guy joined, and he said, "What's up, my soft days?" Right? So people went bonkers on him. They said, "Oh my God, how can you do that?" And he's like, "Man, I thought I was depowering the word. I thought that, like, when I used it in a positive way, that he thought that he was like improving the world, and everyone else saw it and felt like he was making it worse." But like, I get the spirit of why he thought he was doing a good thing. It's just people aren't ready for good things yet.
I think marketing it like people aren't ready for good things is disingenuous to people.
Again, you tell me what I think. Now you're saying I'm disingenuous. Like, everything
I'm telling. No, I didn't say it has nothing to do with what you think, Woody. But you
said I was being disingenuous.
You telling people.
Almost every reply to me is saying, Woody,
you
this
telling
is what
people,
you think.
Woody, you telling people that they're not ready for this utopia that you've envisioned in your head is disingenuous. Yeah. That's nonsense, man. It's
so
nonsense.
You think I'm being disingenuous?
It's disingenuous to us. It's low key. It's lowballing our intellect. It's saying, y'all just not ready for this plan that I got. That's just like, I got this utopia, fam, and you just not ready for it. Like, get the fuck that. No,
it's not. I'm not. I wasn't even thinking of black culture.
Tropes.
Let me tell you what's in my head instead of you telling me what's in my head. I was actually thinking my chat. My chat here is not really supportive of me half the time. Oh, they're talking to me right now. They say, please express to Adrian that I'm trying to understand, not justify. I had my chat in my head. I feel like my chat is like, Woody, you ugly boomer. You can't dress up your kid in blackface. And I'm like, man, you don't see what I'm going for. You don't see that I like the dream is a place where people don't say, oh my God, you're on the wrong team. You can't do that. And then you heard me say it and you're like, oh, Woody, you're lowballing black people's intellect. And it's like, oh, dude, I didn't do that. You told me I did that.
We're not ready for it. Those were your words, not mine.
The dude who donated isn't ready for it. And when you said suddenly I lowballed black people's intellect, which wasn't in my head. It's not what I said, but you tell me what I said.
You said we're not ready for it. Why am I on the ropes? You said that shit.
Something that I'm really curious. Do you think that jokes about like Irish or Italian people are like okay? Like if somebody wants to dress up as the Godfather, or if a non-Irish person wants to wear green on like a St. Patrick's Day, Arian, do you think that those types of things are generally okay, or do you think that that's like punching down or not good?
I don't think they're the same. I think it's apples and oranges.
Well, sure. I'm not trying to say one is the same. I'm just saying, like, in general, should it not be okay? And I'll just tell you where I'm going with this. Because my question would be that, like, at one point in time, Irish Americans and Italian Americans were heavily discriminated in the United States. They had a pretty bad history when they first brought over. But nowadays, like, generally, at least as far as the U.S. is concerned, Irish people and Italian people are just white people now. They're more or less integrated.
There's a reason why that is.
Sure. But, like, so I feel like today when people view things like an Italian joke. So for instance, Cuomo, I suck at pronouncing his name. When Chris Cuomo got called a Fredo, everybody made fun of him because it's like, dog, you're Italian. Who cares? Like nobody's actually discriminating against Italians in the US. I feel like Woody's argument is kind of like, if obviously this is very far down the road, but if we're at a point where Black people had similar socioeconomic outcomes, similar educational opportunities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that like certain types of jokes or dressing up and charcoaling your skin to look like a basketball player wouldn't be like a big deal. Do you think there's like a meaningful difference between those two things, how we treat Irish and Italian Americans now versus how we might look at African Americans in Woody's idealistic world, 100 years from now?
I think I think the Black American experience was extremely unique. Like, and
Mhm.
so to say, can we look at it like we used to look at Italians or Irish people? It's not. It's just not the same, right? It's just apples and oranges in my mind. And so to say, do I wish that we had the same socioeconomic circumstances, so where there was equal opportunity, all of that? Of course, I wish that was the case, but it's not the case right now. And idealistically, Woody's view is one day, and tell me if I'm wrong, Woody. I don't want to misrepresent you, family. Is one day when a little white kid dressed up in blackface, black folks don't get offended, right?
To take it a step further, I wish they felt honored, right?
Perfect.
Like,
all right, cool, all right. And so my idea, Destiny, is that one day white kids don't want to dress up in blackface at all.
Why?
And that is what the fuck do you mean, nigga? What do you mean? Why? Nigga, do you understand what that shit means? Well, I don't think you understand what that shit means, dog.
No, well, in this context, it's they're picking a hero.
That hero locks people up.
Matisse Thybulle locks people up.
I don't know who. Like, what do you? I'm talking about blackface.
He's an NBA player right now. His vlogs are blowing up. He's in the Disney bubble. He edits like a professional.
Sure, I'm talking about blackface. That shit has harmed people, Woody. That shit has ruined people's lives, Woody. People were on death row and died because of that shit, Woody. You might not agree with the reasons as to why, but it happened. It happened, and it continues to happen. And so you're saying we should feel honored that somebody wants to put black on their face when they reap the benefits of not having black on their face? No. Hell no.
Wait, can you say that? I'm politely. Would you repeat that? Because my donation was in my ear.
Got you. I got you. You want me to feel honored that a little white kid wants to put black on his face when I know
he wants to be like you.
Woody, you want me to feel honored that a little kid wants to be like me and put black on his face, okay? And me knowing the historical context of what that means and what that has done to our people in this country, I reject that wholeheartedly, passionately. And in your idealistic world, you are exuding exactly what we call privilege. You want people to dress up like you, Woody, because there's never been ramifications of anybody getting in any kind of trouble because they look like Woody. Matter of fact, it probably is the exact opposite. That's
not why. No, you literally said you want people to dress up as you, and this is why. And this is, again, you do it again. You tell me what I'm thinking. I want people to dress up as me. Not I want it, but if people choose to pick me for Halloween, it's like I'm shocked they even thought of me. Right? Like literally.
You say this, but I think like the two really big counterexamples that I can think of, because it's hard, I think, for like, I hate fucking using this, but for like white straight people, it's hard for us to think of this because technically our categories are usually good, but there is a very rare intersection where people have made fun of categories, and for a bunch of people that say they don't care about identity, holy shit. The two best examples I can think of is how many geeks and nerds were mad when people pretended to be geeks and nerds on The Big Bang Theory. That was actually some shit that I saw like a ton of people get. People don't talk about the show as much anymore, but there were a lot of white gamer nerd people on the internet that were so fucking mad that these guys were playing fake nerds on TV. They were so fucking upset about it. And the other thing I can think of is Jimmy Kimmel made 2 skits making fun of people that stream or watch streams. I don't know if you ever saw these. Yeah. Oh my God. I think these might be some of the most heavily thumbs down videos on all of YouTube. And again, for people that are like, oh, you know, we should be able to make fun of black people, Asian people, women, like it should be fine. As soon as somebody says any jokes about gamers, white kids on the internet lose their fucking mind over
or if they change a character that's traditionally white or something like that.
They do bonkers. I don't jump on that train, but I've seen it.
The cave gets carved in.
I'm sorry. Say it again.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, we were both talking over. Destiny.
It was me who talked. Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
But that was there. That happened, and then there was a third thing. This is actually one of the things that changed my mind big time on representation, because I used to say it shouldn't matter like what you look like in media. Who the fuck cares? Like, why do you need to identify with somebody? But when they made a FIFA game that had a Hispanic main character, this was way back, I think in like 2013 they did this.
again, white people lost their fucking mind. Like, what the fuck, a Hispanic main character? This is weird as fuck. Like, I don't understand this guy or whatever. And now you see a lot of people like, why is there a female lead? Like, why is this character gay? Is there a reason for it? Well, I don't know.
Why is it bad to have a Hispanic main? Like, I think of Hispanic people as soccer players oftentimes.
Sure, yeah, but a lot of people got fucking mad at it when FIFA started doing it more in their games. Or it might have been a black main character, not a Hispanic main character. I don't remember. But like, yeah, but like people get so it does seem like
soccer too. Anyway,
yeah, I know. I agree with you. I agree that it's dumb, but like people get mad over it. But yeah, like I see like gamers as a group get very, very, very defensive when anybody attacks like gamers as a group, or when you see like representation of gamers in media. Even people get really fucking mad at it. You know, even if you would say that like, well, who cares? It doesn't matter. And I think sometimes it can feel like when you talk about blackface, like, well, shouldn't you be honored that, you know, some kids want to dress as basketball players? Sometimes people might try to, like, if they were to turn the question around on you, they'd be like, okay, well, maybe the main characters in Big Bang Theory suck, but shouldn't you be happy that at the very least, like, you're seeing like nerd or geek representation, like, you know, on TV? And the responses that would come out would be probably similar as, you know, another culture's responses. You'd be like, well, that's not real gamer culture. Those guys aren't good representations. Those guys don't represent it in a good light. They don't know anything. The joke is that they are gamers. Like, it would be a lot of similar arguments you'd hear people make if you were, you know, stealing from or emulating somebody else's culture.
Do you see how that applies at all, Woody?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, like, yeah, I'm processing it actually. Where do you stand on the Roe versus Wade thing? First of all, pro-choice, pro-life. Second, how do you analyze the politics of what's happening?
How boring do you want to be?
Really? You think this is boring? Maybe
well,
the viewers
there's two things. So I'm pro-choice as morally and philosophically. I'm very pro-choice. As a matter of law, I kind of think it should be in a vacuum. It should be left to the states because it seems to be a very contentious issue still. So it seems kind of mean for the federal court, or especially the Supreme Court, to decide that thing. From a law background, I think that Roe v. Wade was shitty ruling. The whole substantive due process and how all that is built out is very weird. There's like 17 different amendments that they draw from in order to say we should have a right to privacy, right to abortion.
And also the case that it's based on, like. Was the woman's name? It was Roe.
Roe, and then there was Casey v. Planned Parenthood later. But yeah,
but she falsified her story. That didn't happen.
Sure, although the precedent that was set is kind of the more important thing. But the original case is weird too. But the unfortunately or fortunately, I think that Alito's ruling, if it comes out, I think is bad. I think that even if we thought that Roe was bad law, there's kind of this concept with the Supreme Court or with all courts called stare decisis, this idea that like once you've made a decision, especially like a watershed decision that other stuff is built off of, you kind of have to stick by that. And when the Supreme Court gets in the business of reanalyzing 50-year-old decisions and then reinterpreting them and doing this stuff over and over again, you kind of undermine the validity of your court. And I think for that reason, not whether I'm pro-life or pro-choice, but for that reason, I think Roe and Casey should both probably stand, because we don't want a Supreme Court that's constantly re-ruling and reinterpreting stuff from decades ago that other stuff has been built off of. Yeah.
I was looking at it more like, so I think that pro-choice is the more popular position. I think something like 2/3 of America think that there's
depending on how you pull it. Yeah,
it should be, right. I'm with you on that. I was wondering if it could have a positive effect for the Democrats. Given that the Roe versus Wade threat always seemed hypothetical and not a problem, and now it's like, holy shit, you know, like
it's a saving grace. If you're a Democrat, you're like, please get rid of Roe v. Wade because Biden. I love Biden. By the way, he's done an amazing job as president. Fuck all three of you if you don't think so. I love Biden. I ride or die, but he is not the type of guy to drive people to the polls. I'm sorry. Right. People voted for Biden because they were voting against Trump. And Biden is not the guy to do it. But with the Roe v. Wade shit, where you're actually telling women to go buy a fucking hanger if you want to get an abortion, that is like the lifeblood saving thing. Hopefully,
or drive or stay away.
Yeah, AOC goes too far for me. I in particular, I like detest the idea of paying off student loan. Like
It's a whole other thing, but it is actually the worst idea ever suggested in history. Everything that anybody in this audience thinks they know about student loans is just completely and totally wrong. It's unbelievable. Like,
I found this Photoshop. I just wanted to be clear that I know it's a Photoshop.
The net spending that people spend on education today is about the same as it was in 2001. A lot of people don't realize that. Like the value of a college degree, like the time it takes to pay off an average 4 years bachelor degree, is like about as low as it has been, like lower now than it has been like in the history of the US. Like the amount of debt that's being held right now, 55% of that debt is held by people that are going after graduate degrees, like upper, like middle class people.
I have heard that. That really convinced me a bunch, where like someone laid it out where they're like, basically what you would be doing is upping taxes on working class people who couldn't afford to go to college so that money could be applied to a post-grad person who's probably from a rich family.
That's my argument.
Fuck that. That's it's bullshit.
Even if it's just undergrad school. These are still the upper crust of society in general, right? Now, I know there's some guy out there with a degree that didn't lead to a job, but if you went to college, I say this all the time, your workplace injury rates are lower, your pay rate is higher, your unemployment rate is lower, everything about your job is better. You probably work in air conditioning if you went to college. And now you're asking some carpenter to pay off your loans? Fuck you.
Exactly.
Stop complaining about how hard things are for you.
The median wage difference between like high school is like 32,000 or 34,000. The median wage for like a 4-year degree is like 58,000. It's ironically, in a paradoxical twist, college education is one of the biggest drivers of wealth inequality in our society because 4-year degrees confer such a massive wage premium to you that it's unbelievable. It's why people push for things like trade schools and associate schools, because we have to bridge that gap, because not everybody can go to college and get a 4-year degree. And if you can't, you're fucked. And the idea that some motherfucker wants to walk out of college earning 75, 80,000 a year and is crying about his like 25,000 a student, like, dude, pay it back. You got your job. It's fucking worth it. Like, pay it back. You're fine. Like, Jesus.
The reason people go to college is because it's still a good investment. So that's that I don't like about AOC. If there's something I do like about AOC, it's that I feel like she's always operating from a place of goodness. Even if I think she's wrong, I think that she's trying to do what's right. And I can't say that about all politicians. I can't say that about Trump. I think Trump does a whole lot of shit because it's good for him personally. There's this, it seems like there's example after example of Trump just, I don't know, diverting military flights to Scotland so that his golf course has a better airport support. We're paying more to refuel planes now so that his golf course has the airport nearby. It doesn't go out of business, right? That's Trump shit. AOC, all her shit is like, I don't know, self-sacrificing, death threats, etc. Or even if it's not, she thinks she's doing a good thing. I don't necessarily agree with this policy. She's probably against guns. We're not going to agree there. She's definitely for paying off student loans. I don't agree with her on a whole bunch of her left shit, but I do like that, you know, she's trying to do what's right, and I don't think that's true of all of them.
I don't think that's true of the overwhelming majority.
The overwhelming majority. I think what we really need is term limits, like really concise term limits, like 2 terms, like make it like the presidency.
Wait, why?
Because I think that they become creatures. I think that they make a entire career out of being a representative, and they just get bought off. Like the main point that I was making last week when I was just like didn't give a fuck that somebody came in and desecrated my capital. Is like, that ain't my capital. That's fucking Pfizer's capital. That's fucking Microsoft's capital. That's like big oil's capital. Like those people are all a bunch of fucking corporate shills. They're in no way voting in my best interest. They're voting in their own best interest 100% of the time.
So I care way more about what Facebook thinks of them.
I also don't think it should be. I don't think it should be a paying gig at all. They shouldn't make a dime, and they shouldn't be able to make a dime.
No, because then only really rich people will be able to do it.
So this is something that like people talk about this all the time, and everybody will fight against this, and it feels so fucking wrong. But like, honest to God, if you want to see why politicians do the things that they do, you honestly just need to look at who's voting. The idea that like corporations are dramatically changing the course of what politicians might otherwise support is actually just completely and totally untrue. A lot of people will talk like this big talk about how politicians represent like other companies and politicians, blah, 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 blah. But then like when you actually look at how people behave, like it's actually not true at all. Like, so people
the COVID
say,
relief bill had extra enforcements against live streaming, right? Like pirating content.
Correct. Yeah. But like you phrase it in that way.
Based on the voters? You think the voters were like, you know what? We need harsher punishments for people who share UFC streams.
If you talk about it that way, sure. But if I say the COVID relief bill is going to include more protections for creators that are going to make it so that this unprecedented age of the internet isn't allowing people to steal and pirate their content, like how China abuses our intellectual property so that the rightful creators of that content can profit off of it. Well, now it sounds like more, right?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good argument.
And this is how a lot of stuff goes. Like people, so for instance, like earlier we were saying like, oh, they just represent big oil. Like fucking Americans represent big oil. You know, like I lived through, was it
It was sometime in the 2000s when gas started to get crazy, $4 or $5 a gallon in a place where it's never fucking happened before. And Americans will cry about the cost of gas while the most popular selling vehicles in America are F-150s and Chevy Silverados, and all of these, even unions will say like, oh, we need unions to protect the environment. Man, fucking fossil fuel unions aren't sitting out here, asking for the environment to be protected. I'm in California, and to the south of us, there's like the largest, most cost efficient energy per kilowatt of a solar farm ready to be turned on. And the only reason it hasn't been turned on yet is because the state hasn't negotiated with like the local fossil fuel workers to protect their jobs, because they're all going out of business as soon as they flip the switch on that plant.
A lot of that's true, but like you can definitely point to enormous things that like the majority of the population votes for, like
what?
Like high immigration, not good for middle class wages. It's not. It causes wages to stagnate, and people don't want that. And so if you were just going by what the average person was voting for, most of them are middle class, and when they see their wages stagnate for years and years, decades and decades, they don't like that. And like they're not being represented at all. So clearly people like the Koch brothers and big business, who do benefit chiefly from low cost labor, H-1B visas, they get the benefit.
People say this, but it's just not true. People will say like, who benefits from high immigration? Like nobody wants that. People will say out one end, I want American jobs. I don't want all this bullshit. And then they go and they shop at Walmart and Target and they buy things that are made for $2 in some factory halfway across the world. Or they'll say shit like, I don't want there to be massive immigration. Like it's bullshit. All these cheap workers come in. But then when we say like, oh, cool, well, let's raise the minimum wage so we can pay American workers money. Like, no, fuck that. Wait, hold the fuck. Wait, what? I don't want to pay people money. So, well, then you want to bring immigrants to work for them. People will make the same claim that like immigration is destroying local job markets, but our unemployment before the coronavirus was like 3.25%, which is lower than it should be. We want to keep unemployment at around 5% for some frictional unemployment. The idea that like people are opposed to immigration, it's kind of like when people say things like, I'm opposed to getting fat, and then they'll eat like all this fucking food and they'll get fucking fat, and they'll be like, I voted against
now
fat.
I'm feeling personally attacked here, Destiny.
Yes, I'm feeling attacked by the fat.
Sure. Like, I'm saying, like people will make all these claims about things that they're for or against, but their behaviors just run totally contrary of that. A really funny study that I saw was people talk about like environmental change, like climate change. And when you poll people, should we do something about the environment? Then the number starts at like 92% think that we should do something. And then when you say like, will you make a $10 commitment a month to it? That number drops from 90% to like 70%. And then when you say, will you make a $100 a month commitment? It drops to like 20%. So you have all these people that will vote for these complicated ideas in polls. Well, it's like, oh yeah, I support this or I support that. Like, I want to fund our schools more. And then when politicians are like, all right, well, how do you feel about property tax? Lower that shit. Fuck you. Lower property. It's like, oh, I guess you don't really want it then, I think that that's more representative of a reality than some weird shadow corporation buying off politicians. I think politician opinion tracks like voter opinion like pretty closely. I think that's just how it works. It's just we don't want to accept that because things are so fucked. We don't really want to take responsibility for it.
The other thing about immigration is that I think Taylor presented it as there were kind of two options. We can either pay Americans a lot or pay immigrants a little. The third option is just shipping the job outside the country entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we don't want that.
Right. So, but if you have no immigration, maybe that's what you get. Like we're all competing with automation and global workforce.
But like you do see that like corporations.
That's why we need another world war
on a lot of things. Like you see that, what was it? I think in one of Trump's bill nonsense, it was like upping the H-1B visa level to unprecedented new heights. Like who lobbied for that? Who wanted that? Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Google, because they want cheap programming, and big tech is enormously powerful. People, American citizens who are graduating with those degrees who want those jobs, they don't want that.
But this is, again, a lot of these things are just totally fictitious. People will say like, oh my God, like H-1B workers are coming in and they're destroying like tech jobs. But that's not true. Computer tech jobs are wanted like in every single, even in the fucking Midwest, they're still looking for more computer programmers. Like if you graduate with a degree in comp sci, you're like fucking anywhere in the country, like starting at 50, 60, 70, 80,000 plus a year, like in places where that's a lot of money. And then in San Francisco, if you get any entry level job at any big tech company, you're starting at like fucking 6 figures, easy. Like this idea, like it's so crazy that we run around and we say all these things about like immigrants destroying jobs, but you can't see it anywhere. It's like not in any data point. It's not even in any reality. Like you've never in your life heard somebody say, we got to stop going to school for comp sci. Like way too many H-1B workers. They're killing us. Like it just doesn't happen. But somehow we all complain that they're stealing all the jobs. Like, I don't know. The reality.
I don't like my wages would have been higher.
I don't think it's stealing. Stealing jobs isn't, I don't think any of us brought that up. It's the wage stagnation that I think people would have issue with, because that is undeniable. Like low skill wages do depress, the middle class, and then high skill immigrants do depress like the standard wage for people who are trying to get in industries like that. Like, of course, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google, they're all going to hire H-1B visa people if they want, because they don't have to negotiate salaries with them because they're here on an H-1B visa. They can't negotiate. If they get fired, they have to leave.
That's true. If people don't know that, that's true. With H-1B visa, you're there to do that job in that country. And if you lose that job, you don't get a different one. You get shipped home.
I mean, at the end of the day, it seems like all of us are supporting the growth of tech companies. All of us want them to continue to grow, and like people continue to use their products and services. And it doesn't feel like it feels like we'll take like a strong moral position on something, but the way that we live our lives at the end of the day, it kind of shows that there's a demand for this, regardless of whatever, cost there might be associated with it. We can talk about how like maybe wages would have grown faster if we didn't allow any foreign immigrants at all. But even that, we don't really know that's true. Maybe the growth of these companies on the backs of H-1B workers has allowed more positions to open up that have allowed companies to pay other workers more. Like,
or maybe the growth is local when it otherwise wouldn't have been.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. Like specialization of labor, for instance. Like when we did NAFTA, a lot of people complained that parts of automation of the U.S. manufacturing of automobiles moved to south of the border. And while that was true, the overall amount of jobs in the automobile industry in the United States stayed roughly the same because a lot of the labor became more specialized in the U.S. to work on other things. It's never like a one. It sounds really shitty to say. I hate like that. It's nuanced argument. There's never like a one-to-one trade-off on like worker comes here and then job is lost. There's always like more growth and economic activity that comes off the back of that. And then from a macro level, just looking at things, like it doesn't seem that we're suffering in all of these horrible ways that people sometimes say that we are. Like, believe it or not, prior to the COVID thing, I think it was like 70% of Americans were polled and said they felt like the economy was going really well for them. And so we get polls like that, and then on TV, everybody's saying like, oh, the rich are fucking everybody, like all the jobs are getting lost. It didn't seem like that experience was coming from like an average American person, just like terminally online Twitter people, is what it feels like.
Yeah.
Can the record show that I did not initiate this topic because
and you didn't say
my
the
fans
old
all
F-word.
said that I was gonna go full blown fucking politics right off the bat. I did not open this can of worms. Okay. I will say that the idea that all of us are cool with gay people is pretty interesting in light of a very recent Supreme Court ruling that had to do with a cake shop in Colorado. Though I'm not too sure if I would die on that hill that everybody in America is super cool with the gays, as we would call them, but.
Yeah, there's definitely pockets of people who aren't cool with gays still. I think that's like a losing battle, the same way like guns are a losing battle.
It's clear to me that anyone who makes cakes for a living is probably gay and self-hating, and that was the genesis of all of that.
That doesn't seem like as much of a gay issue as it is a free speech issue, though, right? Because like they had ruled the other way when people refused to make anti-gay cakes, right? Like they're like, oh, whoa, he doesn't have to make that cake.
Who's ordering anti-gay cakes? What would that have on it?
I've never heard this as a Supreme Court thing.
We weren't going to bring that up.
It's interesting that the same group of people that were so upset about the gay cake baker thing seemed to be very upset when Huckabee was ejected from a restaurant. When Sarah Huckabee was ejected, where was the free speech people there? It kind of makes you think,
You're totally right. It's
I agree.
Glaring hypocrisy. They had every right to tell her to fuck off and leave. It's their business.
It turns out, so maybe you guys can correct me on the Supreme Court ruling, but my understanding is the reason he wasn't forced to do that was that it was an art. Like you can't force a guy to like commission an art piece, which is what a cake is. Now, if he wanted to go in there and buy a cake off the shelf, they would force him to sell it because you can't discriminate on a couple of grounds. They include sexual preference, race, sex, age, I think, is one of them. Disabilities is one of them. Yeah. The government has defined things that you're not allowed to discriminate for, but you are allowed to discriminate against douchebags, which is why they would have to sell an off-the-shelf cake to a gay person, but not necessarily Sarah Huckabee Sanders, because you are allowed to discriminate based on douchebaggery.
I mean, I think
they're not a protected group, funny. It turns out.
Which is why I'm no longer allowed at Applebee's.
Okay, so I love and appreciate you, Woody, but everything you just said was so completely wrong. I feel like I'm stepping into all of my triggers here. This is a very popular piece of fake news that a lot of conservatives are spreading about that Supreme Court ruling. So the initial question constitutionally that a lot of people had was, can you compel someone to create art? And if you can, or more importantly, just creating a cake, does that count as compelled art, right? And this is what we were kind of looking to the Supreme Court to decide. Can a baker be forced to bake a cake for a gay person with a gay message? Does that count as compelled art? But the reality was that Supreme Court decision didn't make a ruling on that. So the ruling was called narrow, and a lot of people don't understand what that means because the ruling was actually 7-2. So it wasn't like close. What the narrow ruling meant was that in this very particular case, the Supreme Court decided that the Colorado Commission that was in charge of deciding whether or not that was a hate crime treated the baker incredibly unfairly. That they had made disparaging remarks regarding the guy's religion, and that the Supreme Court didn't feel like the Colorado Commission made a fair ruling in this particular case. So the Supreme Court did not make any statements whatsoever on whether or not baking a cake for a gay person is compelled speech, or whether or not that sort of art is like compelled speech. And the ruling only specifically applied to this case of whether or not the Colorado Commission treated that case fairly.
Okay.
Yeah, I did hear that it was, everybody thought, because I saw plenty of conservatives tweeting stuff like, they're calling a 7-2 narrow, trying to trick you. And it's like, well, no, that's not what that means. It's just the scope of what they decided.
Okay, so Supreme Court decisions aside, where do we fall upon this idea? I have a couple of scenarios to lay out there that I'd like to hear people's opinions on. Let's say I go into a baker and I say, hey, I'm marrying my friend Taylor, my life partner Taylor.
Finally.
I wanted to say Kyle and Taylor, forever, and fondant, and I want 2 grooms on the top, and I want interlinking male gender symbols also in fondant, all the fuck over it, and they say no. Can they be compelled to make that cake? And also, a second cake is being commissioned that day. This time, Woody is getting the cake commissioned. His cake says homosexuality is an abomination, and it's got and
a festive cake.
It's just a white sheet.
It really
cake.
seems like be Steve's cake, but carry on.
It's just a white sheet cake, nothing fancy. It just says homosexuality is an abomination, and they're like, no, absolutely not. I will not make that cake. Can either one of or both of those bakers be compelled, or should they be compelled to make these particular cakes?
Whew, okay, so we're getting into the heavy social issues. In the United States, we have protected classes, and these protected classes generally call under special protections if they're discriminated against in certain matters. So,
Justice
for instance,
Anthony Kennedy
I believe race, religion, nation of origin, your sex, and then the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has ruled that this includes like sexual identity. So, like if you're gay or straight. Your familial status, if you've got kids, if you're a veteran, if you're disabled. These things are considered protected classes in the U.S. In the United States, what we've decided is that thus far, we've decided that it is not considered free speech to discriminate against this group of people. So what that means is, let's say a gay dude comes into my restaurant and he's being a huge piece of shit. I can say, I want you to leave for no reason, or I can say, I want you to leave because you're being a piece of shit, or I want you to leave because you're a Democrat or a Republican. But you can't say, I want you to leave because you're black, or I want you to leave because you are from the country of India, or I want you to leave because you're a man or gay or whatever, right? Those are generally the decisions that we've made so far in society in terms of like protecting classes of people. And, we can go into social reasons for whether or not this is a good or bad idea, but that's generally where we're at right now. So if you ask, I want to make a cake with interlinking genitalia, I mean, you can say no to this because as a bakery, maybe you just don't do genitalia on cakes.
Gender symbols. The circle.
I like Steve's idea more for our wedding.
Steve's into some weird shit. Like, do you not know how hard-ons work? You can't link them.
Oh, yes, you can. If one's uncircumcised.
Some of those porn stars are
docking.
Pretty, shit.
Yeah, my mistake.
We're going to be talking. Damn it, Kyle, are you circumcised?
Absolutely.
Me too. God damn it.
You're incompatible.
You need a lot of foreskin to dock 2 hard dicks. I don't know. But yeah, so like if somebody came in and they were just like, I want a cake, like you could say that like I don't do like those types of symbols. So like I could do a cake with 2 guys and no problem. But in terms of like adding like interlinking gender symbols, I don't know if maybe that you could say like that's the policy. Basically, as long as you're not discriminating against a certain class of people that we've decided are protected classes, you're generally okay to do what you want. But it's when you're discriminating against somebody on the basis of what we've decided is a protected class. In the US, we generally decide that's not an okay thing to do.
If like they get like an incendiary, like to Kyle's point, that message on the sheet cake that Woody got, if Woody was like, hey, I'm going to my religious event and we're talking about how much gays are ruining the world and terrible, and that's why we need this on there, would they be able to say, no, I'm not doing that? Or
so like you could say,
well, that is your religious right.
Sure. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an ACLU guy. So someone can correct me if I'm wrong. If someone in chat reads this later or on the YouTube comments or whatever, you could say, no, I don't want to do that type of message because, I consider that to be offensive or whatever. And that doesn't include like, just because of a protected class or whatever. But you wouldn't be able to say, I don't want to do that cake because I don't do cakes for religious people. So that I think that would be the distinguishing line there, which
Could
seems
they
kind
get
of fine,
out of
but
this
that's
kind of stuff just by like changing their real motive, where they're like, I don't like the fact this guy's Muslim or whatever. I'm not going to bake his Muslim wedding cake or whatever, but I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, oh, you're being rude. You're being a piece of shit. Get out of here. And then they no recourse.
He comes in. He wants a groom and a tiny little bride.
yeah, you could yeah, people do this all the time when they fight about like workplace discrimination, right? Very rarely is somebody going to say, I'm firing you because you're a woman. You usually have to do like a big investigation to find out like, okay, well, this guy's fired like 82% of the women or something, and I can prove some sort of thing, right? It's usually more complicated than saying, you know, like, I'm discriminating against you because I hate the women or the gays or the whatever Indian people or whatever.
Yeah, it seems like all these companies can still, if they want to turn down service, they'll find a workaround for it.
All right.
Well,
all
yeah,
right.
you basically just say fuck you, I don't want to serve you, leave. That's it. You can just say that.
But beyond the legality, I want opinions. Our opinions. We are now the Supreme Court. Just the four of us. Forget the fact that's not the rest of them have been killed. There are a few. The four of us have to make a decision on this. Now, personally, where I stand is neither one of those bakers should have to make that cake. The baker shouldn't have to make the cake with myself and Taylor on the top, and he also should not have to make Woody's hate cake.
Christ, Woody.
My bad. I was born hateful. It's not my fault.
So I guess you go first.
See, the whole art side of it changes it a bit for me. Like I kind of like the way they handle discrimination. So I feel like they have it right. You can't discriminate based on age, sex, disability, sexual orientation, etc. Should he? But you know, if I commission a painting that's against what you like, fuck it. I think it's funnier if you're forced to do things you hate. So there's my answer.
What a terrible rationale.
Hey, you know what? This is a lifetime appointment. I can use any rationale I want.
Oh, that's true. We can just be bonkers up here. Gay marriage legal. Gay divorce, nay, nay. That decision is made, my friend. Oh, man, we'd be a great Supreme. Well, no, the country would be a shambles.
The compelled art question is like really interesting. I personally don't know. I would have to think for a long time about that because we almost have to answer like unanswerable questions like what is art, you know? Say, for instance, we say, okay, well, you know, this is clearly art, you know, commissioning a design on a cake is art. We should be allowed to do that. How far could you take that? Like, say I go to get a bouquet of flowers, right? Well, is it art in the way the guy decides to arrange it? Say I decide I want to get a new paint job done on my car. Is it art to get like my car spray paint? Like, I feel like that argument could be stretched to uncomfortable lengths. Maybe I'm not entirely sure on that. But on the flip side, you know, should somebody be able to commission something like a painting that is clearly, you know, art?
I think it's
a really hard
blurred line. It's a really blurred line with what you just described because, like, I don't think painting my car red is artwork. However, I've seen those vans that have an entire like mosaic on the side,
or even
that's clearly art, or landscaping. Cutting a yard is not art, but cutting the shrubbery in like your Edward Scissorhands into like all kinds of like animals and stuff. That's art. I can't do that shit.
They face that with porn, right? In porn, there's a line that's really hard to distinguish between art and porn, right? You know, you can see a topless woman with the skirt on in the sunset, and it's art. It's art.
Well, I think you nailed it, Woody, because the age-old thing they say about porn is, I know it when I see it.
That's right.
And that was the Supreme Court litmus test. Yeah, I'll know it when I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that does it. I think that does it across the board with all of the things we just discussed, because I can look at landscaping and I know artful landscaping when I see it. A golf course isn't artful. I mean, they cut it. My yard isn't artful, but like, and I'll go back to Edward Scissorhands. That was art.
How it does seem like, to Steve's point, you could just infinitely reduce this, where it's like, hey, you just mowed my lawn. Yeah, but look at that. I did I'm riding this lawnmower. That's a skill. That's an art. And look at that cool little spiral I did over by your tree. You know, that's really neat.
It's a little gay.
It's a little gay. But like, you could like take the art. Like, I feel like it's easier. I know it when I see it is easier with porn than it is with art, just as a giant, you know.
I disagree.
It seems odd to think that like trans people are just straight up faking it. Like it seems like an.
I mean,
what percent do you think?
I think that easily there's 10 or 15% of people who claim to be trans who either want attention or want some sort of a special benefit or just think it's fashionable.
Maybe.
I
mean,
think
I
man,
definitely wouldn't
trans
say
people
that
get-
most people.
I would say,
Yeah.
Kyle, that number drops a ton when they're older than like 22.
I'd say that number drops. Yeah, sure, okay, yeah, okay, I could buy into that. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
but the problem is that like a lot of kids are getting. Maybe we should talk about this. This is a weird topic I hear about on the news occasionally. Is when kids as young as like 5, 6 years old are getting hormone therapy to head toward the gender that they identify as, right? Like someone born with XY chromosomes is saying that they feel like they were born with XX, and they now they want estrogen at 6.
Puberty blockers or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, Kid,
Yeah.
do you want to do that real quick? So here's the argument, okay? So, man,
Are you going to
Transgender
be in
issues-
favor of this?
yep,
Oh.
transgender issues are the easiest. I love these arguments because these are the ultimate fact over feel. And conservatives always claim that they're facts over feels and Democrats are feels over reals. But this is the easiest fact-based one in the world. Okay, so like here are some facts, okay? Transgender people that go through puberty are at a much higher risk of committing suicide because they are because once you've gone through puberty, any changes that happen to your body, especially going through puberty as a man, are very fucking hard to hide. When you talk about bone structure, we talk about muscle mass, we talk about like the size and shape of your body. All of these things are really fucking hard.
It's too
to
late
hide
for
from.
me to go back. Look at my hands.
Yep. So the argument that's put forth is that if you have somebody and you can demonstrate with good empirical evidence, so for instance, we can poll some percentage of people that feel like they are transgender at a prepubescent age and then follow that with a longitudinal study post-pubescent and say they still feel that way, maybe it would be better to give puberty blockers to a person, not hormones or not like transition them already, but give them puberty blockers before they go through puberty so that they have a little bit longer to make a decision. Now, largely from the evidence that I've seen, and I could be wrong, the APA supports these types of practices, and it doesn't seem like there's any damage caused by delaying puberty. And if the end result is people being able to transition easier and not fucking kill themselves because they went through puberty as what they felt like was the wrong sex, I don't see a problem with that. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is make people feel better, right? Get rid of bad I say bad thoughts like mental illnesses, like gender dysphoria, and you're trying to help people live the life that they most want to live. So I don't see a problem with that, and I don't understand how. I mean, like people make it sound like at 6 years old, you're taking kids and like you should be a woman or whatever. But I don't think that's generally how like these diagnoses go. These are taken pretty seriously in the psychiatric industry. That's what I got.
It definitely is taken seriously in the psychiatric industry, but it's not across the whole ADA. That's an organization, and they changed it so that body dysmorphia is no longer on the DSM-5. It's not classified as like a disorder the same way they used to say homosexuality was a disorder. But
well, okay, wait. To be very
the whole-
clear, that's not true. Body dysphoria is still a disorder. The disorder being you have a very severe bad appearance of your body versus what you wish it would look like. The difference in that, the dissonance in that's the disorder, and it causes you severe grief or whatever. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, but they're not calling the trans issue a disorder.
Correct. Yeah.
I think they call like the comorbid issues with it, like depression, bipolar, that obviously disorders. But the whole thing of like puberty blockers not impacting kids and not having lasting effects, like that's not true. It changes bone density, it changes hormones permanently. It can cause body alterations that won't get negated. Like it's a really serious thing. And to me, the biggest part of it is like I don't care if you want to be trans as long as you're an adult. Like that, you can't. This is a huge decision to make. And a 6-year-old has no concept of sex or puberty or the future. Like they don't know. And so when you go, okay, this kid who wouldn't be allowed to pick out if they want to eat ice cream for dinner or if they want something, like if they wanted a cigarette or to drink or something, no, they can make this unilateral decision to change their body forever. Like that's pretty scary.
Hypothetically,
like, and some of these kids do regret it and grow out of it. Like,
how would you
that
feel
is the thing.
if we could do genetic testing on a 6-year-old and determine whether this desire to be a girl or a boy, right, opposite of what they seem to be primarily, was wired into them? If we could say, oh, look, chromosome 92
we could like
is
figure
hot.
it out.
Yeah, like I can see why this guy feels.
Well, that's
this
totally
way.
different.
That's
Yeah.
not. That's going to be who he is.
Well,
That's like a medical thing that if you could be able to tell with whatever blood prick test or whatever you're talking about. But like this is just a stated preference.
Right,
You know,
but
like,
I think that
not even stated preference, a stated identity. If
there
that's
have
what you
been
prefer.
studies, I'd have to Google them, where they find that people who are transgender, sometimes they got a little girl in them. And that's, they can explain why they feel the way they feel. I could hunt for it.
I don't know anything about the science of the thing. I agree with what Destiny said in that if they are merely delaying puberty, I'm good with that.
If they're merely delaying it, I want to learn about the effects of that, because Taylor and Destiny are on different teams there. Taylor
Well, I think
says,
they're talking about two different things. Incidentally, though, I think Destiny described what Destiny described. I'm okay with delaying, but if you are giving the boy female hormones at an early age or the girl male hormones at an early age, I'm not for that. I feel like you need to reach maybe the age of consent. Wherever you are, whether 13, 14, something like that, right? And whenever you get somewhere in there, maybe you're able to make such a heavy decision like that, even though you're still not able to buy alcohol for some reason or a gun.
Give the girl male hormones, Kyle, think about the positive side. She could grow up to be
a
smoking hot, muscular, square-jawed, hairy belly vixen.
Oh.
Whoa! All right, I changed my mind.
just be like Randy Couture, but with a camel toe. Oh, you're gonna love it, Kyle.
Oh, so hot.
No,
yeah,
no thanks, Woody.
I think the general idea is what you talk about is that it's like one of you said it. I think was it Woody or it might have been
hairy belly vixen. That was me.
No, that it is a really big decision. The thing that sucks though is that it's kind of like college. It is a really big decision, but unfortunately, you're kind of pushed into making it before you really are prepared to, right? I'm very much of the mindset that like we make decisions about college at a hilarious fucking early age. The fact that a fucking dipshit 18-year-old knows what they want to do for the rest of their life, and they haven't even worked a fucking job before, that's hilarious to me. It's super fucked. And that you could take on 6 figures of debt at that age. But I mean, that's kind of the way society works now. You kind of have to, And it's the same thing with transgender stuff too. It's like, well, what gender do you want to be? It's like, well, that's a big decision. Okay, well, I'll wait till I'm 25. Fuck, it's way too late. I wish I would have chosen differently, So I think that the goal of puberty blockers is to try to just give you a few more years, and it's still really rough. Like, how is this fucking 16-year-old who, even if you are the gender and sex, even if all that matches, you still have identity problems figuring out who the fuck am I? How do I exist in this area? What are my relationships? How is my like all of it is still hard. But I think it's just supposed to give you like a few more years to be able to like try to figure out like how do you want to proceed in life before your body goes through irreparable changes.
If I'm wrong in that you can just pause it with no long-term thing, then I would be more okay with that.
I turned out okay.
It's like, yeah, you turned out okay, and you started. I would have needed to be on puberty blockers for 6 years to be the same as you. But yeah, it's just we really don't know that much about this and the long-term effects of it and how it's going to pan out. And I feel like maybe we're getting over our skis on doing this to children. Like I don't think that should be too controversial. Like and then that's totally different. Like I really feel for the kids who are struggling with that because I can't imagine it. That must suck. Like it's really got to suck. I mean, look at the suicide rate of trans people. It's like 40% or something. Maybe even I don't know. It's somewhere around there. It's ridiculously high. But yeah, there isn't really a good answer to it. The ones that really I don't like is when you can tell that there are parents pushing kids in a direction where it's like you're sexualizing a child, like having them dance around adults in provocative ways. I don't remember what the name of that trans kid is who's like 9 and has been like dancing. It's like it's one thing if that kid was just independently doing it, but then you'll like see their parents and how much they're clearly pushing them into it and trying to capitalize on it. I think his name is Desmond. Is like their parents, that kid's parents are like trying to make a career out of it, like make that kid's famousness a thing. And it's like that.
This is one of those things. This is one of those things that sounds like a conservative problem that doesn't really exist. This sounds like the trans people raping people in the bathrooms. I don't know if there are that many parents that
I
are
don't think
legitimately.
that's a problem, but I can see these kids.
Are there really? Is this really happening? Where there are all these parents pushing their children to take hormone blockers because they want to be famous?
I didn't say all these parents deliberately because I don't think that it's all these parents. I think that there are parents who do that because it's in vogue and it's the thing right now, and that they get a lot of attention from pushing their kid into it. And Like I just don't think it's appropriate to be sexualizing children in this way, having them dance in provocative ways in front of adults.
My little Lisa's learning the clarinet. Oh, really? Because my Bobby is a trans dwarf furry.
Fuck, I've been outdone. How many descriptors does your child have? That's how many labels. Yeah. It is more complicated than I think most people want to let on, because, and you're right, like a lot of it, the right-wing side of it gets discounted with kind of stupid things like, oh, they're going to be raping everyone in basements, or not basements, in bathrooms. And it's like, well, I mean, this probably would be a thing already happening, right? Like there would be men dressing up as women and just going and raping in the bathroom.
I feel like that's so look, there are problems with the left. You guys have heard me rail about the overweight, purple-haired, furious women representing the liberal side all the time that I just like, why are you on my team? But on the conservative side, these non-fact-based weirdo problems like transgender rape in the bathroom, liberals that think we should have no borders and let everyone in and put them on welfare and give them cars. You know, Trump goes on rallies and says they probably want to give them Cadillacs or Rolls Royces, he said. Right? Where are these positions coming from? You're flat out inventing boogeymen on the other side. And that's just something liberals seem prone to, at least on my Facebook feed. Yeah. Destiny, who's going to be the next president?
It's honest to God. I think it is right now in my head. It is a 50-50 toss-up between Trump and Warren, I think.
Okay. Dick?
Warren. Trump. He's just he's too funny. They don't have anyone on the Democrats don't have anyone funny enough to take him down. No, the economy's killing it. Has anybody ever lost their second term when the economy's doing great?
That's what it's going to come down to, because everybody keeps saying we're coming up on a recession. They've said it for I think like 2 or 3 years now. We're getting real worried about it. If it hits soon enough and the economy goes to the shitter, people start losing their jobs, probably more likely it's going to be a Democrat. If the economy's killing it, it's going to be real hard to get a Democrat in office over Trump. Yeah.
I wonder if Trump's been really adept at manipulating the Fed into keeping rates insanely low to stave that off. He's been slow playing it for 3 years, trying to keep it down so the stock market keeps climbing up. I think he's been doing only that on purpose.
All his other moves are just stumbling blindly, but that one's calculated.
That's the one thing he understands. Like I know he knows what the Fed rates do to the stock market.
This is the one. Okay, this is the one political thing for that. This is my one topic of the show that I'll push back on. So the reason why the Fed is keeping rates low is we're in this unprecedented economic era where rates have been low for so long, but inflation is still low as well. If inflation is still low, there's no fucking reason to raise the rates. That's the only reason why the Fed still has the rates low. Now, unemployment is low too, but if there's no inflation, you might as well keep fucking lending money at low rates. That's the only reason. Trump doesn't have any influence on the Federal Reserve. And listening to Trump talk about budget deficits and trade imbalances, I don't think he even knows what the fuck the Fed is or what it does or what the rates are. I really don't think he does, because every time he talks about it, I think I listened to a video a few years ago of Trump talking about paying off the trade deficit with our GDP or something. It was unbelievably stupid. I didn't even know how the fuck these two numbers are supposed to relate to one another. But yeah, I think that's it. The Fed is just, we have no inflation, so they keep pumping money.
Yeah, they're known to screw up. I mean, they've tested the waters a couple times by lifting them up slowly, only to see the market immediately react. I mean, whatever. I don't care if he's responsible for it or not, but I don't think you can dethrone him with a worse version of Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is funnier than Elizabeth Warren, and she couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton's funnier than a person? Like, she's the least funny person. She's ranked last.
She's got so many people working for her, though.
Yeah, Warren's not funny. I don't know that that's how they win an election, but maybe you do.
I don't know. When I watched some of the early debates, there were a couple Democrats where I was like, that guy, and this is bad, but like, that guy looks like a president. Somebody like Cory Booker, he talks that he looks like a president, you know, even if he isn't like polling that high. But then there are some people where you listen to him talk. So like, not to hate on everyone's favorite candidate in the audience, depending on who you are, like Andrew Yang, absolutely not president. He's timid. He is like someone talks over him, he's quiet, puts his head down immediately. He always looks like he's a kid in trouble with something. I absolutely could never see somebody like voting on somebody like that. I think that like stage presence, maybe I wouldn't agree with it. It's not like comedy exactly, but I do think that some level of stage presence is really important. There are some people that are on stage talking. Klobuchar is one of them, Amy Klobuchar, who are talking like, I could never ever see you as president, you know? Somebody like Hillary or Warren, sure. Somebody like Bernie, even if you don't like him, he's loud, he carries himself well. Buttigieg does it okay, I think. Trump obviously has that stage presence for sure, yeah.
I wonder if I see in the future, maybe not this term, stage presence like you're talking about, falling back a bit in importance and long form taking over. You know, how well you can do
long form?
Yeah, like the JRE podcast, right? Like that introduced Yang. Now, more people are going to see these debates than JRE's podcast in 2020, but roll out to 2024, 2028, and people will be able to put themselves out there in long form, and you'll see how they do. You'll get to know the candidates better than the bullshit debate,
the 2-minute debate,
2 minutes,
clips,
or even the 30-second rebuttals and stuff like
yeah.
that. That's not.
How would you
going
fix
to
the
be...
Middle East? 90 seconds, and then a 20-second rebuttal. Yeah, like okay.
right, and people are just going to take that format and
debate it for 2
ditch
months.
it and listen to what they say on PKA instead.
I think you're underestimating how much pleasure people derive from immediately reacting to things and then having a new thing to immediately react to. Like with Trump, you love him, hilarious, awesome, and he gives you something new and hilarious every day. And if
That's
you hate
what
him,
I
he gives
think.
you something to piss off, something to get
Dude,
pissed
all
off
caps
at.
tweeting, so funny. From
the president.
Yeah,
God
from the president to be all caps tweeting.
Can you imagine?
It's like peak boomer to be doing like multiple exclamation points. Oh,
it's funny because multiple exclamation points is bad, huh? Yeah, stupid boomers.
Who did you guys say? I know, Dick, you want Trump. Did you say who you wanted? Destiny? Are you still up in the air?
I like Warren. I lean
said who
towards
he
her. I mean, obviously over Trump, I would lean towards Warren. Yeah,
she's kind of like between Bernie and a Biden, right?
Yeah, she's still pretty far to the left, but I mean, I think our whole political system has gone pretty far to the right at this point. So I'm okay with someone a little more left.
I wonder if Bernie Bros, his big contingent of supporters are gonna be livid if he gets passed over again.
Bernie has no chance. I don't know if people realize this. It's really sad because people are looking at the polling data like to try to show that he's still 20%, 20 points. But like the reality is that Bernie had an entire election cycle to campaign, and then he came into this election cycle at 26, 27 points, and he's only dropped since then. He's totally stagnated. He's never had a surge. Warren has been climbing. I think she came in at like 2 or 3, and then she got up to 5 or 6 after the debate. She's like 8 or 9. She's climbed, and now she's in almost second place. I think the aggregates, actually might have her at second place at this point. And she should just keep climbing. But yeah, Bernie's just kind of been sitting there, just losing steadily for the entire time.
Well, she's going to take over first place if Biden's eyes and teeth keep falling out on TV.
Yeah. Every time he opens his mouth, there's another gaffe. It's either Popcorn Joe or some random fucking, geez.
Did you see
when he was
gap?
talking, he's like, I really love America.
I wonder what that was.
Oh, man.
His teeth weren't falling out because he doesn't have dentures. He has replacements
according to
crowns
him
or something.
Well, he doesn't have dentures yet, but
no. He's had a tremendous amount of dental work, and he kind of gets made fun of for it. I was reading. There's websites devoted to Joe Biden's teeth, and they say that they don't look very natural. So it's not dentures. That's not what it is. So his teeth weren't falling out, but something was happening. He lost control of his tongue. Was he trying to like retrieve gum before he spit it out? I don't know, but a thing happened.
That's even losing control of your tongue is worse than your dentures falling out.
I'm not defending him. I'm just saying it's not dentures.
Huh? No, it's funnier to believe it was dentures.
Losing control of your tongue, isn't that some shit you do when you're sleeping that makes you choke and die? That sounds like a serious thing. No, don't you choke on your tongue sometimes if you get knocked out or something? Yeah.
Maybe
it'd be funny if like Yang went over and put a wallet in his mouth.
Yang is
Hey,
going
this was
real
a
hard
lucky
on
one
that.
for you.
When Yang said, "Oh God, I would become a full on Yang, so I'd max
I
out
like
my
Yang.
FEC contribution." I hate him, but when he said he was going to do an unprecedented thing on stage, I was waiting for that. Okay, everybody, no one in the history of candidates has ever done this. Everybody, look under your chairs.
You get a
There's
grand.
your freedom.
You get a grand. You get a grand.
Oh,
I
that
gotta give
would've
it a
been
mad
so
props.
good.
There would have been so much cheering in that audience. It would have been funny if he opened the debate with that. If that was the first thing he said. Because now, if you're ever the candidate, man, how fucked do you feel? Like, oh shit! Like,
Yeah.
you're like setting the meta for the next debate. Like, what are they going to give away at the next one? Right? You're not going to show up
Right.
empty-handed. You know?
And then
Birdie's
you
out
tell
there.
all the other candidates, check under your podiums. And they've got $1,000 too, and it makes them look dumb. Biden's talking about he can get more polydent.
Birdie counters it. Everyone has a health insurance card under their chairs next debate.
Jesus.
I love that, Destiny. If you're right, that means Trump is going to beat the first woman president twice. That'll be.
That would be the narrative. Yeah.
I mean, you could die happy. He's like, yeah, that's what I did. That's my legacy. I stopped the first woman president twice.
what a flawless American narrative too. And it's got to be real shit because like every minority group has their own struggles or whatever, and you've got women and you've got black people and
gamers.
I can't gamers. I can't imagine being a woman and you're like, we got the first black president of the United States. And then we had 2 female presidents stopped by Mr. Grab 'em by the pussy.
Stopped by Biff
Really?
Tannen.
Really makes me wonder.
Dude, Warren's got a better chance than Hillary did because
Absolutely.
even most women were like, oh,
Yeah.
she sucks. It's like, nobody, like, I've never met someone who was like, rah, rah, shish, boom, bah about Hillary. Like, it was more, even at the time, it was more like, yeah, well,
Oh God.
I feel that way about
Bernie,
Biden.
or I wanted this. Yeah, Biden, he was just kind of Mr. Whatever.
Who's
like,
enthusiastic about Biden? Who is like, dude, if Biden gets in, oh my whole world.
The
all the
mainstream
people
media.
that well, no, it's everybody that's not on the internet, unfortunately, right? We don't see them, but Biden has a lot of support among moderate Democrats. All the people that like Obama love Biden, and I mean, there's still like a sizable portion of the Democrat base. Yeah.
I see it differently.
you'll never
I
see
could
him
be wrong,
online.
But I see, hey, we want a guy who can beat Trump. Biden's winning, therefore we're voting for the winner. And the only reason Biden is winning is because he's winning. And if that gets taken away from him, it collapses.
A lot of people, like, we spend so much time on the internet. When you step outside of like the very small like internet political circles, you talk to people in real life, like a lot of people don't realize that in America 98% of its people still think that socialism means like taking people to fucking death camps and killing them. Like that's the only thing they think of, and people like Bernie Sanders and even Elizabeth Warren, that's some real scary shit. When you start talking about taking away all private health insurance for a socialist Medicare program and all, like, that's really radical. If you spend a lot of time on Twitter, you might think, oh, like there are kids on Twitter that think we're fucking, 2 weeks away from the socialist revolution. Okay. They got their hammer and sickle book. They've been saving up mom and dad's allowance for the past, 6 months, and they're ready to go buy their first 20 whatever handgun. They're ready to go. But they're not. It's not like most people fucking hate that shit in America. Even Democrats, most people fucking hate that shit. Most Democrats are moderate or conservative, and a lot of people online totally miss it.
You can see the Democrats like even counter signaling people like Bernie and to a lesser extent Warren, where like a moderate Democrat will. I mean, you can see it on fucking CNN, MSNBC, all the mainstream, more left-leaning media. They don't like Bernie at all. They try to ignore him. Like they try to push him to the side. They want Biden. They want basic bitch Biden or just as basic bitch Kamala. And Kamala has zero chance because she's like, all the people she's trying to get to vote for, they're like, do you know that she sent kids to jail for missing class? And she's like, oh, nuh-uh. And they're like, yeah, you did. And there's no coming back from that. She's fucked. Is she even in it anymore? Kamala?
She's still there, but she got a lot of momentum after the first debate, and she lost all of it, and she's pretty much back to the non-contenders.
I've been hearing him talk
Tulsi,
about
because she seems more like a mind your business, stay out of the Middle East person. But I haven't seen anything about her. She has zero chance.
All I know about Tulsi is that she was definitely in the military. Because every fucking time she answers a question, it feels like 9/11 shit or whatever. Like, by the way,
does that too.
And top 3 of the Democratic candidates that you would want to fuck. She comes in first. Definitely.
Speak for yourself.
It was so painful after the debates when everybody in the mainstream media, you'd see a lot of people like, wow, for some reason the Google searches for Tulsi are off the charts and we don't know why. A lot of people must be looking up her policy positions. And I'm like,
looking up positions, all right.
That's when you go to Bing and look for nudes.
Yeah. She I do like how some of them, like I think it was Alexandra Cortez who started like I'm going on Periscope Live while I make Kraft mac and cheese, and then like the establishment old ass Dems were like, this is how you reach the kids, and you have like Elizabeth Warren
with
there
her beer
being like,
beer.
hey husband, bring me a beer. We like to do this sometimes. I'm Canadian in this example for some reason, but we like beers. And yeah, it's just it's embarrassing.
AOC gave
It was
good
so
advice
bad
on
because
that.
it was so real. It's like, yeah, that is how you probably ask.
Yeah.
AOC was
I
like,
believe it.
hey, be genuine. If you're not, then you're gonna get flamed. Everyone's gonna see it. You know, so if you go online and do a live stream and it's not you're not acting like yourself, then everyone sees right through that. I thought she was.
Did you see like Beto O'Rourke like cooking burgers? It was so cringe.
It was during the Senate run. Beto was killing it on the live streams and the social media, and he always had these quotable moments.
He put the burger on like an English muffin.
Maybe so, but then Ted Cruz went out there and tried to do what Beto can do, which is like appeal through social media. He's fucking everything up. He can't get out of profile mode, and suddenly he's on sideways on his live stream, and it was clear that that wasn't who he is.
Yeah,
but he won.
It's all so uncomfortable. Like to at least like got to give respect to AOC for that. Is that she actually did it in her kitchen, just kind of leaning her phone up and like, like who knows?
You're giving credit to a woman being on Instagram cooking food, Taylor. That's a new low. Happy fall, y'all.